In the apocalypse of 2074, extreme global climate pushed everyone to the brink of death. In his previous life, Ling was kind-hearted. He saved the starving goddess with all his supplies, but she colluded with other men, stole his things, and even treated him as a human meat ration, cutting off pieces of his flesh daily to keep it fresh. Ling died in indignation and humiliation. Reborn on the eve of the apocalypse, Ling not only possesses a virtual space, but can also travel to a parallel world of harmony in 2024. He swears to take revenge and become the ruler of both worlds. We chat on Ling's phone rings again. Ling, with the nickname Goddess Descends, sends a message. Hurry up. I'm freezing to death. What kind of weather is this? Ling was the university goddess Ling had pursued for 4 years. The goddess always played hard to get. Every time Ling was about to give up, she would give him a little hope, making him feel that with a little more effort, he could be with her. Ling gave his all to please her, but every time he fell just short of winning her heart. Ling replied, "On my way." Then he put away his phone. In previous years, June temperatures in Jiangzhou would soar to 37–38 C, but this year the weather was bizarre, only 78 C, with many people on the streets wearing down jackets. A cold wind blew, and Ling couldn't help shivering. In less than 2 months, the apocalypse of extreme cold and heat and monsters would begin. And he had been reborn on June 1st, 2074, at this very moment. He also gained a virtual space that could store supplies, and most importantly, there was a door in the space that led to a parallel world of 2024, a stable and harmonious society where Ling's identity was an office worker. In his previous life, after the apocalypse, Ling ate only a little dry flour every day to save Ling and braved extreme cold to bring all his supplies. But Ling not only took all his supplies, but also sold him. Ling would never forget how he desperately called her name. And the goddess he had never even held hands with looked at him coldly. Ling was tortured to death. Such a woman deserves to die. Ling sneered. In this world, only he knew the apocalypse was coming, and Ling still treated him like a simp. He slowly walked toward the meeting point. The Xinyu app on his phone also popped up a new message. Xinyu seller confirmed, 200 yuan received. Alipay balance 387300 yuan. Xinyu buyer Xiangzi. Bro, where did you get these mineral water bottles? The quality is amazing. We tested the mineral purity at 96. Pollution level 0. Unbelievable. Is it from decades ago? Xiangzi, do you have more? I need a lot. Ling chuckled and replied, I have stock, but you need to order in advance. In 2074, a global land and water were contaminated by nuclear pollution. City residents drank treated water, and natural mineral water was extremely rare, only obtainable from deep underground, costly, and difficult to extract. A 500 milliliters bottle of Maotai natural mineral water with mineral purity 52 and pollution level 7 sold for 5,000 yuan and had to be queued online. At high-end dining, the most luxurious was to blend 70-proof Maotai liquor in a natural mineral water with mineral purity above 52 and pollution below 7. Before the apocalypse, the most expensive items were pure natural food and water with pollution below 10. The mineral water Ling sold on Xinyu for 200 yuan a bottle was actually just a 3 yuan bottle of Gantin from another world. He had already sold over 1,000 bottles of Gantin mineral water through various channels, earning over 10 million yuan. But it was not enough. Ling needed to earn at least 100 million yuan within 2 months to build a fully functional, absolutely safe house in this world. He planned to transport technology and products from this world to the parallel world of 2024 and bring food from 2024 to this world. What was most valuable after the apocalypse? Food, water, and safe shelter. Ling smiled. In his previous life, he died miserably. This life, he had only 2 goals. First, to send all those who humiliated and harmed him in the previous life to hell. Second, to become the most powerful and successful man in both 2074 and 2024, worthy of this rebirth. He arrived at Lihu, Tianju community, where Ling lived. Ling was dressed in knockoff luxury brands with delicate makeup. Even though the temperature was only 6 C, she wore thin clothes revealing her graceful figure. If it were before his rebirth, Ling would have been captivated by her fair skin, his heart racing, but he would never dare to look at her. But knowing what Ling did in the previous life, Ling looked at her and felt only disgust. Those who hurt him in the past life, he would not let go of in this life. Ling said angrily, "Why are you so late? I've been waiting for ages. Honestly, do you even want to be with me, eh?" Ling pretended to be submissive. "Sorry, I took the bus. There was a traffic jam." Ling walked ahead without turning her head, scolding, "Today is my birthday, such an important day. Why did you take the bus? You promised to take me to Bulgari for Western food on my birthday." Bulgari Western restaurant was one of the best in Jiangzhou, with per person spending over 1,500 yuan. As if afraid he might disagree, Ling put on a charming expression and said in a coquettish voice, "How about you book me a room at the Bulgari hotel tonight?" Ling chose her words carefully. She didn't say she wanted to share a room with Ling, just asked him to book a hotel for her. Whether Ling would stay with her was left to his imagination. In the past, Ling would have been excited and nervous, his heart racing. But now he felt only disgust. Ling knew exactly what this schemer was thinking. Ling wanted him to pay for the 1,500 yuan per person Western dinner and the 3,000 yuan per night Bulgari hotel. In his previous life on Lin Ying's birthday, Ling spent a month's salary on Bulgari Western food. But after dinner, Lin Ying ignored him and invited another man to spend the night with her. This woman was not worth cherishing. Seeing that Ling was taking the bus to Bulgari, Lin Ying became anxious. Why take the bus? Today is my birthday. Look at what I'm wearing. Taking the bus is so degrading. Take a taxi. A premium car. If you can't even spend this little, how can you pursue me? Lin Ying continued to manipulate Ling, making him order a luxury car ride. The few kilometers cost over 100 yuan. Ling chuckled inwardly, not getting angry. He would deal with this schemer later. Soon they arrived at the Bulgari hotel. The first floor was the lobby, the second floor was the Western restaurant, and the third floor and above were the hotel rooms. Lin Ying looked at Ling and said softly, Ling, could you book a room for me? Had he not known the venomous nature of this woman, Ling would have been swept away by a tide of romantic fantasies and stirred emotions. But, feigning a dull and flustered expression, Ling said, Let's eat first. It's still daytime. Seeing his awkward demeanor, Lin Ying believed the bait had been taken. All right, let's eat then. I turned down everyone else today just to spend my birthday with you. Lin Ying continued to pour honeyed words into his ears. On the second floor of the Bulgari Western restaurant, the elegant, tranquil, and warm atmosphere stood in stark contrast to the biting wind outside. A young woman in an evening gown, her fair and smooth back entirely exposed, was playing Delon's Smile on the piano. Many men and women were affecting an air of sophistication as they dined on Western cuisine. Watching this scene, let them savor this last moment of tranquility. In at most 2 months, it would be nothing but desperate wailing. Then forget about steak and pasta, even an expired biscuit would be fought over. Ling sat across from Lin Ying in silence as she grabbed the menu and ordered a mountain of dishes. Lobster pasta, pan-fried Icelandic langoustine with mashed potatoes, M9 Wagyu beef tenderloin, Italian puff pastry with chocolate mousse. The prices here were steep, with a per-person average starting at 2,000. Lin Ying even ordered a bottle of Paternoster Tira, a dry red wine costing over 3,000. The waiter kindly advised that 2 main courses and 2 desserts would suffice for 2 people. But Lin Ying flared up, I'm ordering. Just write it down, mind your own business. The waiter fell silent. From start to finish, Ling said not a word, merely watching Lin Ying with a smile. Once all the dishes were served, Lin Ying quickly snapped photos of the gourmet spread and herself, then posted them on WeChat Moments. Her post read, a birthday for one at Bulgari Western Restaurant, elegant piano, beautiful June. Lin Ying selected the audience for this post, visible to her close girlfriends, her sycophants, and her crush, but hidden from Ling. As expected, the post set off a frenzy. Girlfriend A, wow. Bulgari. Lin Ying, you're so lavish. Lin Ying replied, a woman should treat herself well. Girlfriend B, eating so well alone. Some guy must be treating me. Lin Ying replied, sorry, but it really was just me. I've sworn off men long ago. Meanwhile, Lin Ying's sycophants furiously liked the post. Seeing her in designer clothes exuding elegance at a high-end restaurant, they felt their goddess was even more unattainable. He would have to indulge in some vigorous self-gratification tonight to quell the burning resentment in his heart. Ling checked his own WeChat Moments feed. Sure enough, Lin Ying's latest post was invisible to him. The last post he could see was from the previous week, a heavily filtered selfie of Lin Ying with the caption, so hungry. Whole transfer me 520 to treat me to a meal. Clearly Ling had transferred the money. Then, without consulting him, Lin Ying called several of her girlfriends, inviting them to join her birthday celebration. She had just promised to dine alone with him, but now that promise was cast to the winds. Lin Ying said, it's my birthday, and you haven't given me a gift yet. Pretending to be reasonable and understanding, she added, I don't want you to go to any trouble. Just go out and buy me a bouquet. They'll call you when it's time, and you can come find me. Tonight, they'll be waiting. The old Ling would have obediently complied. The present Ling just chuckled softly, nodded, and walked out. He found a random cafe outside and opened his phone again. Besides Xinyu, his phone held over a dozen other apps for trading liquor. A bottle of Bisuishan water worth 20,000 wasn't particularly valuable on its own, but dealing with large quantities was troublesome. So Ling listed the water under different IDs on various apps. During this time, he also took high-speed trains to different cities to ship the goods, minimizing his risk. All 1,000 bottles listed across the apps were sold, netting him over 20 million. This sum was unimaginable before his rebirth. But Ling was well aware that the sudden appearance of thousands of bottles of mineral water with 96 purity and 0 contamination would eventually be discovered. Thus, he needed to find other ways to quickly amass 100 million to build an apocalypse shelter and purchase sufficient weapons for self-defense. Yang Ling transferred all his money into a stock account, applied 10 times leverage, 200 million, and went Allen on soybean meal futures. In recent years, global temperatures had been erratic, natural disasters frequent, and these past few months especially severe. Global grain production had fallen, and expectations for the future were bleak. Consequently, in the futures market, soybean meal, wheat, and eggs had been soaring. Soybean meal had risen the most ferocious, but this week governments worldwide were issuing statements claiming the extreme weather was a fluke and urging people not to worry. The UN would take emergency measures, and the UN Meteorological Department predicted improved climatic conditions next year. As a result, soybean meal had plummeted by 30. However, Yang Ling knew this dip was temporary. Starting tomorrow, soybean meal futures would hit the daily limit up every day, the limit being 4, shooting straight to the moon. With full leverage at 10 times, Yang Ling could earn 20 million in 3 days and reach 100 million in, at most, 10 trillion. This 100 million would be used to build a top-tier Doomsday safe house. In truth, a few tens of millions would suffice. He'd just pay the down payment. After all, money would be useless in the apocalypse. Who would repay debts then? After pouring all his money into futures, Yang Ling kept only a few $100,000 for pocket money. Over an hour later, Ling called. "Have you bought the flowers? Hurry back." After hanging up, Ling raised her head haughtily, exposing her smooth swan-like neck, and said, "There are plenty willing to foot the bill for this lady." Her girlfriends were all waiting to see which sycophant would come to settle the bill. One of them even ordered 2 more bottles of red wine for the party they planned to have tonight. Yang Ling finished his coffee, leisurely scrolled through a food delivery app, found a florist, and ordered 44 chrysanthemums. He specifically instructed the shop to wrap them in white paper and attach a card reading "Morning." The florist, assuming Yang Ling was visiting a deceased relative or friend, wrapped the 44 chrysanthemums in white paper as requested, and even included a condolence card. Yang Ling carried the bouquet of chrysanthemums into the Bulgari restaurant and handed them to Ling. Her girlfriends were about to cheer when they sensed something was amiss. Who gives white chrysanthemums for a birthday? Those were only for visiting the dead. Ying's face contorted with rage as she cursed at Yang Ling. "Are you insane? Giving me chrysanthemums? Bad luck. Take them away." Yang Ling replied with a smile, "But you asked me to leave." Ling instantly realized that she and her girlfriends had ordered a lavish table of food and several bottles of wine. The bill would easily be 7 or 8,000. Moreover, she had planned to have Yang Ling book a room at the Bulgari for her later. Her expression shifted through several shades of embarrassment as she forced a smile at her friends. This blockhead probably doesn't know girls like roses. Maintaining her aloof goddess persona, Ling commanded Yang Ling, "Settle the bill, will you? We're all done here. If you're hungry, there's some leftover steak and dessert." Yang Ling surveyed the messy table with a cold sneer. Ling had clearly taken him for a fool, coming over to eat his leftovers. When Yang Ling refused to pay, the waiter who had come to collect the bill was left in an awkward position. The waiter held a tablet displaying the total bill of 8,765 yuan. "May I ask which of you will be settling the account?" Yang Ling looked at the waiter and asked with amusement, "I just came in from outside and haven't eaten a single bite or even sat down. The one who ordered and dined from start to finish was this lady. So who do you think should pay?" The waiter had no choice but to hand the tablet to Ling. "Ma'am, please settle the bill." Ying's face darkened. Although she had a job as a secretary, her monthly salary wasn't even enough to afford a Western meal, let alone cosmetics and handbags. She had always navigated between various men, using her charms to secure a comfortable life, while also scouting for financially strong men to rely on for the rest. Clearly, Yang Ling was not that man, merely a backup. Ling grew anxious. "Yang Ling, what do you mean by this? You promised to treat me to Western food. Are you going back on your word?" Ying's superficial friends, eager to stir up trouble, chimed in. "Oh, I can't afford to treat her." Feeling humiliated, Ling played her trump card. "Yang Ling, what's your game? If you want to pursue me, you can't even afford a Western meal. Just pay up, and we might still have a chance. Otherwise, we can't even be friends." As Ling spoke, she felt confident. Among all her admirers, Yang Ling was the most insecure, yet the most proud. A little provocation was all it took to make him comply. "Can't afford it. Say it early instead of pretending. So desperate to save face." Ying's friends echoed, "Exactly. If you can't afford it, just say so. Who are you trying to fool? You want to pursue our Yinger. Do you know the line of men chasing her stretches all the way to the city government building?" Yang Ling turned to the young waiter and said, "Bring me the same dishes and drinks as this table and set them up over there. Oh, and ask that young lady playing the piano to join me for the meal." The waiter was immediately troubled. First, the bill for this table hadn't been settled. Second, the piano player was an undergraduate from the Art Institute of Jiangzhou University, a key university in the nearby university town, who charged 500 yuan per hour. Yang Ling casually took out his phone and displayed the payment code, sensing the waiter's concern. He smiled and said, "Worried you won't get paid. Besides the meal, hey, race, a 200 yuan tip for you, and a 2,000 yuan service fee for the piano player." "Yes, sir. Right away." The waiter quickly placed the order. Yang Ling's move left Ling and her friends bewildered. First, the total for this table was 8765 yuan. And now Yang Ling was giving the piano girl a 200 yuan tip just to dine with him, meaning he would spend nearly 110 yuan in total. Ling felt a pang of regret. How wonderful it would be if she could have that money. She sneered at Yang Ling, "Stop pretending," ordering another whole set. "If you're broke, just say so. There are plenty of people willing to pay for me. Careful, or you'll lose several months' salary." Yang Ling ignored Ling and sat at another table eating heartily. The piano girl gracefully approached. Under the bright lights, her long black hair shimmered like the finest black silk in the night sky, cascading to her waist and swaying gently in the breeze. Her figure was enchanting, her curves elegant, as if sculpted by nature itself. Her skin was fair and delicate, translucent like lily petals kissed by morning dew. Not a pallid white, but one with a healthy rosy glow exuding vitality at first glance. The girl sat down, eyeing Yang Ling warily, and said nervously, "I'll just eat." The 200 yuan tip was an offer she couldn't refuse, but she had her limits. Only dining, nothing more. Yang Ling finally got a clear look at her features, brows like new moon's, eyes like autumn waters, a high-bridged nose adding a touch of heroism to her face, and lips so alluring. Truly a breathtaking beauty. She was 100 times more beautiful than a phony like Ling. In the apocalypse, having such a girl by his side occasionally playing a tune for him would make life worth living. Yang Ling chuckled and said, "Just eat. Once I'm full you can go." Then, as he savored his meal while admiring her, he understood the true meaning of feasting one's eyes. The girl's name was Tong Jia, an 18-year-old freshman majoring in piano performance at Jiangzhou University's Art Institute. Her family wasn't well off, so she played piano at the Bulgari Western restaurant every Thursday and Sunday to earn some living expenses. Learning piano was costly. Though the part-time gig paid 1,000 yuan for 2 hours, a single lesson from a professor would eat up that amount. Tong Jia had always been tense and nervous. Many men had paid to dine with her before, but afterward they always had ulterior motives, wanting to take her elsewhere for deeper understanding. She had to find a way to earn money without doing anything improper. To her surprise, Yang Ling genuinely just wanted to have a meal with her. Once she let her guard down, their conversation became more lively. Half an hour later, Yang Ling finished his meal. He didn't ask for Tong Jia's WeChat, but instead gave her his phone number and kindly advised, "The temperature's been fluctuating a lot these months. Stock up on some food at home. If you ever need anything, feel free to call me." Yang Ling nodded at Tong Jia and prepared to leave the Bulgari Western restaurant. Meanwhile, Ling was still frantically calling her various admirers, hoping someone would come to settle the bill. As for her so-called friends, they had already made excuses to leave early. After all, no one wanted to be the scapegoat, and if Ling couldn't find anyone to pay, they might end up splitting the bill, a prospect no one relished. Seeing Yang Ling about to leave, Ling cursed loudly. "Yang Ling, remember this day. Don't expect me to ever reply to your messages again." Yang Ling laughed. To survive the apocalypse, 2 things were crucial: first, a safe house; second, safe food, clothing, and other essentials. Yang Ling had money now and could buy food in 2074, but he didn't want to. Most food in 2074 was contaminated, largely industrial processed items. Protein paste extracted from farmed cockroaches, synthetic carbohydrate bread, purified water from polluted sources, and so on. These things could only sustain basic survival, not provide quality of life. Since he had been given a second chance, he intended to live healthily and comfortably. He planned to buy a large amount of uncontaminated food in 2024. But in 2024, Yang Ling was just another office worker whose monthly salary after social insurance deductions only covered rent and meals. How could he get more money? Yang Ling had a plan. His target was the Red Star metro station in Jiangzhou City. All the goods are on the truck. 10 boxes in total, about 500 junk graphics cards. I didn't count them exactly, but that's roughly the number. About 1, 3. At the parking lot near the intersection. Uncle Dick called. "He'll be right there." Yang Ling walked to the parking spot. A man in work clothes stepped down from a beat-up pickup truck. This was Uncle Dick. "All the goods are on the truck. 10 boxes in total, about 500 junk graphics cards. I didn't count them exactly, but that's roughly the number. About 1, 3 tons. Are you going to extract gold from them?" Uncle Dick was a bit curious. He was a scrap collector, and these decades-old junk graphics cards had been piling up in his storage, intended for sale to gold refiners. Decades-old junk graphics cards were no longer compatible with modern computers. Besides extracting gold, they served no other purpose. But in recent years, environmental regulations had tightened. Extracting gold from waste graphics cards, motherboards, and chips caused severe pollution. Uncle Dick had a large batch of goods that had become a dead stock, unsellable. He had listed them on Xinyu out of desperation, but months passed with no interest. Then Yang Ling bought the entire lot. Yang Ling checked the pickup truck and saw that most were RTX 4090 graphics cards, with the worst being RTX 4070. Uncle Dick complained, "I still have quite a few RTX 5090 and above. Do you want them? These cards have a higher gold content, and the price is the same, sold by weight." Yang Ling chuckled and said, "Not for now. The RTX 5090 was indeed a good product, but it didn't exist in 2024, it hadn't been developed yet. The RTX 4090 was already a high-end product in 2024. It wasn't that Ling didn't want the RTX 5090, it was just that the time wasn't. 20 yuan per pound, that makes 50 yuan, said Uncle Dick. How much for your pickup truck? Ling asked with a smile looking at the vehicle. Uncle Dick casually replied, I bought it secondhand for 30 yuan. Ling said, how about this'll give you 10 yuan, and you give me both the pickup truck and the graphics cards on it. No need to transfer the ownership. Uncle Dick was stunned. This pickup truck was over 10 years old, he had bought it for just over 200 yuan. Claiming it was worth 300 was already an exaggeration, and now it could fetch at most 100 yuan. Ling was offering 100 yuan for the graphics cards and the pickup truck. Did that mean he was handing him an extra 700 to 800 yuan? Uncle Dick stared at Ling in bewilderment, wondering if this guy was out of his mind. Ling was offering 100 yuan for the graphics cards and the pickup truck. Did that mean he was handing him an extra 700 to 800 yuan? Uncle Dick stared at Ling in bewilderment. Only a fool would turn down easy money. Uncle Dick quickly took out his phone, accepted the 100 yuan from Ling, handed over the car keys, and then hurriedly flagged down a taxi to leave, afraid Ling might change his mind. Ling chuckled indifferently. A mere 100 yuan was nothing to him. The reason Ling bought the pickup truck wasn't because it was a great vehicle or because he particularly liked pickups. It was because he needed to store the 500 graphics cards weighing nearly 1.25 tons into his space. There were too many people around here, making it inconvenient. Ling drove the pickup truck to a secluded spot in the outskirts, opened his dimensional space, and stored all the graphics cards inside. Then he drove back to the city to his rented room. This apartment was rented by Ling after graduating from university, located in an old resettlement community. The environment was poor, but it was cheap. As a programmer at an internet company, his salary wasn't much these days. Although Ling had come into money after his rebirth, he had been busy preparing a safe house and hadn't had time to move. After parking the pickup truck by the roadside in the shabby neighborhood, he prepared to return to his rented room. As soon as he got out of the car, Ling shivered. The weather was freezing. In the sky of June, heavy snow was falling like goose feathers. The temperature had dropped below zero, and the weather would only become more extreme from now on. Ling quickly hurried back inside. This resettlement community had no central heating, so Ling had to turn on the air conditioner for warm air. On the TV, the news anchor with a poker face was broadcasting the news. Strangely, entertainment programs seem to have decreased recently, replaced mostly by news focusing on global climate changes. The poker-faced anchor said, "It is reported that the extreme weather is just a temporary phenomenon. Jiangzhou experienced consecutive snowfalls in June 138 years ago. Citizens need not panic." Just then, urgent knocking came at the door. Ling frowned. Who could it be so late? Before he could open the door, it was unlocked with a key. The landlord's family of 3 stood at the entrance. The man in his early 50s had a sharp face and wore work clothes. The woman about 40 was dressed in a thick floral pajama with a decent figure, still retaining some charm despite her age. Their daughter in her 20s wore black-rimmed glasses, was tall and thin, and was fairly pretty, but had a sharp, harsh expression. The landlord Fan Bin looked grim and roared as he entered. "You haven't paid rent for a month and a half. How long do you plan to hide? Don't think we can't find you just because you sneak back at night." Fan Bin's wife Wu Qin also cursed. "Young man, why can't you learn anything good? Always trying to be slick. Do you think you can get away with not paying rent?" Their daughter Fan Tingting chimed in. Ling then realized he was behind on, but he remembered that before his rebirth he had been destitute, spending all his savings on Ling, leaving him unable to pay the rent. As a result, these people had thrown him out in the heavy snow. In the end, he had to beg and borrow from loan sharks to pay the rent. After the apocalypse, the landlord also suffered greatly. To survive, he sold his wife and daughter. In the end, Wu Qin was dismembered and cooked, and Fan Tingting became a sex slave. Serve them right. Now that Ling had money, he wouldn't tolerate this treatment. Since these people had entered his room without permission, he couldn't stay here any longer. Ling asked, "How much is the rent for this month?" Fan Bin took out a notebook, turned on a flashlight, and calculated item by item. Rent is 200, water bill is 500, electricity bill is 500, because you used the air conditioner, garbage disposal fee is 200, property management fee is 200, total 3400. Since we've come to collect rent many times, and you weren't here, the 3 of us have lost work time. That's 1100, making it 4500. Ling sneered. This wasn't rent collection, it was robbery. But he didn't care, and didn't have time to argue. He said, "Rent is 200, fine." Ling planned to stay in a hotel until his safe house was ready. Seeing that Ling could easily pay 4500 and wanted to move out, Fan Bin panicked. The economy was bad, business was tough, and finding a tenant was hard. Even if the tenant wanted to leave, they had to squeeze every Fan Bin quickly sent Wu Qin to get a lamp from home, and said, "You can check out, but we need to inspect the place. If the furniture or decorations are damaged, you'll have to pay compensation. You also need to settle the water, electricity, and our lost work time." Soon Wu Qin raised a lamp while Fan Bin meticulously inspected every piece of furniture, each inch of the floor and walls, muttering about wear and tear as his daughter Fan 𝑃 diligently recorded everything with pen and paper. Scratches on the wooden door, deduct 200. Damage to the wall, deduct 300. Fan Bin spent a full hour, and the accumulated deductions for damages amounted to 10,000 yuan. Fan Bin said, "You can check out, but you need to settle the rent of 4,500 and pay 10,000 for damages. That's 14,500 in total." The fluorescent light cast an eerie glint in their eyes. Ling glanced at his phone and chuckled. 52 days. Wu Qin scolded, "What 52 days? You think you can pay after 52 days? No way. If you can't pay today, you're not leaving." Ling didn't finish his thought. He meant that this family of 3 had at most 52 days left to live. Fan Bin added, "Everyone in this village shares our surname. You think you can leave without paying?" Ling said, "He'll give you one last chance. Take 2,000 and get lost." Fan Bin didn't expect Ling, usually so mild-mannered and fresh out of university, to be such a tough nut. He immediately made a call, and soon all his relatives from the clan arrived, looking fierce and making a terrible racket. They looked as if Ling would die there if he didn't pay. Ling smiled. Having been reborn, how could he let these people push him around? He said, "I can pay, but only to Aunt Wu Qin because I signed a contract with her." Everyone was taken aback, not knowing what Ling was up to. But it was cold and late, and they all wanted to go home, so they agreed to his request. Ling said, "The money is in the room. Aunt Wu, please come with me to get it." Wu Qin looked puzzled and muttered, "Using cash in this day and age. A laborer is always a laborer." Though she found it strange, Wu Qin followed Ling back to the room. Ling locked the door, and Wu Qin immediately sensed. Before she knew it, Ling had grabbed her by the chin. Wu Qin was not bad-looking, but Ling had no romantic interest. He was mainly thinking about how the landlady had wronged him in his past life, and he felt a thrill of revenge. Ling applied force. Wu Qin, startled, pained, ashamed, and furious, cried out, "What are you doing?" She was about to scream for help. Ling whispered in her ear, "You'd better keep your voice down, or he'll tell your husband that you are having an affair with your brother-in-law, and that your daughter Fan 𝑃 is actually his child. I suggest your husband get a paternity test with Fan 𝑃. Every time he goes out to play cards, you two meet up. In the kitchen, on the balcony, even in his favorite bathtub." Wu Qin was terrified. "How do you know? Have you been following me?" Ling had no interest in following her. It was after the apocalypse that Wu Qin had stolen food from home to give to her lover Fan Bin's younger brother Fan Hao. When Fan Bin found out, he was furious and sold both Wu Qin and Fan 𝑃 for food. Ling chuckled and tightened his grip again. Wu Qin winced, her face flushed, but she dared not resist. "What do you want?" Wu Qin asked in a low voice, her face red. Ling taunted, "What do you think I want?" Wu Qin gritted her teeth. "You don't have to pay the rent. Just move out tonight, and never let me see you again." Ling said coldly, "First refund the extra water and electricity bills I've paid, then take off your clothes." Wu Qin was stunned, but soon felt a sharp pain in her chest. She knew that if she didn't comply today, her secret would be exposed, and given Fan Bin's temper, he would likely beat her to death. Humiliated, Wu Qin had no choice but to follow Ling's orders. She refunded him the 9,000 yuan, which included half a year's rent and extra utility fees, and then endured having humiliating photos taken. Ling was satisfied, and kept a photo as insurance lest Wu Qin try any tricks later. Outside, the others were getting impatient. Fan Bin called out, "Wu Qin, did you get the money?" Wu Qin quickly put her clothes back on and replied, "I'm coming out." The door opened, and Ling took. He was about to leave. Fan Bin hurriedly asked, "Did you get the money?" Wu Qin kept her head down and mumbled, "Yes, the rent and the damages. I have it." Hearing that his wife had collected the money, Fan Bin let Ling go. But he felt something was off. Ling didn't seem to have much money, so why had he paid everything so readily? Ling drove his pickup truck to the Bulgari Hotel. A luxury suite cost 2,000 yuan a night. He booked it for 60 days, which came to 120,000, but after a discount, it was 100,000. Of course, payment was usually due upon checkout. Ling only paid a tenth of Sandiyuan deposit. There was no need to pay the full amount now, since the apocalypse would arrive in less than 60 days. The suite was amazing. It had all the amenities, and the best part was the panoramic view of Jiangzhou City. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows was the majestic Luo River with cruise ships gliding slowly along. On both banks stood brightly lit office buildings. This bustling scene would last at most 50 more days. "Sir, here is your complimentary midnight snack." A tall hotel attendant in a cheongsam pushed in a cart laden with a sumptuous midnight snack, delicate pastries, and warm milk. The Bulgari even offered midnight snacks. Ling cheerfully pulled on the name tag pinned to the attendant's chest. It had her name on the front and a QR code on the back. He generously scanned it and tipped 1,000 yuan. The woman in the cheongsam was overjoyed. She slipped a business card into Yang Ling's pocket and whispered in his ear, "You can call me tonight. He'll give you a massage." Yang Ling chuckled and closed the door. He had planned to enter the virtual space and go to 2024 to sell the graphics card and buy some supplies. But then he thought about his past life, how he, the pathetic simp, had booked this very room for Ling only for her to not even let him in. She had thrown a party with her friends and then spent the night with some handsome guy. The mere thought of it made Yang Ling sick. Yang Ling placed the exquisite midnight snack from Bulgari on the small table by the floor-to-ceiling window. Then he took a picture of the snack, the table with the Bulgari logo, and the night view outside. He posted it on his Moments with the caption, "Watching the Luo River nightscape alone. A sleepless night." After posting, Yang Ling had no interest in the snack. Instead, he formed a door shape with his hands, and a virtual door. Yang Ling walked straight through it. At that very moment, Ling, unable to sleep from anger, tossed and turned in her bed. She had been utterly humiliated today. She had messaged and called 7 or 8 of her simps, but not one was willing to come and settle her bill. She had to pay over 8,000 yuan herself. It was her birthday. A guy had taken her out to dinner, but the restaurants were all low-end places, nothing compared to the Bulgari. The funniest part was that the guy had booked a budget hotel and invited her to stay. What a joke. How could Yang Ling afford the Bulgari? The more Ling thought about it, the angrier she got. Oof. He must have used a credit card. He just did it to spite me. Ling scrolled through her phone in irritation when she suddenly saw Yang Ling's Moments post. The Bulgari logo adorned the French-style petite table laden with desserts and fruits that resembled artworks. The most captivating sight, however, was the breathtaking night view of the Luo River outside the window. Lin Ying's heart jolted violently. This was one of the finest rooms at the Bulgari Hotel. The very room she had always dreamed of celebrating her birthday in. She never expected Yang Ling to stay at the Bulgari tonight. Was he alone, or was there a girl with him? Judging by the tableware, it seemed Yang Ling was by himself. Lin Ying was consumed by jealousy. How could Yang Ling afford such an expensive hotel? Had Yang Ling really come into money? From their interaction today, he seemed different, more confident and commanding. Lin Ying began to wonder if she had missed out on a wealthy bachelor. Panicking, she snooped on Yang Ling's Moments and saw many old classmates had already commented. "Wang Chao, damn Yang Ling, you're impressive. How can you afford the Bulgari? That's 2,000 to 3,000 a night." "Yang Ling, my lease expired and am planning to buy a house. Haven't found the right one yet, so I booked 2 months at the Bulgari to take my time." "Yiaowei, so envious. Bro, are you still in need of a girlfriend?" Yang Ling's smiley emoji. Lin Ying was utterly flustered. 2 months at the Bulgari and buying a house. Yang Ling had struck it rich. She quickly tapped on his profile, thought for a while, and composed a WeChat message. "Lin Ying, Yang Ling, I'm sorry. Today I wanted my birthday to feel special and hoped you'd care. I lost my temper, please don't take it to heart." Yang Ling, soaked in the hotel's bathtub, ordered an expensive bottle of wine from room service and sneered at Lin Ying's message. That two-faced snake. He knew that if he were still in his old dilapidated rental, Lin Ying would never have messaged him. Yang Ling didn't reply. Lin Ying clearly saw that he was typing, but after waiting for ages, there was no response. Lin Ying felt a deep sense of loss knowing Yang Ling was angry. She compared herself to Yiaowei. Yiaowei, also a college classmate, was slightly taller and exuded a captivating femininity. If Yiaowei competed with her, she would have no advantage. Lin Ying hurriedly rummaged through her closet for a slightly sheer white lace dress, put it on, and took a selfie in the mirror. She then spent ages retouching the photo, enlarging her bust and lengthening her legs. Finally, she sent it to Yang Ling. "This is my birthday gift to myself. Do you like it? It's my birthday today, and no one has invited me out." Yang Ling chuckled. The bait had been taken. But he had no intention of savoring this fish. He wanted it dead. The agony of being sliced 1,000 times in his past life still haunted his nightmares. Humanity. Kindness. Sorry. Having lived through the cannibalistic apocalypse. All that is a luxury of human civilization. Only survival and becoming stronger are the truths. Yang Ling snapped a photo of the bathtub and the expensive wine, saying, "Tired. Going to shower and rest." After sending the message, he turned off his phone. He wanted Lin Ying to taste the agony of waiting for a reply. In his past life, Lin Ying had told him, "I'm going to shower. Talk later." The naive Yang Ling had actually waited for the goddess' reply, clutching his phone all night, afraid to miss her message. He even sent good morning and good night texts like clockwork. Truly, only through life and death can one see human nature clearly. Lin Ying quickly replied, "If you're tired, rest well. I learned some acupressure techniques online. Oh, I can try them on you next time." But Lin Ying waited over an hour for a reply that never came. Frustrated, she threw her phone onto the bed. Then she picked it up and sent another message. "Are you asleep? Rest well. Good night." Yang Ling slept soundly at the hotel, enjoyed the breakfast buffet, the next morning returned to his room and locked the door. He then traced the shape of a door in the air. A virtual space materialized. It spanned about 300 square meters with a door at the back leading to the parallel 2024. But he could only stay in 2024 for 72 hours, and upon returning to 2074, a 7-day cooldown was required before his next visit. Yang Ling sensed that this virtual space was linked to his spiritual power. As his spiritual power grew, the space would expand, and his stay in 2024 would lengthen. Currently, each trip to 2024 via the virtual space lasted a maximum of 72 hours. And there was another peculiar phenomenon. When Yang Ling entered the virtual space or traveled to 2024, time in 2074 stood still. Similarly, when he was in 2074, time in 2024 froze. Inside the virtual space, he changed into attire suitable for 2024. He then packed 100 graphics cards into a cardboard box and lugged them out. He emerged in his 2024 room. In 2024, after graduating from university, Yang Ling was a wage slave. His parents were rural farmers, and he had an older brother and sister with little education working in coastal cities. He also had a girlfriend, Sue, watching a college classmate working at an internet company. In 2024, he lived in a shabby one-bedroom rental in Handong City, Hanjiang Province. The place was old and his phone was a Redmi Head used for 5 years. Early that morning, he received a credit card repayment reminder 15423. 21 yuan due. He recalled that in this world his mother had been hospitalized for a long time the previous month. His siblings refused to help, so he had paid the surgical fees with his credit card. What a rotten start. But Yang Ling smiled. With the virtual space and the ability to traverse 2 worlds, even the worst beginning could be turned around. He photographed the graphics cards and listed them on platforms like Zaihanshu Zhuanzhuan and Xinyu, waiting for the bait to be taken. RTX 4090 cards were junk in 2074, but top tier in 2024. On major online platforms, brand new RTX 4090s from top manufacturers sold for over 2,000 yuan. Due to the US embargo on computing power chips and graphics cards, �𝑃 Kingdom high-end card prices had skyrocketed, with used ones fetching 1,500. Yang Ling priced his at 1,200 yuan, 3,000 cheaper than the usual second-hand price. He had 500 cards in total, starting by selling 100. As expected, as soon as the listings went live, messages and private chats on all platforms exploded. Can you cut the price? What the hell? You're selling an RTX 4090 for 1,200. Is it a mined card or a washed one? Apart from these doubts, many immediately placed orders without paying, then inquired about the details. Their goal was to prevent others from snatching the graphics card, first securing it before deciding whether to pay after clarifying the situation. Overwhelmed by the flood of questions, Yang Ling set up automated replies for all of them. He configured responses like, "You can return it if you don't like it. At this price, what more do you expect? Limited stock, first come, first served, and you can use the inspection service." Hearing that returns were allowed and an inspection service was available, buyers felt reassured. Besides, Yang Ling's personal credibility was high, making him trustworthy. Soon many people clicked the purchase link. Each time someone bought one, Yang Ling listed another to avoid drawing too much attention. On the first day of 2024, Yang Ling spent his time chatting with buyers, packing and shipping orders. Graphics cards priced thousands below market value were a rare bargain. Eager to save a few thousand yuan, many buyers were willing. Within the same city, several recipients received their packages by afternoon, confirmed receipt, and left positive. There were 10 buyers in Tongzi, meaning Yang Ling had sold 10 graphics cards, earning 1,000 yuan. Yang Ling believed selling all 500 cards would easily net him 5 million yuan. Now in 2024, Yang Ling's top priority was securing food and water. He needed to rent a warehouse and a cold storage facility. He planned to stockpile supplies before the apocalypse. He also needed to visit supermarkets and markets to purchase goods in bulk. As Yang Ling sat in his rented room, searching for nearby cold storage warehouses and supermarkets, his phone rang. The caller was Ying Qian, the HR manager at the natural gas company where Yang Ling worked. She barked impatiently. "Yang Ling, what are you doing? Do you see what time it is? Why aren't you at work? There are over 10 old neighborhoods pipelines to inspect. What are you good for? Do you still want this job?" Yang Ling sneered. Officially, he worked for a natural gas company, a state-owned enterprise with stable income and benefits. In reality, he was employed by an outsourcing company under the gas firm, not a regular employee. He received temp wages, but worked like a beast of burden. Regular employees lounged in air-conditioned offices playing on their phones. Meanwhile, Yang Ling trudged through sweltering heat, checking gas pipes in aging neighborhoods. When pipes had issues, he also had to assist the construction crew in repairs. After a summer of scorching sun, his skin peeled multiple times. He even paid for his own meals and water, yet after social insurance deductions, he earned only about 300 yuan a month. With 300 yuan covering rent, utilities, and food, nothing remained. Now that he had a way to make money, why would he keep this miserable job? With 300 yuan covering rent, utilities, and food, nothing remained. Now that he had a way to make money, why? After a long pause, she consoled herself. Maybe the kid has family issues. Fine, I'll give him a day off. After all, the economy was struggling, prices were skyrocketing, and labor costs were rising. Cheap, honest workers like Yang Ling were hard to find. The boss keeps you not because you're outstanding, but because you're the cheapest. After researching online, Yang Ling found a cold storage facility spanning over 1,000 square meters across 2 floors. The upper floor stored vegetables, fruits, and dried goods, while the lower floor held dairy and meat products. The monthly rent was 1,000 yuan. The price was reasonable, so Yang Ling rented it immediately. He planned to buy the facility later when he had more money for added security. Adjacent to the cold storage was a 1,000 square meter warehouse, next to Yonghui Supermarket Storage Depot. The monthly rent was 8,000 yuan. Without hesitation, Yang Ling rented the warehouse as well. He hired 2 people for 6,000 yuan a month to guard the facilities and spent 2,000 yuan on installing cameras and equipment. After a full day's work, the cold storage and warehouse were set up. Yang Ling then purchased large quantities of bottled water, compressed biscuits, sealed rice, cooking oil, instant noodles, and snacks from Yonghui Supermarket. After a full day's work, the cold storage and warehouse were set up. Yang Ling then purchased large quantities of bottled water, compressed biscuits, sealed rice, cooking oil, instant noodles. He still prioritized filling the cold storage and warehouse first. It was a precaution. Having survived the apocalypse, he knew to always leave himself multiple escape routes. Today he earned 1,000 yuan. After repaying his credit card, renting the cold storage and warehouse, and buying supplies, he had 2,000 yuan. After over a day of hard work, countdown 385935, he had about 39 hours before returning to 2074. Yang Ling was exhausted. Once he had more money, he'd need to hire some helpers. He lay down in his rented room, ready to sleep. His phone rang again. It was his girlfriend Su Wanxing. Based on the Buddhist memories, Su Wanxing was different from Ling. She was naive and loyal in love, but overly dependent on her parents, always deferring to their opinions. Having lived through the apocalypse, Yang Ling knew nothing mattered more than living and enjoying life. As for love, it was just a stumbling block on life's path. But Su Wanxing kept calling persistently. Finally, Yang Ling answered. Her sweet, melodious voice came through. Yang Ling, didn't we agree to have dinner with my parents tonight? Are you ready? I'm already downstairs at your place. Yang Ling, always the doormat, was surprised. A girl was driving to pick him up for the first time. He looked out the window and saw a yellow Polo parked below. A girl in a pale yellow dress with a ponytail and fair skin. That was his girlfriend in this world, Su Wanxing. Coming down now, Yang Ling called out. He splashed cold water on his face, changed into a clean t-shirt, and rushed downstairs. That was his girlfriend in this world, Su Wanxing. Coming down now, Yang Ling called out. He splashed cold water on his face, changed into a clean t-shirt, and rushed downstairs, bag, and wiped his face. She asked with concern, You were on a project again today, weren't you? Look how tanned you've gotten. In that moment, Yang Ling's heart felt healed. After a lifetime of being a doormat, a girl was finally showing him care. Was this love? Su Wanxing's skin was fair and delicate, as if it might break at the slightest touch. Her figure was sizzling, yet she possessed a pure, innocent doll-like face. Her neat white teeth inspired a longing to glimpse their charm. Then Su Wanxing looked Yang Ling up and down, crinkling her little nose, and said, I knew you didn't buy any clothes. You're always buried in work, but you never give a thought to us. Look. Su Wanxing took a shirt and pants from the back seat from Uniqlo and told Yang Ling to change. Despite her complaints, Su Wanxing had thoughtfully considered many things for him. Yang Ling quickly recalled some things about Su Wanxing's family. Her family was an ordinary one in Handong City. Her mother was a homemaker and her father was a mid-level manager at the power company. She also had a younger brother who worked at the power company and was nearing marriageable age. Seeing Yang Ling still hesitating, Su Wanxing let out a chuckle and said, Oh, just change already, I want look. Yang Ling laughed and quickly changed his clothes in the back seat. The two had been dating for years, but aside from holding hands and kissing, they had never done anything improper. On one hand, it was because Su Wanxing was endearingly naive. The main reason was Yang Ling's former personality, which, like his character before his rebirth in 2079, was timid and above all foolish. With such a stunning girl as his girlfriend, he still didn't know how to make a move. After changing clothes, the two quickly arrived at a beautifully ambience Chinese restaurant. In the private room, Su Wanxing's parents, her brother, and many relatives had already arrived. Yang Ling realized that today was the official meeting with the family. Unfortunately, he wasn't nervous at all. Having survived a rebirth from the apocalypse, enduring various pains, humiliations, and death, such a small scene was nothing. Just as they entered, and Su Wanxing formally introduced Yang Ling, the Su family relatives sized him up. Upon hearing he worked at a natural gas company, everyone's expressions varied. Su Wanxing's mother Wang Li said, The natural gas company is a state-owned enterprise, the benefits are quite good. But her aunt Su Yin directly interjected, It's very hard to get into state-owned companies now. Without connections or a postgraduate degree from a 211 or 985 university, they simply won't take you. State-owned companies now have many outsourcing subsidiaries. I remember Yang Ling isn't a postgraduate, right? Is he working at one of those outsourcing companies? Facing everyone's scrutinizing looks, Yang Ling smiled and said, "Indeed, it's an outsourcing company, not a regular state-owned employee." As expected, upon hearing this, Wang Li's expression immediately soured. The difference between an outsourced employee and a regular state-owned employee was vast. She had never agreed to her daughter dating Yang Ling anyway, as his family was from the countryside. His parents had no social or medical insurance, he had an older brother and sister, and he hadn't bought a house in the city. Now learning that Yang Ling wasn't even a regular employee of a state-owned enterprise meant instability. How could an unstable man who couldn't earn money, had no car or house, get married? How could he give her daughter a sense of security? Marriage wasn't about poverty alleviation. Su Wanqing was still trying to smooth things over. Yang Ling isn't a regular employee now, but their outsourcing company has annual assessments. Those who are rated excellent for 3 consecutive years have a chance to take the exam to become a regular employee in the head office. Yang Ling has been rated an excellent employee for 2 years in a row. He's just 1 year short of being eligible to take the exam. Su Wanqing's words couldn't fool her relatives and friends. Su Wanqing's uncle Wang Feng smoked a cigarette while looking Yang Ling up and down with disdain, saying, "Wanqing, how can you be so naive? In this society, there's no such thing as transparency. Those internal company exams have long been reserved for various second generations." What second generation is Yang Ling? Wang Feng's son, Su Wanqing's 16-year-old cousin, who had been eating with his head down, suddenly looked up upon hearing this and said, "He's a poor second generation." At this, all the relatives at the table burst into laughter. Su Wanqing stood there awkwardly unsure of how to defend him. She knew in fact that Yang Ling's chance of passing the head office exam was virtually zero. But Yang Ling was still her boyfriend, and in front of her relatives and friends, she had to defend him. Then the various aunts and uncles started chattering away, not caring that Yang Ling was present. "Wanqing, why did you find some? Your family conditions aren't bad. You're so beautiful and have a good job. What man can't you find?" "Exactly. You need to be more open-minded and realistic. The one I introduced to you as section chief from the tax bureau is a civil servant. He's not bad." Su Wanqing was on the verge of tears. Even if they didn't agree with her and Yang Ling being together, couldn't they have advised her privately? Why did they have to humiliate Yang Ling in front of everyone? Su Wanqing's parents were grim-faced, their appetite for the meal completely gone. Wang Li said gloomily, "Oi, that's enough, let's eat." Su Wanqing's father, Su Kong, had brought a bottle of Jiangzhou Daku today, intending to drink with the relatives and friends, but with this atmosphere, what was the point of drinking? Su Wanqing looked at Yang Ling, not knowing how to comfort him. But Yang Ling ate nonchalantly as if none of this had anything to do with him. His mind wasn't on Su Wanqing at all. Instead, he was thinking about what supplies to procure. Besides food, he needed to buy cold weather gear, snowmobiles, and a yacht. It would be best if he could purchase a helicopter. Oh, and he also needed to acquire some weapons. The post-apocalyptic world was one of extreme cold and heat, leading to endless blizzards or great floods and droughts. A car alone would be utterly insufficient for travel. Furthermore, the safe house needed to ensure a supply of energy and water. Seeing Yang Ling still eating heartlessly, Su Wanqing's relatives and friends felt he had no shame at all and must be trying to latch on as Su Wanqing to be a kept man. Su Yan cursed. "Wanqing, don't let yourself be fooled. You need to see people clearly." Just then the notification sound from Yang Ling's Alipay app rang out. Alipay received 12,000 yuan. After this sound, everyone was stunned. Then came a rapid succession of Alipay notification sounds. Alipay received 12,000 yuan. Alipay received 12,000 yuan. Alipay received 12,000 yuan. This sound rang out over 10 times in total, amounting to 15,600 yuan. Yang Ling checked the time. It was about right. All the buyers who had purchased graphics cards in the same city had confirmed receipt. This time the whole table was stunned. Handong was a second-tier city in the country. The standard of living and income wasn't very high. Earning 1,000 yuan a month was something to be proud of and brag about. What business was Yang Ling in to receive over 100,000 yuan in succession? Yang Ling had deliberately set the Alipay notification sound. Seeing everyone's expressions, his goal was achieved. Whether it was Su Wanqing or the Su family, Yang Ling didn't care at all. In his view, emotions were the cheapest and most mean. But considering that Su Wanqing had been defending him all along, Yang Ling decided to give her some face. Paying no heed to anyone else's gaze, after eating and drinking his fill, he called the waiter. "Waiter, the bill, please." The waiter brought the check. "Sir, the total is 3,231 yuan." Yang Ling thought it would be expensive, but it was only just over 3,000. He paid with Alipay, and without acknowledging anyone, he left with an air of nonchalance. Everyone was dumbfounded. Yang Ling didn't seem as poor as they had anticipated. Many relatives muttered under their breath, "Does he have some side hustle?" Exactly. In this day and age, how could anyone survive on a few thousand yuan? He must have another source of income. My sister-in-law's second uncle's cousin's kid works as a security guard during the day and does live streaming at night. Looks like he's raking it in. Seeing Yang Ling earn over 100,000 in less than an hour, and so readily covering the meal cost, their opinions suddenly Su Wanqing was on the verge of tears. She shot a reproachful glare at her parents, and with reddened eyes hurriedly chased after him. Yang Ling! Yang Ling! Seeing Yang Ling about to get into a taxi, Su Wanqing rushed over. My aunt and uncle are just like that. Don't take it to— Watching Su Wanqing's tear-streaked face, Yang Ling sighed, and said, silly girl. This naive girl would count money for someone who sold her in the apocalypse. There were just over 37 hours left before he had to return to 2074. Yang Ling's mind was not on romance, but on how to survive the brutal apocalypse. He looked at Su Wanqing and said, your relatives have a point. I earn just over 3,000 a month and am not even a regular employee. Sure enough, Su Wanqing fell silent. In front of relatives and friends, Su Wanqing could fiercely defend Yang Ling's dignity. But when she calmed down and thought about what her parents and relatives had said, it wasn't entirely unreasonable. On one hand, there was the 4-year college bond with Yang Ling, on the other the pressures of future life and work. The year 2024 was not like 40 or 50 years ago when mutual affection and compatibility sufficed. Now one had to consider family life and financial burdens. Without a house or a car, what would the future hold for marriage? Would they even be qualified to have children? Su Wanqing was no saint, just an ordinary girl. Her heart was conflicted. During their dating days, she had deliberately avoided these issues to stay happy with Yang Ling. But now that they had graduated and were discussing marriage, these problems lay like a chasm between them, impossible to bypass. Seeing Su Wanqing's expression, Yang Ling understood. After all, she was just an ordinary girl. All right, go back now. Don't let your parents worry. Yang Ling chuckled, gently patted Su Wanqing's back, then got into a taxi and returned to his rented room. Su Wanqing watched the taxi disappear, tears streaming down her face. Suddenly, she felt something bulky in her back. She pulled it out. It was a heavy gold bar, at least 500 grams. This gold bar was brought from 2074 by Yang Ling. In 2074, gold was priced at 100 yuan per gram. 500 grams, a small sum of 500 yuan, was something Yang Ling, a futures trader, could afford. Su Wanqing stood frozen. The next day, Yang Ling continued selling graphics cards and used the profits to purchase supplies. The warehouse now held 100 jin of rice, 100 jin of sealed flour, 100 boxes of instant noodles, 100 boxes of canned fruit, 100 jin of dried noodles, 100 boxes of compressed biscuits, 200 boxes of mineral water, and 200 boxes of various snacks. Additionally, there were cold weather clothing, thermal underwear, snow boots, silk quilts, cotton quilts, down quilts, and various conventional medical supplies. The freezer stock included 100 jin each of premium beef, pork, and lamb, 200 jin of assorted river fish and seafood, 200 jin of various fruits, and 100 jin of dairy products. Yang Ling moved a small portion of these supplies into his space for easy access. The countdown hit 0, and he returned to his space. Time in 2024 stood still. Exiting the space, it was morning at the Bulgari Hotel. After breakfast in the buffet, Yang Ling checked the futures market. As expected, soybean meal futures continued to surge. With 2 consecutive daily limit-ups and 10 times leverage, his 200 million yuan principal had already earned over 16 million yuan. Yang Ling sold all the soybean meal futures and withdrew the 16 million yuan profit to build a safe house. With less than 2 months left, time was running. Yang Ling took out his phone. Ling had already sent a flurry of messages: a good morning, at 7 asking what had eaten at 7:30, and at 8 suggesting they watch a movie together. Ling, who never responded to his daily greetings at 7, was being so proactive. Yang Ling chuckled dismissively and ignored her. He had his own plans for the safe house. The future would be a world of alternating extreme cold and heat. During blizzards or floods, the underground floor of houses would be entirely submerged. So the safe house couldn't be a bungalow or villa. High-rise apartments with elevators were also problematic. Future power and water supplies would be intermittent. Without electricity, climbing stairs in a super high-rise would be a hassle. Thus, Yang Ling set his sights on low-rise apartment buildings in well-maintained neighborhoods. These were 11 stories high with elevators, avoiding flood and snow coverage while being convenient for access. Browsing housing listings on Anjuk, he finally settled on the most luxurious community in Jiangzhou City, the very place Ling rented Lihu Tianju. Lihu Tianju covered over 200 mu in area, and its environment and location were the best in Jiangzhou City. The community had over 100 buildings. The outermost ones were high-rise apartments, about 50 buildings with 2 elevators and 8 units per floor ranging from 25 to 35 stories. Further inside were 11-story low-rise buildings with 1 elevator and 2 units per floor. At the core were villas. Villas couldn't withstand snow and floods, but high-rises and low-rises could. After much thought, Yang Ling decided on a 160 square meter unit on the 9th floor as the safe house. This would avoid floods and thick snow. As for the higher floor, there were underground garages, load-bearing beams, and columns below. He had also considered the possibility of armed insurgents using heavy weapons to attack these structures in the post-apocalyptic world. Heavy weapons would devastate even multi-story buildings, let alone villas. So the safe house only needed to withstand ordinary bullets and shells, not nuclear or heavy arms. Besides, Ling had been reborn with a virtual space and access to 2024. Even if nuclear or heavy weapons existed, he would obtain them first. If others got them first, what was the point of his rebirth? With that settled, he started browsing Anjuk for a real estate agent to ensure the security company would willingly and without suspicion build his safe house. He needed to present a certain image. Ling planned to buy a Bentley Bentayga at the dealership. But as he reached the entrance, trouble arrived. As the world's top luxury car manufacturer, it remains a shining gem of the automotive industry, even in an era where electric vehicles sweep the globe. Moreover, it resolutely refuses to compromise in the electric age, continuing to produce its own gasoline cars. After the apocalypse, many electric vehicles unable to charge or operate in extreme cold have turned into scrap metal and trash on the streets. In contrast, gasoline vehicles have become hard currency during this period. Of course, after the blizzard and floods, these too will become worthless. A Bentley dealership is not a place anyone can just walk into. You must contact a salesperson in advance and make an appointment. After making an appointment, the salesperson will first verify your financial status. Only if they deem you wealthy and capable will they warmly welcome you. Without an appointment, Ling was stopped outside. He was not in a hurry, instead smiling as he took out his phone to check his bank account balance. Looking at the long string of numbers totaling over 16 million, the front desk staff quickly helped Ling make an appointment and called over the store's top salesperson. Ling didn't even look at the car, opting for the lowest down payment option. 10 down payment, 5 years repayment, with an annual interest rate as high as 7.6. A 10 down payment means 460000. As for the interest, Ling didn't care at all. After all, there were less than 60 days until the apocalypse. By then, laws would no longer exist, so what's the point of repaying loans? With the temporary license plate ready, Ling left the dealership. At the entrance, the front desk staff quickly stood up to give him a salute. Soon, Ling met the appointed intermediary at 𝓃. The intermediary Xiao Wang was dressed in a sharp suit and shiny leather shoes. The weather was extremely cold, and he couldn't help but shiver, yet he dared not change into a down jacket. There was no choice. Life was tough for intermediaries these days. In high-end communities like 𝓃, owners could wear whatever they liked. However, intermediaries like him were not well received and had to dress neatly, even having to buy 2 packs of cigarettes for the security guard before they would let him in. But Xiao Wang thought to himself that all this effort was worth it. After all, the properties in 𝓃 were quite appealing, with transaction prices for high-rise units exceeding 3 million, garden houses over 6 million, and villas costing even more than 10 million. If this deal went through based on a 1 commission, he would earn at least 600 yuan. In 2074, the wealth gap was staggering. The laborers and workers at the bottom could only hope for an annual salary of 600 to 700 after working tirelessly for a year. Xiao Wang waited outside 𝓃, looking left and right, but Ling did not appear. Suddenly, he saw a brand new Bentley stop right in front of him, and thinking he had blocked the owner's way, Xiao Wang quickly stepped. Ling rolled down the window and cheerfully said, "You must be Teacher Wang, right? I'm here to look at properties." Seeing his client drive a Bentley worth millions, Xiao Wang's spirits soared, feeling certain this deal would happen. Without further ado, Ling stated, "This time, we won't look at the high-rise units or villas. We'll focus on the garden houses, specifically the one on the 9th or 10th floor of the 11-story building. The sooner the better." Xiao Wang was surprised by the client's straightforwardness, feeling ecstatic. The more direct the client was, the better. A direct approach meant the client was genuinely interested in buying, thus increasing the likelihood of a deal. "Of course, all the cash I have is tied up in investments. I can only accept a down payment of 10 to 30. Ling exuded the aura of a wealthy individual. Xiao Wang nodded repeatedly, feeling an immense thrill inside. In this era, which wealthy person carries cash in their pockets? They all invest their money to generate more wealth. Xiao Wang eagerly nodded and said, "I know this. If you don't own property in Jiangzhou, we can manage a minimum down payment of 20. I'm a local in Jiangzhou, but I've spent the last few years working in Shenzhen. Now I feel that Jiangzhou has a good business environment, so I plan to come back. I don't own any property here," Ling replied. "Then a 20 down payment is absolutely no problem." Xiao Wang quickly began browsing properties on his phone. The occupancy rate of 𝓃 is incredibly high, with residents being either wealthy or influential, including famous businessmen, government officials, and many celebrities. Thus, there aren't many properties listed for sale. After searching for a while, Xiao Wang finally found a unit on the 9th floor of Building 77, a Unit 1. Ling added, "My company has numerous loan operations with banks, but I'd prefer not to go through banks for the house loan. Wealthy individuals often have various requests and many who don't want to apply for bank loans due to their business loans. However, real estate agents benefit from both sides. They not only earn your commission, but also collect your loan processing fees. Real estate agencies often collaborate with local financial guarantee companies. Xiao Wang was so excited, he almost jumped up. Our agency has partnerships with financial companies, and we can secure loans from them, though the fees and interest are a bit higher. No problem, Ling smiled. Interest and subsequent loans will all become obsolete with the apocalypse. Even if they don't, money itself will be the least valuable thing after the apocalypse. At that time, the most popular trading method in the world would be barter. Ling rolled down the window, admiring the environment of 𝓃. Cars are not allowed in the community. They can only drive 100 meters into the community before heading down to the underground garage. The lush greenery, grand and elegant buildings, and fresh air were all very comfortable. Ling felt a pang of resentment. After working hard in society, his salary went to social security, utilities, food, and rent, leaving him with nothing. Yet this wealthy person could comfortably enjoy the best resources in society. How many of these rich people's money is... As the car slowly approached the underground garage, someone suddenly called out Ling's name. Ling turned to see Ling, who rented a high-rise elevator apartment in 𝓃, heading out with her friend to shop for men to pay the bill. Initially, Ling thought she had mistaken the person when she saw Ling in a Bentley. But upon closer inspection, it truly was Ling. Her heart sank heavily, feeling an unbearable discomfort. What is the most painful thing in life? The most painful thing is not seeing others succeed. It's realizing that someone who once never wanted you, whom you looked down upon, now has accomplishments far greater than yours. Ling cast a glance at Ling, sneering lightly, too lazy to pay her any mind. Ling became anxious. Wasn't Ling just a coder in an inner... With a monthly salary of 1,000 yuan at most, how could he afford to stay at the Bulgari Hotel and buy a Bentley? What kind of fortune had he come into? Ling felt her eyes deceived her, missing out on a golden opportunity. Seeing that Ling ignored her, she boldly stepped in front of the Bentley. Ling slammed on the brakes. In the apocalypse, he wouldn't have stopped. He would have floored the accelerator and plowed through. Unfortunately, the end of the world was still some time away. Getting into an accident that brought the police would only waste his time. Xiao Wang was also at a loss for words, unsure how to handle the situation. Lin Ying's friend 𝓃 stared wide-eyed. She had been unable to tear her gaze away from the Bentley earlier, secretly envying the owner's wealth, wondering whose husband or sugar daddy he might be. She never expected Lin Ying to actually know the Bentley's owner. 𝓃 whispered, "Ying, or do you know the owner?" Lin Ying replied with immense pride, "He's my boyfriend." 𝓃's eyes bulged with jealousy, wishing she could throw herself into Ling's arms and ask if he wanted a goddaughter. But something was off with Lin Ying. If she had such a wealthy boyfriend who drove a Bentley, why was she still asking to go shopping and planning to call a few backups to foot the bill? 𝓃 thought Lin Ying was foolish for clinging to a gold mine, yet chasing after deadbeats. Sure enough, the atmosphere shifted. "Move." Ling's voice was icy. Lin Ying spread her arms, acting coy and pleading, "I won't let you go, Ling. I really was wrong that day. I didn't think things through, and I didn't realize how sincere your feelings were for me. Can you forgive me?" The same Lin Ying who used to fly into a rage and hurl insults at Ling was now speaking to him in a sugary tone and admitting her faults. Ling scoffed. He knew it wasn't his charm at work, but the power of money. "Forgive my ass. Move it. Don't waste my..." Xiao Wang watched the scene, burning with envy. Lin Ying was attractive and had a great figure. A woman like that, if she so much as let him touch her hand, had be thrilled for days. Yet Ling didn't even blink. He showed no interest whatsoever. Money truly made life better. To everyone's surprise, Lin Ying wasn't angered by Ling's insults. Instead, she continued in her syrupy voice, "I know you're scolding me for my own good. They'll listen to you from now on, okay? Damn it." Wasting time was worse than swallowing a fly for Ling. With less than 2 months left, if he couldn't build a safe, his chances of surviving the apocalypse would plummet. Ling snapped, "If you don't get lost right now, I'll block you." Believe me, Lin Ying was seething inside, but she endured for the sake of money, forcing a smile. "I know you're busy. Go ahead. They'll contact you later. Don't be mad at me, okay?" Pathetic. Ling cursed, then hit the accelerator and drove into the underground garage. 𝓃 watched the Bentley disappear, a flicker of glee, and she had been a bit jealous at first, actually believing Lin Ying was Ling's girlfriend. But now it was clear that wasn't the case. Lin Ying was chasing Ling, and he couldn't stand her. 𝓃's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Lin Ying, are we still going shopping? I don't think he cares much about you." The words stabbed into Lin Ying's heart like a sharp blade. Lin Ying clenched her fists, her hatred burning deep within. She couldn't accept that her former backup and doormat had suddenly come into wealth, driving a Bentley and staying in luxury hotels. Even worse, the Ling who once clung to her like a lovesick puppy now regarded her with utter disdain. If she couldn't have him, no one would. Lin Ying calmed herself. She knew Ling too well. This man worked at an ordinary cybersecurity company in Jiangzhou. There was no way he could be that rich. So why the sudden wealth? He must have used his position to do something shady. Ling looked at her phone, she had secretly taken a picture of Yang Ling driving the Bentley. She was going to expose him. She'd find out where all his money came from. Seeing her frenemy trying to provoke her, Ling lifted her chin and said coldly, "Of course we're going. LV just released a new small dirty bag and I'm going to buy one." Then she pulled out her phone and called another backup. "Brother Dong, I've been bullied and I feel terrible. Will you go shopping with me to cheer me up? He'll wait for you at the IFS entrance plaza." After hanging up, the two girls took a taxi to IFS. In the car, Ling complained about the driver not turning on the heat in such cold weather while editing photos and videos. The photos and videos were ones Yang Ling had sent her before, along with the ones she had just taken secretly. After adding music, she began to write a caption. The headline was "Explosive, wanna get rich quick. Learn from him. A fresh grad working for a year driving a Bentley and staying in luxury hotels. Where does the money?" The text was even more incendiary. It was filled with veiled insinuations that Yang Ling's money was ill-gotten, perhaps through shady means at his company, like using his position at a cybersecurity firm to access user data and commit fraud. As a seasoned manipulator, Ling had more than one social media account. After she posted the message, it began to spread across. In the increasingly unequal economic landscape of 2074, people's mindsets grew more and more unbalanced. If they couldn't have a good life, then no one should. Online, many netizens from Jiangzhou began frantically trying to identify Yang Ling and figure out how he had suddenly come into so much money. After doing all this, Ling felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. Yang Ling, who was still looking at houses, had no idea what she was up to. He was currently viewing an apartment on the 9th floor of Building 77, Unit 1. The place was indeed nice, spacious, and bright, over 160 square meters with 5 bedrooms, plus a storage room. Xiao Wang, adept at reading people, could tell from Yang Ling's expression that this deal was likely to go through. He quickly said, "The owner is asking for 7.3 million, but it's negotiable." Yang Ling nodded. "All right, the price is fine with me, but I'll only give you 2 days. If the deal goes through, I'll buy it. If not, forget it. I can put down 20, a cash payment of 1.5 million. You handle the loan paperwork." Xiao Wang was thrilled. "Got it. Don't worry, President Yang. No problem at all. Wait for my good news." After viewing the apartment, Yang Ling went to check out a few security companies that serviced banks and vaults, eventually settling on Zhongxia Security. This company had operations in West Asia, and the bank vaults they secured had withstood a month of attempts by terrorists using various methods to break in. With his target set, Yang Ling returned to the hotel to rest, planning to continue the next day. Just then, Minister Chun from Huan Cybersecurity, the company Yang Ling worked. Minister Chen's nickname in the department is dismembered. He is a staunch practitioner and promoter of the 007. The so-called 007 means working from midnight to the next midnight 7 days a week without a moment's rest, with all meals and toilet breaks at the company. If you are a female colleague, dismembered wishes you would never marry or have children, have your uterus removed, and devote your whole life. If you are a male colleague and the company leader's health is poor, he would wish you to donate both your kidneys to the company leader. Although Yang Ling ostensibly earns over 1,000 yuan a month, in reality dismembered finds various excuses to deduct money, so he actually receives less than 6,000 yuan per month. If it were before his rebirth, when Yang Ling received a life-threatening call from dismembered, he would have answered timidly. But now his mentality has completely changed. Yang Ling directly hung up the phone. He had been absent from work for several consecutive days. dismembered called repeat. Yang Ling directly blocked dismembered's number. dismembered then sent a WeChat message to Yang Ling. "Chenwei, what are you up to, kid? Why haven't you answered my calls for the past few days? Why haven't you come to the company? Don't you want to live? Chenwei, do you have any idea how much loss you've caused the company?" Yang Ling found it strange. He hadn't been working at the company, and his position was just a menial one, insignificant. What loss could he possibly cause? Yang Ling replied, "I quit." That set off Chenwei's powder keg completely. Chenwei sent a barrage of voice messages. What Yang Ling disliked most was someone sending him voice messages on WeChat. Listening to voice messages was a waste of time. Chenwei, knowing that Yang Ling hadn't listened to the voice messages, sent a long string of text. The gist was that Yang Ling was committing fraud and should not drag the company into it. Now many people were leaving comments under the company's Weibo or calling incessantly, claiming the company was a fraud. Chenwei's final words were, "Kid, did you take the company's customer data to commit telecom fraud?" This reply bewildered Yang Ling. Chenwei, seemingly still not satisfied, cursed again. "During this time you have caused massive losses to the company. All these losses will be your responsibility. Chenwei, you scum, why don't you go back to your mother's womb to be remade? How did your mother give birth to such a beast like you? We have already called the police. You just wait for them to arrest you." Hearing this, Yang Ling turned cold. In this world, so his parents passed away when he was young. In Yang Ling's mind, he always remembered how his parents spoiled him. Chenwei had casually insulted his deceased mother. This debt, even if not settled now, Yang Ling replied, "Just wait." In the office, Chenwei, who was extremely anxious, finally got Yang Ling's reply. Seeing the 4 words, "just wait," Chunwei assumed that Yang Ling had given in so quickly, telling him to wait, because he would come back to the company to admit his mistake and work hard to solve the problem. This coward. Chunwei called the HR director and said, "Director Li, deduct Yang Ling's entire year's performance bonus. He has been absent for 3 days this month. He will only receive his basic salary 2500 yuan. Chunwei thought that when Yang Ling returned to the company later, he would teach that brat a lesson. If the matter was properly resolved, fine. If not, there would be plenty of trouble. Yang Ling, who had just been about to sit down and rest for a while, suddenly received a landline call. This landline call was not an advertisement. It was from the Binjiang District Police Station of Jiangzhou City. The police officer from the station called. "Are you Yang Ling? ID number XXXXX. We have received some clues that you are involved in telecom fraud. Please come to the local police station for investigation before 1:20 noon tomorrow." After hanging up, Yang Ling felt that something was wrong. How could he be inexplicably involved in telecom fraud? Could it be because his bank account had suddenly received over 10 million yuan, attracting the police's attention? But that shouldn't. There were so many wealthy people in Jiangzhou City with millions in assets. Why would they focus on him? Then Yang Ling opened the company's WeChat group and Weibo account, and indeed found the problem. Half of the comments under the Weibo account were photos of him driving a Bentley, and even more comments accused him of using the company's customer data to commit telecom fraud, making money, and buying a Bentley. In the company group, colleagues and managers who had originally looked down on him were even more sarcastic and mocking. Wang Kai never thought that Yang Ling, this useless guy, would be so bold as to commit telecom fraud. Huli, if the Bentley he drives was really bought with fraud money, that's terrifying. Wang Wan never thought that Yang Ling, usually quiet and reserved, would be so daring. Zhang Li, Yang Ling, that coward. I heard he chased a girl for years without even holding her hand. The girl must have looked down on him for being poor, right? This kind of person with no background, no ability, and not handsome, a 3-no person, can only resort to some telecom fraud to cheat a little money. Xieyong, fortunately Yang Ling's parents died early. If they saw him going to prison for telecom fraud, they would be furious to death. Wang Wan, be careful what you say. Yang Ling is in the group. Xieyong, so what if he's in the group? He's just the lowest level employee in the network security department. How much he gets each month depends on how much leftover food we have. A guy who eats leftovers, do you think he would dare to attack me? With Xieyong's words, the group erupted in laughter, and various insulting memes about Yang Ling appeared. Yang Ling silently turned off the group messages. Someone had uploaded his photo in a Bentley to the internet and posted highly inflammatory information. The implication was that Yang Ling had obtained relevant customer data through the company's network security channels and helped a fraud company conduct online fraud by various means, thus making a lot of money. Otherwise, how could a person with no background like Yang Ling afford a Bentley? Yang Ling carefully examined the person who first posted this message. Although Yang Ling did not recognize this social media account, only one person could have taken this photo, Ling. This woman was indeed venomous. He was not afraid of the company's punishment, but worried about the police station. If the police station froze his account for 3 to 5 months on the pretext of investigating online fraud, he would not have enough time to build a safe house. Now trouble had arrived. This matter was troublesome, but there was still a way to resolve it. Yang Ling sat on the bed sipping coffee and pondering. The first thing to do was to find a security company as soon as possible, start building a safe house, and spend the money. The second thing was that he couldn't confront the police station heathen, because in 2074, Yang Ling was truly an ordinary person, a social underdog at the bottom of society. Although he now had money, this society wasn't one where money alone dictated everything. If you had money but no status, no connections, and no identity, no matter how much you had, you would be forced to spit it out. So he absolutely couldn't confront the police station directly. That brought up the third thing, to solve the problem from its source. How could he solve the problem from the source? The one that had requested the police to file the case was the cybersecurity company where Yang Ling currently worked, Huan Cybersecurity. But the root of the issue lay with Ling. If Ling used her Weibo account to refute the claims saying that her Bentley was rented for shooting a short video or a skit, then this matter would come to an end. Afterwards, he could go to the cybersecurity company to explain things clearly. Whether it was a deduction of bonus or salary, it didn't matter. The problem could be resolved properly. The key was with Ling. Would she be willing to remove the video and issue a public apology? This woman had posted such a video only because she saw that he had money and no longer pursued her as a simp. For dealing with a woman like that, money could solve all problems. Thinking this, Yang Ling smiled. After his rebirth, his first goal was to survive. His second goal was to make sure that those who had tormented and humiliated him in his previous life could not survive. The more Ling made a scene, now the more miserably. After figuring this out, the next day Yang Ling drove to Jiangzhou Commercial Bank. He opened an account there and transferred 4 million yuan from his industrial and commercial bank account, which was linked to his securities account. Jiangzhou Commercial Bank was a local bank, a small one. Small banks went to great lengths to attract deposits. The young lady at the bank counter was overjoyed when she saw Yang Ling deposit 4 million yuan. She immediately gave him her WeChat business card and phone number, hoping to develop a long-term client relationship with Yang Ling. Yang Ling asked Jiangzhou Commercial Bank to issue him a credit card. The card's limit was an astonishing 1 million yuan. Once the card was ready, Yang Ling directly called Ling. "Are you free for coffee?" Ling, who was browsing Weibo in her rented room and watching the public opinion escalate, had been waiting for Yang Ling's call. Now that the call came, Lin Ying's heart soared. She knew Yang Ling would call her. Ling knew Yang Ling's character too well. He used to be a simp, and now that he had become rich, he still couldn't escape her grasp. Ling replied, "I don't drink Starbucks. I want to go to Flower God." Flower God was the most expensive coffee shop in Jiangzhou, where a cup of coffee cost over 1500 yuan. 2 cups of coffee and some snacks for 2 people would easily cost 5 or 6,000 yuan. Yang Ling agreed without hesitation. As if to get back at him, Lin Ying ordered the most expensive coffee priced at 3500 yuan per cup. She also changed her demeanor from the clingy, desperate woman who had blocked his Bentley a few days ago. Putting on an air of aloofness, Yang Ling didn't waste words with Lin Ying and said directly, "Take down the video you posted and issue a refutation letter saying that I drove the Bentley to shoot a video and the car was rented." A sly expression appeared in Lin Ying's eyes. She knew her goal was achieved. She continued to play dumb. "What video?" Yang Ling smiled faintly. "Let's not talk nonsense. Name your price." Lin Ying gritted her teeth and asked, "How did you suddenly get rich? Aren't you working at the cybersecurity company? How did you become so wealthy?" Yang Ling put down his coffee cup, took out his phone to check the time. "It'll give you 1 minute to think. Either name your price, take down the video, and issue an apology letter, or you'll leave right now. Whatever your purpose was for posting the video, if I walk away now, you won't get a single cent." As expected, Lin Ying panicked. Her goal was of course to get money from Yang Ling. After a moment of thought, she opened her mouth wide. "Give me 2 million yuan. You're so rich, staying in luxury hotels, buying a Bentley. 2 million shouldn't be too much, right?" Yang Ling stared coldly at Lin Ying. Lin Ying suddenly felt that Yang Ling's gaze was terrifying, making her involuntarily want to look away. She gritted her teeth and said, 2 million. Yang Ling chuckled, took out the Jiangzhou Commercial Bank credit card from his bag, and placed it in front of Lin Ying. "Have you ever seen a rich person keeping millions in cash in their bank account? They all invest it, don't they, eh?" At these words, Lin Ying's heart sank. She wondered if Yang Ling had really found some investment channel and thus become incredibly wealthy. Pointing at the credit card, Yang Ling said, "The limit on this card is 1 million yuan. You can spend it as you like, and it'll pay it off every month. A million a month is much better than a one-time payment of 2 million, right?" Lin Ying's heart pounded. Though she had used her looks to navigate among men, constantly manipulating her simps to gain maximum, no one had ever been so generous as to give her 1 million. Did this mean she could spend hundreds of thousands, or even 1 million a month with Yang Ling covering the bill? If Yang Ling had the confidence to repay 1 million every month, was he really doing big business? Lin Ying thought, why did she need any other simps when Yang Ling alone was enough? Lin Ying broke into a smile. "Oh, I was just joking." She reached out to take the card. Yang Ling pressed the card down and said, "Delete the video and send the apology letter first. Edit the apology letter according to my instructions." 10 minutes later, Lin Ying deleted the video she had posted, though the ones already reposted by netizens were beyond her control. But the apology letter was sent with great sincerity, expressing regret to the public for the turmoil caused by the incident and accepting everyone's criticism. As expected, once the apology letter was out, the direction of online public opinion changed. Most people scolded Lin Ying's account for being shameless, fabricating lies for traffic. Lin Ying's apology letter also aligned with netizens' perception. How could there be so many overnight fortunes in the world? A miserable coder couldn't possibly afford a Bentley, it must have been a skit. Then Yang Ling dragged Lin Ying out. Lin Ying winced. "Where are you taking me?" "The police station." Yesterday, the police from the local station called Yang Ling to report and clarify the situation. Now that Lin Ying, the culprit, was present, the rest would be much easier to resolve. Sure enough, the officers were also reluctant to deal with unnecessary trouble. If Yang Ling's case had been formally filed, investigating it would have consumed considerable effort. Now that it was proven to be a misunderstanding, the police were relieved. They looked Yang Ling up and down, his plain clothes and honest demeanor suggesting he was neither wealthy nor involved in telecom fraud. The officer reprimanded Lin Ying and Yang Ling. "If you're making skits, just stick to that. Don't post random things on. I can close the case on my end, but you still need to inform your company. How about I accompany you there? Go explain the situation to your company." Lin Ying grew impatient. "Are you done? I have things to do." She was eager to see if Yang Ling's credit card truly had 1 million yuan limit and if it could actually be used for shopping. After the officer gave permission, Lin Ying hurried off. Before leaving, she whispered in Yang Ling's ear, "If your card won't let me swipe, it'll tell the police the truth." Yang Ling smiled. He could stop the 1 million yuan limit anytime with a single call to Jiangzhou Commercial Bank. No matter The apocalypse was just days away. Let this scheming woman enjoy her last moments. He would settle every debt later. Ling impatiently hailed a cab to 𝑃 Square, heading straight for the LV boutique. That pathetic suitor from a few days ago was a broke loser. When asked to buy her an LV bag, he couldn't cover it even with all his savings and credit card combined. That day Ling had been utterly humiliated at LV. Quality suitors were indeed scarce. Today she would reclaim her. Upon arriving at LV, Ling called her so-called friend 𝑃. After all, 𝑃 had been there during her embarrassment. Though 𝑃 said nothing, Ling knew that bitch was secretly mocking her. 𝑃 at 𝑃 Square LV. Can you come help me decide if this new dirty chic bag looks good on me? 𝑃 sounded puzzled. Didn't you not have enough money that day? Ling snorted. That guy was bad luck. Today I'm buying it myself. Hurry over. Hearing that Ling was about to buy an 8,000 yuan bag, 𝑃's jealousy flared. She quickly took a cab to 𝑃. The LV sales assistant recognized 𝑃 and Ling. Despite his professional smile, he inwardly looked down on Ling. A woman who shamelessly begged a man to buy her a bag only for him to be broke, maxing out credit cards and even small loans from Alipay and WeChat, was pathetic. Even the sales staff felt embarrassed for her. Under everyone's gaze, Ling grabbed her favorite bag and headed to the counter. Miss, that'll be 8,980 yuan. She swiped Ling's credit card, entered the password, and nervously waited, fearing he had tricked her. Insincerely, 𝑃 said, "Oh Ling, that bag is gorgeous. What made you splurge on yourself?" Ling changed her mind. She had to cling tightly to Yang. Insincerely, 𝑃 said, "Oh Ling, that bag is gorgeous. What made you splurge on yourself?" Insincerely, 𝑃 said, "Oh Ling, that bag is gorgeous. What made you splurge on yourself?" Ling changed her mind. She had to cling tightly to Yang. A man with such means was rare these days. At Huan Security Company, Ling, accompanied by the officer, saw the credit card charge notification on. He noted this debt. He would make that bitch Ling repay it 100-fold. The more pleasure she took swiping the card, now the more pain she'd suffer later. Free lunches didn't exist. When Huan Company employees saw Ling return, they tensed up as if facing a plague. Ling walked straight into Boss Huan's office. Huan summoned Minister Chen Wei. Employees gathered to watch. Chen Wei immediately lashed out. "You dare come back? Do you know the damage you've caused the company? Now every client thinks we're involved in online fraud. We've lost hundreds of thousands in orders. You bastard, have you no sense? You must explain yourself today. I'm telling you, you've lost your bonus from last year and your basic pay for these 2 months. If you can't explain, I'll not only fire you, but also have you arrested." Ling remained expressionless, staring at Chen Wei as if at a corpse. If he remembered correctly, Huan, Chen Wei, and other Huan executives all lived in Lihu Tianjiu. Chen Wei had remarried his new wife, only 20, was quite pretty. Enough. The matter is resolved. Listen to me, the officer interjected. On the way to Huan Company, when no one was watching, Ling slipped the officer a red envelope as a favor. Money was hard to come by these days, and officers earned meager salaries despite their heavy workload. Though hesitant, the officer succumbed to temptation and accepted the bribe. A gift in hand meant he had to speak in Ling's favor. This was all a misunderstanding. It's been cleared up. Our station has investigated. Ling was making a skit with a friend, renting a car and filming, which was misinterpreted and posted online. Boss Hu, right. The case is closed. I'm here to inform you. If there are no questions, sign the closure papers. Huan and Chen Wei were stunned. Neither they nor anyone at Huan Company believed Ling had struck it rich overnight. In their eyes, Ling was a dull, honest nobody, scum at the bottom of society, a mere tool. Everyone in the world could be wealthy, but never Ling. Chen Wei objected. "Officer, this won't do. Letting it slide like this. What about the losses he caused the company? Many clients now think we're shady and refuse to work with us. No, you must file a case. We need compensation." The officer's role was to mediate and smooth things over. Everyone was a salaried worker. Why create more work over? He said, "This is a civil dispute. If you have issues, take them to court. That's it, sign quickly." Huan reluctantly agreed. "Thank you for your trouble, officer." Huan signed the closure papers promptly and asked his secretary to see the officer out. As soon as the officer left, everyone's demeanor changed. Huan said coldly, "Close the door." Juan's face turned green. After all, his company's business had indeed been severely affected. Tens of thousands of yuan in deals had fallen through recently. Chen Wei saw Huan's expression and instantly understood. He first lashed out at Ling with a torrent of abuse, using extremely harsh words. He insulted Ling's ancestors and parents. Then he proposed a punishment for Ling. "President Hu, I suggest that all of Ling's bonuses, performance rewards, and holidays be cancelled this year, and only a living allowance be given." Chen Wei felt that Ling was easy to manipulate. He had seen many fresh graduates like Ling, from poor rural areas with no house, no car, and no connections in the city. To survive in the city, one had to find a job and work hard. In 2074, the global economy was in turmoil. Jobs were extremely hard to find, but there were plenty of college graduates. As the saying goes, �13 toads are hard to find, but college graduates are everywhere. Ling was certain that Ling would not give up this job. No matter what punishment was given, Ling would not dare to leave. Huan took out a cigar from his bag, and Wei quickly stepped forward to light it for him. Huan took a puff, blew out a smoke ring, and said, "How much does that kid earn in a year? Can that make up for our losses during?" Wei became anxious. He was very afraid that the boss would take out his anger on him. Huan stood up and said, "I know you young people have it tough. Nowadays college graduates are even worse than dogs, and it's very hard for you to find a job. If we fire you, you'll have problems paying rent, eating, and surviving." Huan, pretending to be kind, smiled at Ling and said, "How about this? He'll give you a chance to reform yourself. In front of me and Minister Chun, slap yourself twice, loudly admit you were wrong, and promise to correct it next time. As for this year's bonuses, performance rewards, and holidays, forget about them. You'll work 007 schedule and only receive a living allowance. Wei, don't you have a lot of data over there? Let this kid analyze it as soon as possible." Huan intended to squeeze the maximum value out of Ling. He took out his phone and looked at the screen. The current temperature was 0 degrees Celsius. There was less than a month until the most extreme weather globally. Many news apps had also pushed related news articles. In low-latitude areas of the northern and southern hemispheres, such as Russia and Canada, extreme weather with temperatures as low as -30 to 40 degrees Celsius had already occurred, and many people had gradually frozen to death. The apocalypse might come even faster than he imagined. Seeing that Ling was still playing with his phone, Wei became furious, feeling that Ling was challenging his and President Hu's authority. "I told you to slap yourself, so do it now. This is the opportunity President Hu gave you. You should cherish it. Do you want me to fire you?" Ling put down his phone and looked at Huan and Wei with a mocking expression. "He'll remember this today. By the way, do you live in Lihu, Tianzhu? Which building and unit?" Wei raised his hand to slap Ling. "What? You want to find out where I live and retaliate? Don't you know how to behave, you bastard?" Unexpectedly, Ling blocked Wei's hand. Ling's body, besides coding at the company during the day, also had to work part-time at night to satisfy Lin Ying's insatiable desire for money, either helping carry things at a bar or delivering food all over the streets, becoming one of the modern urban Ironman triathletes. Therefore, his physical fitness was something Wei could not match. With a slight force from Ling, Wei's hand bent backward and deformed. He screamed in pain, spewing the most venomous curses. But as Ling applied more force and Wei's pain increased, he quickly shut up. Let go. Let's talk this out nicely." Ling threw his hand away, causing Wei to lose his balance and fall on his butt. While Wei was frantically thinking about continuing to deduct Ling's salary and assigning him even more difficult tasks to retaliate. Ling's eyes turned fierce. He rolled his neck and said, "I quit this job, old man. Don't mess with me. I know where you live. The barefoot fears not the shod. I'm alone with nothing to lose, while you have wives, children, and families. Watch your step." Sure enough, Ling's killer-like gaze terrified both Wei and Huan. Such a terrifying look could not be faked by ordinary people. That look clearly belonged to someone who had killed before. Ling's survival in the apocalypse had honed his mental strength and bloodthirsty killing intent, which could not be matched by a boss and a manager living peacefully in normal times. Wei and Huan shuddered with fear. Wei had originally intended to call security, but now he dared not. He was truly worried that Ling would do something excessive. For the past decade, the global economy had been poor. Domestic employment rates were extremely low and extreme violent incidents were frequent. Just as Ling said, he was alone with no attachments. Wei, on the other hand, had a wife, children, and family. The barefoot fears not the shod. If Ling really did something excessive, it was to be expected. Seeing that Ling had indeed left the company, Wei only then came to his senses, still shaken. He burst out cursing, "What's so great about that kid? Threatening us? Does he think jobs are easy to find? President, who do you believe that after 2 or 3 days outside, when he can't pay his rent, he'll come crying and begging us to take him back?" Huan was also greatly startled and filled with extreme anger. Never had any subordinate dared to defy and threaten him so directly. Huan immediately said to Wei, "Send a message in the business group to blacklist Ling. Let him not be able to work in any internet company in Zhejiang province." After walking out of the company, Ling felt relieved. Those harsh words were just talk. He had no time now to go after There was no need either, because the apocalypse was coming soon. Wei's family wouldn't live long. Time was extremely precious for Ling now. He immediately went to Zhongsha Security Company. Due to the poor economy, the company's business was not doing well either. When they saw Ling driving a Bentley, the account manager personally came to receive him. Ling got straight to the point, saying he wanted to build a safe shelter that could withstand the apocalypse. The account manager phone was very delighted. "President Yang, you have the ability to foresee the future." Hearing this, Ling's brow twitched. Could it be that someone else had encountered the apocalypse? Then he saw Manager Feng exuberantly claiming that the Earth would surely face an apocalypse in the future, and building a safe house in advance was a wise choice, etc. Yang Ling then realized that Manager Feng was just bluffing. Of course, Manager Feng would try hard to close the deal. Buying an apocalypse safe house was not unheard of. Those were just toys for the rich. But these rich people building apocalypse safe houses were not really preparing for the apocalypse. They were just role-playing, indulging in some absurd fantasies after having their fill of food and wine. Manager Feng obviously took Yang Ling for such a person and gave an ambiguous smile. Manager Feng said with a suggestive tone, "Our in-Doth-world safe houses also have many themed rooms. I can let you pick and choose. There will surely be one you like." Yang Ling initially wanted to rebuke Manager Feng with righteous indignation, making his stance crystal clear. He was genuinely building an apocalypse shelter. But after thinking it over, he reconsidered. In the dreary environment of the apocalypse, he couldn't travel back to 2024 to experience urban life every day. Each traversal had a cool-down period of 1 week. So if there were some themed rooms that could bring joy and relaxation, it might be worth crafting. Yang Ling had great trust in the technical prowess of Zhongxia Security Company. He promptly laid out his specific requirements. Safety was paramount for the shelter. First, the exterior walls and windows needed extensive modifications using materials that could withstand armor-piercing shells, tank rounds, and even cruise missiles, the same materials used by the security company for the vaults of wealthy clients in West Asia. Constructed from high-strength 20mm alloy steel plates, even heavy weapons could barely damage this material, let alone sledgehammers or steel pipes. Hearing Yang Ling's demands, Manager Feng immediately turned serious, realizing Yang Ling was not joking. Next came the windows. Lihu Tianju was a high-end residential complex, so the apartments were designed with north-south ventilation and large floor-to-ceiling windows. Floor-to-ceiling windows were absolutely unsafe. No matter how bulletproof, they were still a vulnerability. Yang Ling requested that all windows be sealed off using the same material as the shelter walls. However, sealing the windows posed two problems. Those problems were natural lighting and ventilation. Even a shelter needed a certain quality of life. He demanded custom virtual windows installed at the original window locations. By 2074, a virtual reality technology had matured significantly. Ultra-high-definition cameras installed outside could transmit the outdoor scenery in real time onto the virtual windows. This way he could enjoy the view while maintaining security. Ventilation was also crucial. The entire residence needed a custom ventilation system. The ventilation system would not use traditional ductwork large enough for a person to crawl through. Instead, it would employ a multi-point distributed small pipe system. Multiple tiny ventilation holes would be placed at various points on the exterior walls, scattered and difficult to attack. All air drawn through these holes would go to a central processing unit, where it would be filtered before being distributed into the rooms. The filters could remove toxic smoke, bacteria, and viruses. This meant that even if someone tried to attack Yang Ling with poison gas, bacteria, or viruses in the apocalypse, they would fail. The filters typically lasted about 10 years, but that was not a problem. Yang Ling had plenty of money and could purchase filters that lasted hundreds or even thousands of years to stockpile in his spatial storage. Then he could replace the filters from inside the room. Manager Feng listened carefully and took detailed notes. He looked at Yang Ling nervously and said, "Mr. Yang, building it this way will cost a considerable amount of money." Initially, Manager Feng thought Yang Ling was like other wealthy people who had perverse interests. For example, locking a girl in an apocalypse shelter and torturing her to satisfy some twisted desire. But he never expected Yang Ling was genuinely building a safe house. Yang Ling chuckled. He opened his futures account, revealing funds worth hundreds of millions. That instantly wiped the smirk off Manager Feng's face. Manager Feng immediately packed up his things and said with a respectful tone, "Mr. Yang, let's go to the VIP room to discuss the details. Everything you mentioned can be done." Once inside the VIP room, the door was closed. Manager Feng promptly had the safe house's elite construction team discuss the plan with Yang Ling on the spot. Many team members were on overseas assignments, but they immediately joined via video call. Yang Ling then outlined his needs. After ensuring the exterior security, the next issue was life support. Life support included water, electricity, and gas. Natural gas was out of the question. Not long into the apocalypse, the gas company and pipelines would be abandoned, gradually falling into disrepair and unable to supply gas. Electricity and water would be intermittent. 2 years into the apocalypse, when society completely collapsed into anarchy, both would cease entirely. Thus, Yang Ling needed to build his own power and water supply systems. By 2074, industrial-grade nuclear batteries were available. Safety was guaranteed. There was no radiation exposure from standing near them. However, the price was steep. A nuclear battery capable of generating 1.0 kilowatt-hour per year cost $5 million, with a lifespan of 50 years. Yang Ling only needed to power his apartment, which would use at most a few thousand kilowatt-hour per year. By running the nuclear reaction at minimum output, the battery would last a lifetime. In addition to the nuclear battery, Yang Ling asked the team to equip him with a high-powered diesel generator. After all, Lushan could travel back to 2024 and purchase diesel with no difficulty. Next came the water supply. The future would alternate between extreme heat and extreme cold, meaning heavy snow floods and severe droughts would occur in cycles. So Yang Ling requested a dedicated water supply network that could draw snow or water from the ground. He also wanted a water storage tank and a central water treatment unit installed inside the apartment. The water filter could remove various impurities, heavy metals, viruses, and bacteria, making the water drinkable. This way, even during heavy snow or floods, the entire apartment would have water. In the worst-case scenario, if the supply network was cut off or the external water source was severely contaminated and unused, Lushan could bring clean water from 2024 and store it in the tank for the whole apartment. With the most critical aspects of security and life support settled, all these facilities would be installed on the balcony, not occupying the living room or bedrooms. That covered the interior setup. Even in the apocalypse, one needed a sense of quality living. Yang Ling placed a 200-inch ultra-high-definition TV in the living room and set up his own local area network along with a supercomputer. The LAN would store all the text, games, videos, and other information currently available on the internet. Additionally, Yang Ling requested a comprehensive security system to monitor the entire residential complex. Surveillance cameras and listening devices would be installed in concealed locations. Surveillance and eavesdropping devices were of paramount importance. These would be powered by solar energy and transmit signals wirelessly to Yang Ling's safe house. With these devices, Yang Ling could monitor the activities of others in the residential complex at any time. Of course, the top priority was ensuring his own safety. After finalizing the most crucial elements for survival and security, the remaining considerations were the interior furnishings, which could be arranged according to his whims. Apart from the oversized television, top-tier supercomputer, and corresponding massage and leisure equipment, in the living room, Yang Ling had particular tastes regarding the kitchen. The kitchen naturally had to be divided into an open-concept Western kitchen and a fully enclosed Chinese kitchen, complete with all necessary appliances like ovens and steamers. Even in the apocalypse, Yang Ling intended to savor fine cuisine. The bedrooms and storage rooms also required material. Yang Ling accepted all the special room designs previously proposed by Manager �13. A separate space within the storage room was designated as a cold storage. After all, Yang Ling couldn't constantly retrieve items from his virtual space. Frequently used food supplies would be kept in the cold storage. Yang Ling and Manager �13's team spent a full 3 hours finalizing numerous details. Manager �13's team was highly professional, starting to draft plans as soon as Yang Ling articulated his needs. By the time Yang Ling finished listing all his requirements, Manager �13's team had already produced a plan. The final step was the quotation. Manager �13 said, "Mr. Yang, although the safe house you're building isn't as large as those villas, your requirements are extremely high. The most expensive single items are the miniature nuclear battery and the air and water purification systems. The budget for this set alone is tens of millions. Then there's the outer alloy wall, price per square meter, which is also quite costly. The total now comes to 37 million. For some rooms like the kitchen equipment and the cold storage, well, waive the fees and offer them as a complimentary gift. What do you think?" Hearing this price, Yang Ling was somewhat surprised. He had expected at least over 100 million, but it was tens of millions less than he anticipated. That was no problem. After paying the down payment, he would still have tens of millions, even close to 100 million. This money could be used to purchase snow off-road vehicles, helicopters, speedboats, and other essentials for the apocalypse. And of course, weapons. �13 looked at Yang Ling with eager anticipation. There had indeed been quite a few orders for Doomsday safe houses recently, but an order as top tier as Yang Ling's was unique. Without batting an eye, Yang Ling said, "What's the payment method here? I can't possibly pay the entire amount up front." Seeing Yang Ling start to discuss pricing, Manager �13 knew this deal was as good as sealed. Manager �13 said, "According to our usual practice, you pay 10 as a deposit before construction begins. Once our construction team starts work, you pay 30. After completion, you pay 70. The acceptance inspection is within 1 month of completion, and the remaining balance is due within 1 month after acceptance, essentially within 2 months of completion. Our safe house comes with a lifetime warranty. You can contact us anytime if there are any issues. The price is steep, but rest assured about the quality. After all, items like the nuclear battery, water and air purification systems, and the 20mm thick anti-heavy weapon alloy steel plates need to be custom ordered from manufacturers." The payment terms were perfectly acceptable, but Yang Ling was more concerned about the construction timeline. Manager �13 said, "The construction for your project is complex. It will take at least 3 months. 3 months. By then it would be too late." After all, the apocalypse was just over 40 days away, so the timeline had to be compressed to 1 month. Yang Ling said, "I won't wait for you to start work to pay the 30. He'll pay 30 up front. You hurry up with the construction. If you can finish within a month, he'll reward the project team with a 10 million bonus." They'll put this in writing in the contract. Sure enough, when Yang Ling mentioned the 10 million bonus, the on-site team exclaimed in surprise. 10 million. And it wasn't for the company, but a reward for the project team, meaning the project team could distribute the 10 million among themselves. Manager Feng was thrilled. Yang Ling stated that if the project was completed within a month, the 10 million bonus for the team would be written into the contract in black and white. This proved Yang Ling was serious about the project. Manager Feng quickly agreed, since Mr. Yang has said so, well, we guarantee to complete the project within a month. Manager Feng added with a suggestive smile, Mr. Yang, I have some interesting gadgets here. Seeing how straightforward you are, I can get them for you through special channels. The interesting gadgets Manager Feng referred to were a cutting-edge technology, biochips. These chips were nano-sized. Once injected, they traveled through the bloodstream to the brain, allowing the owner to control the injected person's behavior via an AI-controlled chip. High-tech inventions were often used by the wealthy to enhance their lifestyles. The primary use of this chip was, of course, for the rich to enslave women. Yang Ling gladly accepted. Such a device would be indispensable in the apocalypse. The promise of a 10 million bonus was just talk on Yang Ling's part, although there were still about 40 days until the apocalypse. But the apocalypse wouldn't arrive suddenly. It was a gradual accumulation of extreme weather. In about 30 more days, blizzards would ravage the globe. At that point, the government would order all residents except administrative staff and volunteers to stay indoors. Food would be distributed uniformly by neighborhood committees and volunteers. A month later, getting paid would be exceedingly difficult, even if they came to collect. Yang Ling would be holed up in his safe house, refusing to come out. They wouldn't be able to do anything about it, and they couldn't possibly guard his door every day. In temperatures of -20 to 30 degrees Celsius, even wearing a thick down jacket, it would be hard to stay outdoors for hours. Yang Ling signed the contract promptly and paid the 30 deposit, a few million yuan. Manager Feng immediately sent the contract to headquarters. They confirmed that a construction crew would be dispatched the next day. All materials would be procured and delivered to Yang Ling's residential complex promptly. Do you have weapons here? Yang Ling asked in a low voice. Manager Feng was startled. If anyone else asked, he would deny it, but Yang Ling had just paid a deposit and was a legitimate client. Manager Feng whispered, I have channels. What do you need? Yang Ling listed a series of heavy and light weapons, leaving Manager Feng dumbfounded. Heavy weapons are out of the question, but we can get pistols, grenades, light machine guns, and anti-riot gear. However, you'll have to pay up front. I'll order them from West Asia. They're Russian and American products sourced from West Asia. Manager Feng quickly drew up a list: M249 light machine guns, Glock pistols, grenades, smoke grenades, stun grenades, various bulletproof vests, shields, and close combat weapons like cleavers. Being smuggled goods, the total cost was a hefty 5 million yuan. Seeing Yang Ling willing to spend so much, Manager Feng was even more optimistic about their cooperation. After completing this major task, Yang Ling did not rest. He spent another week traveling across the country, purchasing snowmobiles, snow off-road vehicles, yachts, and more. He also bought the highest quality cold weather clothing. The helicopters, snow vehicles, snowmobiles, and yachts cost over 60 million yuan in total. These purchases required full payment, not just a down payment. Yang Ling liquidated all his futures and used the proceeds for these purchases, storing everything in his virtual space. The weapons Manager Feng procured also arrived and were all placed in the virtual space. After all, he couldn't hide in the safe house forever. He would have to venture out eventually. Just then, Manager Feng, who was overseeing the construction site, urgently called Yang Ling. Mr. Yang, could you please come to the construction site? We've run into some trouble. Yang Ling was puzzled. But when he arrived at the site, he realized they had indeed encountered a problem. When Yang Ling arrived at the construction site of Emerald Lake Residence, he found several elderly men and women surrounded. At the forefront was a plump old woman clad in a red Canada Goose down jacket, who directly blocked the entrance to Yang Ling's apartment at 902 on the 9th floor. With hands on her hips and eyes wide as brass bells, she exuded an air of overbearing arrogance. Manager Feng was already on site, drenched in sweat and utterly flustered. Upon spotting Yang Ling, he hurried over and said, President Yang, these neighbors of yours are incredibly difficult to negotiate with. The moment the plump old woman saw Yang Ling, she launched into a tirade against him. What construction are you doing? With all this noise, how are we supposed to rest? All this mess is creating such a foul atmosphere. Look at these materials you've brought. What are they? All dark and grimy. Will they emit radiation? Will they harm our health? Once the old woman started, the neighbors she had summoned began chiming and accusing Yang Ling from all sides. Every day banging starts at 8 in the morning. How can we get any rest? Exactly, no construction allowed. My husband has a weak heart. If his health deteriorates because of your construction, who will take responsibility? Yang Ling looked at the group of elderly people and couldn't help but laugh. These old folks, living off hefty pensions and enjoying life at home, were utterly self-centered with no regard for others' interests. Yet if anyone harmed even a sliver of their interest, they would throw tantrums, weep and wail, and do everything in their power to sabotage the matter. If you dared to be a bit stern with them, they'd immediately collapse on the ground, demanding you take responsibility with dramatic cries. In short, they were impossible to deal with. Young Ling had no desire to argue with these old demons. As a homeowner at Emerald Lake Residence, he had spent millions on his apartment and paid thousands in monthly property management fees. Such matters were best left to the property management. Young Ling promptly called them, and soon the property manager arrived with staff. The property manager put on a placating smile, and upon seeing the old woman, actually greeted her first. "Aunt Su, you're..." Seeing Manager Liu's attitude, Yang Ling and Manager Feng exchanged a glance, knowing full well that the property manager would likely try to smooth things over. Manager Feng said, "Manager Liu, we registered our construction with you in advance and paid all relevant fees. Our work hours are from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and we've strictly adhered to them. Now these people are blocking us from working. What kind of nonsense is this?" No sooner had Manager Feng spoken than the elderly group began clamoring. "We need our afternoon naps. We need rest after our morning exercises. With all this clattering, how can we rest properly?" Manager Liu's face was etched with distress. He first tried to reason gently with the elderly, but they refused to listen. Aunt Su pointed at Yang Ling and accused, "This apartment you bought was already beautifully decorated. Why do you need to renovate it?" This question infuriated Manager Feng. Yang Ling smiled and asked, "Aunt Su, how old are you this year?" Hearing his tone, Aunt Su thought he was about to back down. "I'm 63. I suggest you stop this renovation and I'll let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, believe me, I'll call my son, and the enforcement officers from Housing and Construction, Urban Management, and Natural Resources Planning will all come and confiscate your things." Yang Ling grew curious. "And who might your son be?" Mentioning her son, Aunt Su swelled with pride. "My son is Zhang Xiang." Zhang Xiang. The name sounded familiar to Yang Ling. Before he could place it, Manager Feng whispered in his ear, "The deputy mayor of our Jiangzhou city." So that was it. No wonder the old woman was causing trouble. The property manager knew her background, which was why he kept smiling and avoiding the issue, just trying to muddle. Yang Ling had no intention of sparing the old woman's face. It didn't matter. Soon enough, the first to perish would be people like her. Yang Ling had no intention of sparing the old woman's face. It didn't matter. Soon enough, the first to perish would be people like her. Aunt Su nodded approvingly. "You're a sensible young man, unlike that manager you hired. All right, clean up this mess, have someone sweep the hallways inside and out until there's no dust, and we'll call it even." But just as Aunt Su was about to finish, Yang Ling shifted his tone. "People are going to die anyway. Sooner or later we all meet our end. So why bother living at all? Aunt Su, why don't you just die already? You're old, ugly, fat, and disgusting. You're not only wasting food, but also polluting the air. Just looking at you makes me nauseous and sick. You probably owe me some compensation for mental distress." Yang Ling uttered these words with an airy nonchalance. Aunt Su was so furious she nearly had a heart attack. The elderly detested any talk of death. Enraged, she lunged at Yang Ling. "You wretched thing. What kind of talk is that? He'll call my son. He'll have him deal with you." The property staff quickly restrained Aunt Su, coaxing her until she calmed down, then said to Yang Ling, "Mr. Yang, please hold your tongue a bit. We can negotiate everything." Yang Ling replied coldly, "Fine, let's negotiate." Manager Liu quickly added, "We understand the elderly need quiet. The new homeowner is dissatisfied with the previous decoration and has a legal right to renovate. Aunt Su, you're highly respected here at Emerald Lake Residence and the most understanding person. Please say the word. When would Mr. Yang's renovation be acceptable to you?" The property manager flattered Aunt Su excessively. Somewhat appeased, Aunt Su snorted, "No construction from Monday to Saturday. Only on Sundays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. when we old sisters go to the senior center for exercise. That's the only time you can work." Manager Feng was frantic. "What? Only a few hours a week? It'll take me 2 or 3 years to finish." Aunt Su and the other elderly chimed in. "That's not our problem. Take it or leave it. No construction otherwise." Even if the heavens themselves came down, this, just as the property manager tried to mediate, Yang Ling spoke. He had already made up his mind to kill. When the apocalypse came, this wretched old woman would be the first. Yang Ling said, "Aunt Su, how about this? Name your price. They'll compensate you for mental distress and loss of sleep. I have to proceed with the construction and finish within a month." Aunt Su sneered. "You think your dirty money makes you special? Compensation? Can you even compensate for my sleep?" Yang Ling took out his phone. "If you're willing, I can transfer the money right now, and we'll sign a written agreement in front of the property man. How about 100,000? Everyone was stunned by Yang Ling's opening offer. Aunt Su muttered, "Don't try to scare me with your filthy money." Yang Ling said coldly, 1 million. This time, everyone in the room was dumbfounded. Yang Ling watched Aunt Zu's expression. As expected, Aunt Zu's eyes twitched wildly, and her heartbeat quickened. 1 million was no small sum. Yang Ling fanned the flames. "If you agree, you'll transfer the money to you right now. With so many witnesses I can't go back on my— Aunt Sue swallowed hard. Transfer the money immediately. She almost wanted to agree on the spot. She had brought her sisters and neighbors to protest simply because the construction annoyed her and disturbed her rest. Now enduring a few less days of peace could net her $1 million. Where else could she find such a deal? But with so many eyes on her, Aunt Sue worried that if she agreed, she would lose face entirely. So despite her reluctance, she put on a righteous front. Who wants your dirty money? Our condition stands construction only on Sundays. If you don't agree, no construction. Manager Phone was truly anxious. How could this old woman be so unreasonable? Just as Manager Phone was about to demand that the property management resolve the issue or take them to court, Ling smiled and said, "All right, we want work today. Let's not disturb everyone's rest. We'll discuss this later." Aunt Sue and the elderly group exchanged glances, surprised that Ling had agreed so readily. They still had a bellyful of venomous words unsaid. Ling's sudden compliance left them feeling oddly disappointed. Ling cheerfully stepped aside. "What, you old folks want to stretch your legs? How about you smash the things I've already renovated? What do you think?" Hearing this, the elderly dared not say another word. Arguing to stop construction was their right. Manager Phone was frantic. He had just landed a nearly $100 million project, and all materials were ready for work. Manager Phone was frantic. He had just landed a nearly $100 million project, and all materials were ready for work to begin. Now it was suddenly halted. How could he not be anxious? But Ling reassured him. "All right, Manager Phone, go back for now. He'll call you later." Seeing Ling's confident gaze, Manager Phone knew he must have a plan. After all, Ling was a man who casually threw around tens of millions. There was no way someone like him couldn't handle this. The elderly had nothing better to do and couldn't sustain a long protest. Besides, the hallway had no heating so they all went home. In the past, they would chat in the community courtyard or find a place to play cards. But now with the weather so cold, the elderly couldn't withstand the chill. They stayed indoors. And having been cooped up for a month or two, they grew irritable. Seeing Ling's construction gave them an outlet for their pent-up anger. After everyone left, Ling casually followed Aunt Sue. Aunt Sue lived at 802 on the 8th floor, directly below Ling. With a chuckle, Ling went to the largest department store in Jiangzhou and bought a 5,999 yuan box of Ling cordyceps powder. This brand was heavily advertised on TV, phones, and outdoors. Though young people didn't believe in it, the elderly were superstitiously devoted to it. This Ling cordyceps powder held the same status among the elderly as Gucci, LV, or Hermes among young women. They believed it could cure all ailments and prolong life. But not everyone could afford such a price. Ling knocked on the door. After a grumble from inside, Aunt Sue opened it upon seeing it was him. Ling said with a smile, "Aunt Sue, I'm sorry for disturbing you with the renovation. I've come today to offer my apologies." As he handed over the gift, Ling surveyed Aunt Sue's home. The decoration was vintage yet resplendent, featuring numerous pieces of golden Nanmu furniture. Aunt Sue's son was the deputy mayor of Jiangzhou City. Based on current civil servant salaries and bonuses, his annual income was at most around 3,000. How could a deputy mayor earning 3,000 a year afford a 6 million yuan apartment at Emerald Lake residence and spend millions on decoration? The answer was obvious. Aunt Sue's husband Zhang Zhong sat in a wheelchair watching TV, appearing to have suffered a serious illness and in poor health. The TV was broadcasting urgent news. Ling glanced at it. It reported that temperatures across the entire southern region had hit an all-time low. Tonight, Jiangzhou City would experience a cold snap, with the lowest temperature dropping to -15°C. Meanwhile, in Hainan province, where summer temperatures usually ranged from 30 to 40 degrees, it would also reach 0 degrees tonight, possibly bringing snow. This would be the first recorded snowfall in Hainan's history. A smile curled at the corners of Ling's mouth. He continued, speaking to Aunt Sue. "Aunt Sue, your home is beautifully decorated, but it's a bit old. I noticed some windows don't close properly. How about this? When I renovate, I'll have the workers replace your windows with smart ones that you can control with your phone or voice. They'll get you the best quality, so even if it's -20 or 30 degrees outside, your home will stay warm." Aunt Sue had been thinking about replacing the windows recently. But with the sudden temperature drop causing many urban management issues, her busy deputy mayor's son had no time to attend to the elderly couple. Moreover, the cold made it difficult for the two seniors to move around, so the faulty windows remained. At night, they felt quite cold, even with the heating turned up to maximum. Ling added, "I promised you $1 million earlier, and I meant it. Give me your phone." With many old neighbors and friends around earlier, Aunt Sue had felt too embarrassed to accept the money, even though she wanted to. But now, in her own space, in her own home, what was there to be embarrassed about? Aunt Sue was no stranger to accepting gifts on her son's behalf. She was well versed in such. Pretending to be proper, Aunt Sue took out her phone and said, "My phone has been so laggy these past couple of days. Take a look at it." Ling took the phone with a cheerful smile. Without a word, Ling transferred 1 million yuan directly into old Madame Zu's account. When she picked up her phone and checked, she saw that $1 million had indeed arrived. Yang Ling then handed her the drafted agreement, asking her to sign it. Old Madame Zh's attitude shifted instantly, and she beamed with joy. Oh Xiao Yang, from now on we'll be neighbors. Let's look out for each other in the future. You're being too polite, you've embarrassed me. Actually, we have no objection to your construction work. We just hope you'll carry it out civilly and pay attention to safety. Yang Ling said, then I'll trouble you, Aunt Sue. If other neighbors cause me trouble. Old Madame Sue immediately thumped her chest and said, don't worry, leave it to me. Your construction isn't illegal or against regulations, so why shouldn't it be allowed? Whoever dares to stop your construction will have to deal with me, Sue Liping. With old Madame Zh's assurance, Yang Ling felt relieved. Yang Ling added, Aunt Sue, you see him alone in Jiangzhou now. Staying in a hotel every night isn't a good solution. We'll be working overtime on the construction and might disturb you at night. Old Madame Sue hesitated for a moment before gritting her teeth and saying, that's no problem. All right, then, it's settled. Yang Ling's attitude suddenly became perfunctory. He stood up with a smile, pocketed the signed agreement, and then took a miniature camera from his bag, turning it off right in front of old Madame Sue. The moment old Madame Sue saw the miniature camera, her expression changed drastically, and she hastily demanded, what are you doing? Yang Ling said casually, don't worry, Aunt Sue. I just recorded it in case you go back on your word. If my construction goes smoothly, then the $1,000,000 I just gave you and my promise to install your windows will definitely be honored. But if you block my construction again, or if your old friends do, I won't hesitate to expose the video I just recorded. You and your husband are retired and can stay home, but I'm afraid it might affect your son's political career. Yang Ling laughed heartily. Don't worry. As long as you keep your promise, I'll keep mine. I don't like trouble either. Yang Ling laughed heartily. Don't worry. As long as you keep your promise, I'll keep mine. I don't like trouble either. So Yang Ling believed that for the next month of construction, he wouldn't encounter any more trouble. As for installing windows for the old woman and the $1,000,000, Yang Ling had no good intentions. The windows would definitely be installed, but they would be smart windows. The control of these smart windows would lie with the supercomputer in Yang Ling's home. Yang Ling had no good intentions. The windows would definitely be installed, but they would be smart windows. The control of these smart windows would lie with the supercomputer. By then, even if old Madame Sue offered to return the $1,000,000 and beg Yang Ling to close the windows, or even if she gave him her entire life savings, Yang Ling wouldn't agree. As for the $1,000,000, he has more money than he can spend now. Soon the apocalypse will come and money will be worthless. This million is just like funeral money burned in advance for old Madame Sue. Sure enough, after dealing with old Madame Sue, Manager Phone's construction went much more smoothly. Manager Phone didn't just work from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. He worked around the clock as Yang Ling requested. During the day, they did noisy work like hammering. At night, they laid out pipelines and installed equipment. In less than a month, the construction team braved the extreme cold and finished building Yang Ling's safe house. On the day of the inspection, the temperature in Jiangzhou City had dropped to -15°C, and snow was falling steadily. The snow on the roads was half a meter deep. The city's snowplows worked around the clock. All community volunteers and government staff were mobilized. Everyone put aside their daily tasks to focus entirely on drought and snow relief efforts. Still, the news remained optimistic. The evening news anchor at 7 p.m. the previous night had reported that the extreme cold was caused by a combination of factors, including solar storms and high-pressure air masses from Siberia. Based on a detailed analysis by meteorological experts, the anchor predicted the extreme cold would ease in half a month. They were even optimistic that by August, temperatures in most of the country would return to normal levels. This meant temperatures in Jiangzhou would rise to around 30 degrees. The news was highly authoritative. Since the news said so, no one took the situation seriously. Many city residents saw the extreme cold and snow as an ancien millennium spectacle. Countless people played in the snow-built snowmen, created all sorts of stunts, and live-streamed or recorded videos. Many also organized cold resistance competitions, seeing how long they could stay outside wearing only underwear. Surprisingly, this activity became quite popular. Although people occasionally froze to death, those who weren't affected and were more cold-resistant gained a large following. With followers came live streaming sales. The hottest product in live streaming sales was now cold weather down jackets. In short, people across the country were quite optimistic, treating the summer snow and extreme cold like a festive occasion. No one realized the severity of the situation. Manager Phone joked to Yang Ling, Mr. Yang, look at this crazy weather. Can you really predict the future? Is the apocalypse really coming? Yang Ling could tell from Manager Phone's expression that otherwise that remark would have scared him half to death. Yang Ling pretended to be relaxed. The extreme cold won't last much longer. Haven't you seen the news? The weather experts say temperatures will return to normal in August, back to over 30 degrees. Manager Phone complained, our Jiangzhou is like an oven. The weather forecast says over 30 degrees, but the real feel is at least 50 or 60. You feel like you're being roasted. I'd rather have this kind of weather than that extreme heat. Yang Ling chuckled, but didn't respond. because in the future humanity would experience both extreme cold and extreme heat. Better days were still to come. But today the most important task was the inspection. Manager Feng began to introduce the massive project that cost tens of millions. Mr. Yang, we replaced the entrance door. It's made of ultra-strong alloy embedded in the wall. Not even ordinary tools can open it. Even if you fired an anti-tank armor-piercing shell at it, there wouldn't be a scratch. The materials and technology used on this door are the same as those used for vaults in West Asia. So how do I get in? Ling looked at the door. It was completely different from an ordinary door, merging seamlessly with the wall. There was no handle. Manager Feng said, this door is currently in its initial state. It needs your iris information to be registered. Your iris information will be set as the administrator. Only you can enter. Once you're the administrator, you can set the iris information for guests. The iris is the most secure method in the world. This door cannot be opened by fingerprint, password, or key, only by iris scan. Ling deliberately asked, can the administrators from your company open it? Manager Feng became anxious upon hearing this. Of course not. In its initial state, whoever registers their information first is the one who can open it. To put it more bluntly, once you've registered your information, if you go elsewhere, this safe house might never be opened until the end of the world. Manager Feng guaranteed it with a thump on his chest, and Ling believed him. After all, this security company had a good global reputation. A bit of trust was warranted. Then, following Manager Feng's instructions, Ling registered his iris through the door's invisible scanning device, becoming the owner and administrator of the house. When the door opened, he was surprised to find a narrow space surrounded by alloy walls. Manager Feng quickly explained, this was originally an entrance garden. For safety, we converted it into an AB door system. For door B, you'll need to register your iris the same way as door A. Doors A and B cannot be opened simultaneously. Ling registered his iris for door B as well. The so-called AB system was common in prisons or high-security special facilities. The layout was roughly like this: outside door A, door B inside. This ensured that even if someone breached the outer door, they couldn't enter the interior of the room. The interior decoration was brand new, extremely luxurious and opulent. Most importantly, all windows had been sealed, replaced by 𝂃. As requested, the alloy wall at the former bay window location could be opened. This would allow drones to fly out through the window in the future. Despite being entirely alloy walls, the room didn't feel oppressive at all. The interior alloy walls used virtual reality display technology. They could display the outdoor scenery from external cameras on the walls, just like real windows at all times. The ventilation system was also very comfortable, allowing users to open or close virtual windows to adjust airflow as needed. The large TV in the living room, the supercomputer on the balcony, the completely safe nuclear battery, the water purification and air purification equipment, and the massive refrigerator in the utility room. These were just the basics. With the room's power consumption and battery supply, it can last for half a year without issue. As for the water issue you mentioned last time, we've buried alloy pipes all the way to the underground. So we have two water systems, one connected to the municipal water supply and another that pumps water from underground. All water passes through our central filtration system before use. With the two fundamental issues of water and electricity resolved, everything was fine. The remaining critical issue was the application of the supercomputer. The supercomputer was already in use, equipped with the world's most advanced chips, graphics cards, motherboards, and other hardware. To keep his entertainment from becoming the supercomputer contained all movies, TV series, anime, variety shows, and more from the history of human cinema. It also had the world's top games. To play games, Ling had also purchased biochips. The technology in 2074 was indeed highly advanced. By attaching a biochip to his temple, he could fully immerse himself in a virtual world. Of course, entertainment was trivial. The most critical aspect was surveillance. Manager Feng opened the massive monitor on the balcony. The entire Tianju complex and its surrounding areas were within the surveillance range. The surveillance was precise enough to see every building, every corridor, and even every household. Old Madame Zu's place was especially clear. When the new windows were installed for Old Madame Su, surveillance devices were embedded in them. Ling could also control the opening and closing of these new windows. With the basic needs of safety and survival met, Ling didn't care much about the decoration of the other rooms. The sight of a few bedrooms made him blush. Aside from his own master bedroom and a normal guest room, there were two large bedrooms that had been transformed into themed rooms. Besides having a love bed, there was even a huge cage filled with various tools. Manager Feng gave Ling a knowing look and said, these are all top quality. Middle Eastern tycoons love this kind of thing. Manager Feng naturally assumed Ling had these rooms built to satisfy his personal fetishes. He never connected the construction of an apocalypse-safe house with the possibility of the apocalypse actually arriving. Ling had initially planned to have Manager Feng remove these items as he hadn't ordered them. But seeing the outdoor temperature already approaching -30 degrees and the increasing frequency of snowfall. Yang Ling felt time was running out, so he decided not to change the rooms. Manager 𝂃 said cheerfully, "Mr. Yang, are you satisfied?" Yang Ling nodded. "Satisfied, very satisfied." Finally, Yang Ling signed the acceptance form. Manager 𝂃 said politely, "Then Mr. Yang, about the remaining payment." Having seen Yang Ling's financial strength, Manager 𝂃 was naturally very courteous. The final payment could be made, but not by Yang Ling. It would be paid by that disgusting woman Ling. Yang Ling still had a score to settle with Ling over the previous incident. Before the apocalypse, Yang Ling planned to set Ling up. He said to Manager 𝂃 with a smile, "Manager 𝂃, hey, race the thing. You know, with all the taxes on companies these days, I want to put the Safe House project under my company's name. So I'd like to change the contract from a personal one to a company. He'll pay through the company, and you can issue an invoice for me to use for tax deduction." Manager 𝂃 thought it was nothing serious. He had seen this many times. "No problem. Let's resign the contract." Yang Ling had previously established a shell company with a registered capital of merely 2,000 yuan, yet its business scope was remarkably extensive. It covered international trade in steel or construction and more. Setting up such a company was simple. Just spend a few thousand yuan to hire an agency. Yang Ling used this shell company to sign a contract with Manager 𝂃's security firm for the construction of the Safe House project. The project involved over 80 million yuan, and even after deducting the initial payment of several million, there remained more than 70 million yuan in unpaid fees. Thus, after the contract was signed, Yang Ling's shell company, which had no profit or assets, instantly accrued over 70 million yuan in debt. This debt would soon become Lin Ying's. Yang Ling said to Manager 𝂃, "Give me 3 days. In 3 days, I'll transfer all the remaining payment to you at this place. As for the warranty deposit, you mentioned transferring it in a few years. Given your excellent quality and your team's overtime work to meet the deadline, I'll even add a 10 million yuan bonus. So I'll transfer both the warranty deposit and the bonus together." Manager 𝂃 was overjoyed at these words. Waiting an extra 3 days was something he could manage. Besides, he had seen the total amount in Yang Ling's futures account. He firmly believed Yang Ling wouldn't default. Manager 𝂃 quickly said, "Just 3 more days. Company transfers do require procedures. I'll await your good news, President Yang." After parting ways with Manager 𝂃, Yang Ling stepped outside in a thick down jacket. A cold wind blew, and without a mask, he felt his skin sting like it was being cut by a knife. First came a piercing pain, then numbness. This extreme cold would persist for a long while before turning into scorching heat. Yang Ling quickly put on a cold protective mask. Large snowflakes drifted down from the sky. The city streets appeared snow-free only because the municipal systems were still. Snowplows were constantly clearing the roads. In reality, in suburban areas without plows, the snow had already piled up to 70 centimeters. Though the news was still buzzing about the snow creating new internet-famous business opportunities, many people had already frozen to death in smaller cities. This news was suppressed to avoid panic. Mainstream media barely reported it, and any mentions of deaths from cold on Weibo, WeChat, or self-media platforms were promptly blocked. Society was nearing a tipping point. The latest news reported that temperatures in many northeastern cities had plummeted to between -60 and -70 degrees Celsius. Such extreme cold was terrifying. Since last week, most northeastern cities had mandated that residents work from home. Non-essential outings were prohibited. Communities had assigned personnel to seal off residential areas with all daily necessities distributed uniformly by community volunteers. The fertile black soil plains of the Northeast, once the nation's granary, had seen all crops, potatoes, corn, rapeseed, and wheat, frozen to death after a month of continuous ultra-low temperatures. The relevant national departments had activated emergency plans. It was certain that the Northeast would have no harvest this year. In fact, this was true not only for the Northeast, but for the entire country and the world. Early summer was usually the best time for planting rice in central, southern, and southwestern regions. However, the continuous cold had killed all the newly sown seedlings. Thus, the state had begun releasing reserve grain. While southern cities were still unaware, northern cities had already started supplying. Yang Ling looked up at the falling snow, took out his phone, opened WeChat, and tapped on Lin Ying's profile. She had been contacting him, especially after receiving his credit card. She went on a shopping spree for her favorite bags and indulged in life. Lin Ying had marked Yang Ling as a wealthy diamond bachelor and made him her primary target. With Yang Ling's money, her other backups seemed utterly unappealing. Yet Yang Ling hadn't replied to her messages recently. Now was the time to respond. Just then Lin Ying sent another message. "Yang Ling, will you treat me to dinner tonight? It's so cold. Let's have hot pot." Yang Ling replied, "Okay." Upon receiving his message, Lin Ying was overjoyed. She knew Yang Ling liked her deep down. A man chasing a woman is like climbing a wall. A woman chasing a man is like tearing through gauze. She replied, "I'm at Lihu Tianju. It's freezing. Can you come pick me up?" Yang Ling replied, "Okay." A luxury car was indeed a luxury car. Even at -20 to 30 degrees Celsius, the Bentley started without issue. In contrast, the electric vehicles that dominated 90% of the market had all broken down. During this period, many old gasoline cars from 2 or 3 decades ago were being pulled out and running smoothly in the low temperatures. Ling dressed adorably today. Through her recent observations, she believed Ling still preferred her cute student-like appearance from before. So she wore a schoolgirl outfit again and didn't even bring a luxury bag. The two went to a commercial plaza in the city center and found a decent hot pot restaurant. In the heavy snow, few people ate Chinese food, most opted for hot pot. Ying's voice was syrupy sweet. I've been thinking a lot lately. I feel I truly neglected your feelings before. She flashed a sweet smile, casting flirtatious glances at Ling. Ling, I think we can get to know each other again. This time Ling didn't reject her looks. Instead, he pretended to be earnest and asked Ling, don't you think we're both getting on in years? I've been starting a business recently doing some trading, and I've made quite a bit of money. A man should settle down before achieving career success. You know how I feel about you. In the past, you always ignored me. I think it was my fault, not yours. Ling took a sip of water to suppress his nausea. Saying such things nearly made him vomit. I didn't do my best, and I let you down so you didn't want to be with me. Now that my career is somewhat successful, would you be willing to be with me? Ling looked at Ling with the same infatuated, honest expression as before. This expression pleased Ling immensely. She felt their old dynamic was back. The familiar simp and backup were here again. Ying's pride was restored. She feigned modesty and said, I'm glad to see you've matured and have your own career. We were college classmates and have known each other for so long. We know each other inside out. You say you want to marry me. What are you planning to offer? Ying's true colors showed. Ling pretended to be excited and anxious. I have capability. He pulled out the agreement for company equity and legal representative transfer. This is the company I started, involved in foreign trade, construction, and futures. It already has over 30 employees. If you're willing, I can transfer all the equity and the legal representative role to you. Ling deliberately showed Ling his phone, displaying his futures account. Seeing the countless zeros, amounting to at least hundreds of millions, her heart raced with joy. She knew Ling was rich, but not this rich. Moreover, the securities firm for this account was the largest in the country. To prevent Ling from using a fake image or software, Ling downloaded the firm's app on her own phone and logged in with the account and password he gave. Indeed, it showed that much money. This time Ling fully believed Ling. She thought that if she signed the transfer agreement, she would become a billionaire. Ling's goal was to marry her. But Ling wasn't that naive. She asked detailed questions about the company's operations. Ling was well prepared. He even produced the company's financial statements, which were of course impeccable. His final statement completely broke Ying's defenses. I was planning to hire a professional manager with an annual salary of 3 million yuan. Since you studied finance and accounting, you can be the company's legal representative, general manager, and chairman. Your annual salary will be 3 million, so I won't need to hire anyone else. Ling swallowed hard. She immediately took the pen, signed her name, and stamped her seal. Is the salary paid at the beginning or end of the month? Ling smiled and said, at the beginning of the month. It's only a few days away. What's mine is yours. Even though you just signed the agreement and just started, I'll pay you the full salary next month. Ling was ecstatic, but still feigned restraint. You have to treat me well from now on. She ate the hot pot with great. She even kept putting food on Ling's plate. Ling, however, felt nauseous while eating. After the meal, Ling invited him to a hot spring hotel. She said how wonderful it would be to soak in a hot spring in such snowy weather. In the past, Ling would have agreed immediately. But now he knew Ling was like a public restroom. How could he soak in a hot spring with one? Ling said earnestly, I have a very important business contract to negotiate the day after tomorrow. Since you're the general manager, chairman, and legal representative, I'd like to bring you along. I'll gradually hand over the company's business to you. I have other ventures to attend to, so I need you to help share the load. Tonight, I have to prepare the negotiation materials thoroughly. I'll email them to you tomorrow morning. Please take a look. Ling spoke very sincerely. Ling took it to heart. A woman cares most about what she lacks. What Ling lacked most wasn't a man, but the ability to earn money independently. She envied not wealthy men, but women who could run their own businesses and command the business world. Hearing Ling mention a major deal and that he wanted to bring her along, Ling began fantasizing about herself as a poised, commanding businesswoman. She quickly agreed, okay, remember to send me the relevant details. I'll study them carefully. Go home early and rest tonight. Take care of your health. This famed concern was of course built on money. Having survived the apocalypse, Ling was immune to it. After dropping Ling off, he politely declined her advances. He took one last look at the outside world, stored the Bentley in his virtual space, and entered the safe house. He didn't plan to leave again anytime soon. If his instincts were correct, in 4 or 5 days the temperature would plummet again to -50 or 60 degrees Celsius. Jiangzhou would activate emergency plans. All companies and schools would be ordered to close, and everyone would have to stay indoors. Government and community volunteers would take over all residential areas. Residents would not be allowed to leave their homes. Essential supplies would be delivered by volunteers. when the government issued this notice. Panic would grip the public, leading to a mad rush on supermarkets and markets for food. Prices would skyrocket, but it would all be too late. 3 days later, Ling contacted manager �13, claiming he was out of town. He said the company's general manager and legal representative would settle the project's remaining payment. Manager �13 understood that a boss like Ling had many things to handle. On that day at the Bulgari Western restaurant, Ling, dressed solemnly in a business suit and high heels with light makeup, arrived at the restaurant as instructed by Ling. There she would join Ling to negotiate a major deal with a partner. She felt both anticipation and nervousness. Upon arriving, she took a selfie and posted it on her Moments with the caption, "Hope today's cooperation goes smoothly." She was portraying herself as a successful businesswoman. Ling had already sent Lin Ying's photo to manager �13. When manager �13 saw Lin Ying, he quickly waved. "President Lin, over here." Hearing herself called President Lin filled her with immense satisfaction. Lin Ying walked over gracefully and sat down elegantly. Manager �13 had already ordered 2 cups of coffee. After taking a sip, she said, "President Yang will be here soon. Please wait a moment." Manager �13 found this strange. "Didn't President Yang say he wasn't coming and asked me to discuss things with you?" "Huh." Lin Ying was bewildered. She quickly sent Ling a WeChat message. He replied, "I have another business to attend to. Handle this for me first. Just follow the materials I sent." With Ling's reply, Lin Ying felt more confident. She nodded and said, "President Yang is busy today, so I'll represent �13 company in this discussion." Manager �13 nodded and took out the contract for the safe house construction with �13 company. "President Lin, it's nothing complicated. The remaining payment plus the bonus totals 84.23 million yuan. Please arrange the payment." Lin Ying, what? Manager �13 thought Lin Ying hadn't heard him clearly, so he repeated himself, "It's about the safe house I built for your company. There's still a balance of over 800 to be paid. Please settle it." Didn't General Yang mention using it for tax deductions? That's why we signed the contract under the company's name. He should have informed you about this. Manager �13 cheerfully produced the contract and the pending invoice. "Please verify this, President Lin. If everything's in order, kindly make the payment as soon as possible." Lin Ying suddenly had a strong premonition that she might have been set up. She quickly grabbed the invoice for a look. Good heavens, a wave of dizziness washed over her. The total bill amounted to over 80 million, and it had to be paid under the name of 𝂃 Corporation. Seeing Lin Ying's tense and incredulous expression, Manager 𝂃 also sensed something was terribly wrong. He hurriedly asked, "Did General Yang brief you on this matter?" Lin Ying pulled out her phone to call Ling. The call connected quickly. Lin Ying immediately reported the situation to Ling in the fastest possible words. "What are you doing? Why aren't you here? Didn't you say there was a big deal to discuss? Why am I here to pay the balance? How can I pay over 80 million? The company account doesn't have that much money." Hearing Lin Ying's words, Manager 𝂃 grew anxious. He quickly spoke into the phone. "General Yang, don't screw me over." Ling was already in the safe house, soaking in the bathtub with the electric heater set to a comfortable 27 degrees. Outside, the temperature was -30 degrees, with snowflakes falling. Inside, it was as warm and pleasant as a spring day. Ling chuckled and said, "Manager 𝂃, why would I screw you over? The company's legal representative, board chairperson, and general manager is the lady opposite you, Ms. Lin Ying. All outstanding payments are to be made by Ms. Lin Ying on behalf of the company. If you have any issues, just take them up with her. I'm on a business trip out of town. Alright, that's it. I'm hanging up." Since Lin Ying had put the call on speaker, both of them heard Ling's words. Ling had 2 purposes for doing this. First, to exact a harsh revenge on Lin Ying, ensuring this green tea BTCH wouldn't have a moment's peace before the apocalypse. Second, to test whether his safe house was truly secure. If Manager 𝂃 couldn't get the money from Lin Ying, he would likely use extreme measures to harass her. On the other hand, he would definitely come to the safe house to demand payment from Ling. If the safe house was as secure and impenetrable as Manager 𝂃 had claimed during construction, then no matter what methods Manager 𝂃 used, he wouldn't be able to break in. Of course, if the safe house was breached, Ling would have grounds to claim it was unsafe, either demanding a redo or refusing to pay the project fee. In any case, Ling's strategy was an access.𝑃 three-birds plan. After hanging up, Lin Ying and Manager 𝂃 stared at each other in dismay. Manager 𝂃 said urgently, "You have to pay the balance. We've advanced tens of millions. Don't you dare renege." Lin Ying was truly at a loss. She never imagined that her dream of being a wealthy woman and a strong business leader wouldn't even last a day before being sabotaged by Ling. She stood up frantically to leave. "Whoever owes you money, go ask them. Why are you asking me?" Lin Ying cursed Ling 100 times in her mind. She resolved to go find him and confront him immediately. Manager 𝂃 grabbed Lin Ying's arm. "What, you think you can wriggle out of this?" Lin Ying said anxiously, "We've both been played by Ling. He only made me the company's legal representative, chairperson, and general manager yesterday. I have no idea what transactions you two had before that. If you have a problem, take it up with him, not me." Manager 𝂃 said angrily, "Don't try to play tricks with me. I signed a contract with the company, so am asking the company for the money. My contract is with Failing Corporation and you are its chairperson, general manager, and legal representative. I don't care who else you want to blame. With that, Manager Feng signaled his assistant. Several security guards quickly got out of a commercial vehicle outside and surrounded Ling. You're not leaving until you give me a satisfactory answer today. Manager Feng was in the security business and his company operated globally. Such a global security firm naturally had its own armed personnel to protect itself. Ling had even acquired some firearms and ammunition from Manager Feng. Of course, these were not part of the signed contract, but paid in cash through special channels. Ling had never seen such a situation before. She was so frightened that her legs went weak and she was on the verge of tears. The cafe manager, seeing the commotion and fearing trouble, quickly called the police. The police arrived shortly. During this time, heavy snow and plummeting temperatures had led to many safety incidents, so police were patrolling major roads and commercial areas. While the police mediated the dispute with Ling and Manager Feng, each insisting on their own version, the cafe's TV suddenly broadcast an urgent bulletin. The urgent bulletin started with a very low volume, but it interrupted the cafe's usual soft programming abruptly. Many people's phones also buzzed with emergency text messages. A cafe staff member quickly turned up the TV volume to maximum. The TV screen showed blue background with white text, no anchor visible, only the anchor's voice. Although there was no image of the anchor, everyone could sense from her voice that she was struggling to control her fear, trying to keep her tone calm. But her voice trembled slightly. The blue screen with white text read as follows. Emergency notice. Emergency notice. According to the Central Meteorological Observatory, a cold wave will rapidly move south from Siberia, expected to reach our national borders in half an hour Hunan province, in half a day Jiangnan province in 1 day, and cover the entire country in 1.5 days. This cold wave is unlike any before. Extremely high wind speeds, and a sharp drop in temperature. At that time, temperatures across most of the country will fall to -50°C. There will also be strong winds and heavy blizzards. A nationwide red alert for severe low temperatures and heavy blizzards will be activated. Citizens are urged to return home immediately, close doors and windows. Also, please do not panic, buy supplies. The cold wave is expected to end after 1 week. The rest of the broadcast faded into the background. It mainly required all shops to close and public facilities like hospitals and nursing homes that hadn't closed earlier to immediately implement lockdown management. Later, it also urged people not to hoard supplies, stating that city inventories were sufficient and the cold wave would pass in a week. The police at the scene also received urgent orders to return to their stations immediately unless dealing with major criminal cases. Relevant departments were to hold emergency meetings to deploy measures against the cold and blizzards. Compared to such a nationwide sudden disaster, the financial dispute between Ling and Manager Feng seemed utterly insignificant. Manager Feng also received a call. His wife and child were shopping at Central Mall. Many shoppers, upon hearing the emergency news, frantically began hoarding supplies. A week of blizzards meant all stores. In modern society, hardly any household stocks more than a week's worth of food beyond rice or flour. So the entire mall descended into chaos. People scrambled to grab supplies while store employees who also had families and lives panicked as well. Some employees didn't even bother to ring up customers' purchases, instead rushing to grab supplies for themselves. This threw the entire city into disorder. Hoarding turned into looting. Manager Feng's wife and child were terrified by the scene. The child was even knocked down and injured in the crowd. So Manager Feng's wife urgently called him to come pick them up. Compared to his family, Ling no longer mattered. Manager Feng threw a harsh warning at Ling. They'll deal with you later. Ling was also terrified. She quickly tried to hail a taxi to go home, but she couldn't find a taxi or a ride-sharing car. Those drivers had also rushed to malls or markets to hoard supplies. Large supermarkets were in complete disarray. No one was manning the registers. People first headed for cooking oil, rice, and supplies of rice flour and oil that would normally last a month or two were sold out within an hour. After grabbing those, people rushed for instant noodles, pasta, and compressed biscuits. Within 2 hours, everything edible was completely cleared out. Small grocery stores, fruit shops, and snack outlets also experienced looting. Many shop owners hurriedly closed their doors. Some even loaded their remaining stock into vehicles and rushed home. Rumors spread wildly through the streets. Some said the extreme cold would last half a year, others claimed it would persist for a whole year. In short, everyone believed they needed to stockpile enough supplies, or they'd have nothing to eat. The entire city descended into chaos within an hour. However, soon after the emergency meetings, police and volunteers deployed to various commercial areas, supermarkets, and markets. They quickly restored order, controlling or arresting looters. The Jiangzhou city government also held an immediate press conference. They stated that the extreme cold was just a weather event and the government's request for people to stay home was for their safety. It didn't mean they were forbidden from going out. When it was safe, people could still go out and purchase supplies. Finally, the government decided that several major supermarkets in Jiangzhou would operate from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. to ensure the supply of goods. After these measures, the panic buying in Jiangzhou temporarily subsided. But that night, every resident of Jiangzhou was destined to stay awake. Ling first returned home, then checked social media. WeChat moments, Xiaohongshu, and Weibo, all filled with news about the extreme cold and difficulty in getting supplies. She hurried out to buy supplies herself. She found that all stores were already closed. Even the few that remained open had their goods completely cleared out or sold out. Outside, the wind was bitingly cold with temperatures dropping more than 5 degrees from yesterday. Ling checked her phone. The outdoor temperature had reached minus 45 degrees. The sky was dark and gloomy. Even in a heavy winter coat, she felt as if her whole body was soaked in icy snow water with not a trace of warmth. Suddenly, a blizzard began. The snow on the roads piled up quickly, and the snow-clearing vehicles were nowhere to be seen. Although it was only 4 p.m., the streets were empty with not a soul in sight. Ling was hungry and wanted to find a place to eat, but all the restaurants were closed. She tried to hail a taxi to go home, but there were none. She was terrified. She called Ling repeatedly, but he didn't answer. Left with no choice, she had to trudge through the snow. A 1-kilometer journey took her a full hour and a half. After closing the door behind her, Ling took out instant noodles and a sausage from the fridge. She took a few bites, but lost her appetite. Mostly she was furious with Ling, so she tossed the noodles and sausage aside. Meanwhile, in the safe house, Ling lounged on the sofa watching TV and scrolling through his phone. All the trending topics on Weibo were about the extreme cold. Damn, could this be the apocalypse? Haha, the guy above reads too much sci-fi. How could it be the apocalypse? It's just extreme weather. It happens every year. Remember the blizzard in Guangzhou a few years ago? All trains stopped. It passed in a few weeks. Wow, no school. So happy. Hope the extreme cold lasts longer. Seeing such messages, Ling smirked. Others discussed whether they had managed to stock up. Did you guys get supplies? My mom actually bought 100 pounds of rice. I can't believe it. I still remember when she hoarded salt over the Japanese nuclear radiation scare 50 years ago, and we still haven't finished it. Haha, you guys can slowly eat that rice until it gets infested with bugs. I didn't hoard anything. Every time, there's a rumor people hoard stuff only to let it rot. I don't get why you people are so foolish. The government said supermarkets are open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. so you can buy what you need. Plus, our country's warehouses are well stocked. Seeing such messages, Ling smirked. The peaceful days were over. The apocalypse had arrived. Seeing such messages, Ling smirked. The peaceful days were over. The apocalypse had arrived. July 25th, 2074, at 6 in the morning. The radiant sunlight filtered through the virtual window early, rousing Ling from his slumber. It was the first ray of sunshine in half a month. The blizzard from the previous night had ceased. Xiaoling, play today's news. Xiaoling was the name Ling had given to the artificial intelligence system derived from the house's supercomputer. It enabled full smart home control, offering great convenience. Ling stretched lazily in bed, dressing slowly. Even though it might be minus 30 or 40 degrees outside, inside the house, it was always a constant 27 or 8 degrees. Thus his attire was quite light. The news anchor's voice came through, trembling with excitement. Ling caught the gist. The nationwide blizzard had stopped, and the sun was shining everywhere. Experts, upon witnessing this, analyzed the meteorological data through the night and reached a consensus. The extreme cold across the nation, and even the globe, would end today. The weather would gradually warm and return to normal. Hearing this, Ling scoffed. Xiaoling, turn off the news and play some soothing music. Indeed, the sun was out today. But if you stepped outside, you would find that the sun offered no warmth, only a biting cold. In the post-apocalyptic era of a previous life, such a sun was called a cold sun. It contrasted sharply with the extreme heat of a blazing sun. The appearance of a cold sun was far from good news. It meant that a torrential downpour was inevitable that day, with a snowfall of unprecedented magnitude. The temperature would plummet rapidly. After a refreshing shower, Ling began preparing his breakfast. His cold storage room was stocked with abundant food. In the apocalypse, time was the least scarce resource. Ling took out a piece of beef tendon along with tomatoes and onions. Using a machine, he ground the beef into mince, then stir-fried it with onions and tomatoes. He used this mixture as a topping for a serving of yellow noodles. The coffee machine ground premium coffee beans into powder, extracted the brew, and frothed milk to make a cappuccino. This delightful fusion breakfast left him feeling invigorated. After finishing, Ling sat before the supercomputer's massive screen and took out his phone. Xiaoling looped the surveillance footage. The enormous screen divided into 16 smaller squares, cycling through the surveillance of various locations around the Lihu district house. As expected, the foolish citizens, heeding the experts' nonsense, truly believed that the appearance of the sun signaled the end of the cold season. They thought a normal summer was imminent. Residents who hadn't left their homes for 2 days cheered joyfully. They ventured out in small groups, some heading to the supermarket to stock up, just in case. Others took their children or dogs for a walk. After all, people were going stir-crazy, let alone the animals. Holy crap, the sun's finally out. Summer's coming. A chubby man from Building 76, seeing the sun, even ran out in a short-sleeved shirt. The moment he stepped outside, he nearly froze to death and hurried back to change into a down jacket. Damn it, why is it still so cold, even with the sun out? An elderly man from Building 77, where Ling lived, came out and said to the chubby man, young man, you don't understand. It doesn't get cold when it snows, but when the snow melts. The sun will melt the snow and the temperature will drop another 5 or 6 degrees. The chubby man didn't care for the old man's traditional wisdom. He believed in science. He took off his gloves and faced the sun, trying to feel its warmth. This only deepened his confusion. In any cold winter, as long as the sun was out, you could always feel at least a hint of warmth when facing it. But this time the chubby man not only felt no warmth, but seemed to experience an even colder temperature when turning toward the sun. He muttered another curse. What the hell kind of sun is this? Not a bit of warmth. Just then a woman on the 3rd floor opened her window and leaned out. Here, Pang, go buy some rice. We've got nothing to eat at home. The chubby man and his wife were both wage earners who had scrimped and saved for ages to afford a place in 𝑃. They were usually busy with work, eating takeout at the office. They never had the habit of stocking rice, oil, or meat at home. Most of what they stored were snacks and cola. Even during the coldest days, the government organized snow removal on roads, and the city needed to function, so fast food joints and delivery drivers were still around. But the sudden temperature drop and blizzard had trapped them at home for 2 days. They had devoured all the cola and snacks. The chubby man had even lost several pounds. So his wife was frantic for him to go buy rice and meat. The time had reached 1130 with the sun nearly at its zenith. More people were out in the neighborhood, but most were heading out for shopping. Ling scrolled through his social media feeds. Most posts complained about feeling no warmth from the sun despite its presence. Others griped that while supermarkets were open, the uncleared snow made walking difficult and cars were unusable, forcing them to go on foot. Even more complained about the long queues at supermarkets policed by officers and volunteers preventing looting. Major supermarkets in Jiangzhou City, Sam's Yonghui Pengdonglai, were packed with lines stretching at least a kilometer outside. The sun offered no warmth and the cold wind made everyone shiver. Ling checked the time. It was almost noon. Those still outside might not make it home in another half hour. Ling's phone rang. It was Manager Feng. Ling, what the hell do you mean? Why haven't you paid the final installment? Ling didn't want to answer such calls. But with the mindset that causing trouble for Ling was his entertainment, he replied cheerfully, Manager Feng, how haven't I paid? I signed the contract with my company, and I sent the legal representative to you. He can pay you. Manager Feng cursed loudly. You're full of crap. Where did you find some girl to be the legal representative? She doesn't know a thing. You have to give me the money. I know you're at home. I'm in the elevator, now coming to your door. Sure enough, soon Ling saw Manager Feng and 5 thugs on the surveillance coming to collect the debt. This delighted Ling. He just wanted to test the safety room's effectiveness. If the project manager who installed it couldn't even break in, then it was truly secure. Upon reaching the 9th floor, Manager Feng pounded on the door frantically, even trying to crack the entry code. But after struggling for ages, he was just drenched in sweat with no results. The safety room's walls were 20 centimeters thick. Even if Manager Feng hammered the door or walls with a sledgehammer, Ling inside heard nothing. Ling smirked. It seemed Manager Feng had spoken the truth. The safety room was indeed impenetrable. Impressed by Feng's honesty and the quality work, Ling decided to help him out. He said from inside, Manager Feng, if you want the money, I suggest you find Ling. She lives at Building 14, Unit 2, Room 1308. Of course, before that, I'd advise you to buy some food at the... Ling's voice wasn't loud, but the house's supercomputer automatically detected he was speaking to someone outside. It then broadcast his voice through the microphone system. Ling, screw you. After half an hour of struggle, Manager Feng was drenched in sweat, and the sledgehammer hadn't even scratched the alloy wall. Furious, but unable to open the safety room, he shouted, I don't believe you'll hide in there forever. Well, Manager Feng wasn't wrong. Until the chaos outside fully subsided, Ling really wouldn't come out. Exhausted from the futile effort, Manager Feng reluctantly headed to Lin Ying's place as directed. Ling lounged lazily on the sofa. Xiaoling switched the surveillance to Building 14, Unit 2, Room 1308. A hidden camera faced Lin Ying's room. Ling had Manager Feng install cameras on main roads and building corridors, but he specifically placed one opposite Lin Ying's place. This allowed him a clear view of what happened there. Sure enough, Manager Feng, now wiser, posed as a property manager to knock on Lin Ying's door. Lin Ying was terrified when she saw him. How did you get here? Without a word, Manager Feng and his men sat down on the living. The door was still open and Ling could see everything. Stop your nonsense. Pay up now. Lin Ying was frightened. I've told you clearly. Ling owes you the money, not me. Shut up. If you don't pay, we have ways to deal with you. This apartment is worth millions, right? Lin Ying said tearfully, I rented this place. The landlord is in Shanghai. After graduating, Ling never held a job for more than 3 months. But she was vain and craved a lavish lifestyle. That's why she rented such a nice apartment funded by her admirers. Hearing this, manager 𝂃 was furious. They ransacked the place, finding all her luxury goods and jewelry. Ling screamed and cried, "You can't take these. Ling owes you, not me." Manager 𝂃 slapped her hard across the face. "Shut up." Ling was stunned into silence, too scared to cry. Through the high-definition camera, Ling felt immense satisfaction. Ling was a despicable woman. This was just the beginning of her punishment. Thinking of what Ling had done to him in his past life, Ling even felt the slap was too light. Manager 𝂃 didn't care anything to recover the debt. These luxury items were worth at least several $100,000, but compared to the over $70 million in project fees and the $10 million reward Ling had promised, it was still far off. They took everything valuable, the rest wasn't worth hauling away in this cold weather. Panting, Manager 𝂃 pointed at Ling on the floor. "He'll give you 3 days to get the money, or he'll hound you every day. If you don't pay, he'll sell you to the black market. Your heart, kidneys, liver, all worth money. Stay in line if you want to live." Manager 𝂃 was at his wit's end. Ling was holed up in his safety room. He had checked and found Ling had no other assets, only the safety room apartment. Unable to get money from Ling, he settled for Ling. Just as he was about to leave, a scream came from downstairs, followed by cries of pain. Manager 𝂃 rushed to the balcony and looked down. The so-called sun had suddenly disappeared. In its place were fierce winds and heavy snow. The wind was at least force 10 and the snowflakes were as big as goose feathers, falling rapidly. Snow piled up quickly. People walking below were scattered by the gale, scrambling to get home. The experts claimed that the sun was out and summer would return soon was clearly nonsense. This heavy snow and extreme cold might last for months, maybe even a year or more. Thinking of his wife and child at home, and recalling Ling's advice to stock up, Manager 𝂃's heart raced. They had some supplies, but more was always better. He knew there was no time to go to the supermarket. The snow was too deep for driving, and this morning the supermarket had long lines. Everything was surely sold out by now. Glaring at Ling, he ordered his men to pack all the food from her kitchen, fridge, and pantry. Then they hurried off to get home before the snow made driving impossible. Ling stared at her empty apartment, stunned. The heavy snow outside grew increasingly fierce. The shrubs in the green belt downstairs were completely buried under the snow. Ling had originally planned to go to the supermarket to buy some food when the sun came out. With this kind of weather, there was simply no way to go out. Not only that, but the few remaining provisions in the house had also been snatched. Still shaken, Ling hurriedly closed the security door tightly and locked it from the inside. Lihu Tianju was an upscale residential complex. Even the cheapest elevator apartments used all steel security doors. Moreover, the security level was extremely high. Except for professional locksmiths registered with the police station, no one could open the security door, whether by brute force or lockpicking techniques. Feeling a sense of safety, Ling quickly searched for all the food in the house. Fortunately, some flour noodles and rice were stored in the cabinets under the kitchen counter, and some ham, sausages, and steak were hidden at the back of the freezer, undiscovered by Manager 𝂃 and the others. Ling was seething with hatred for Ling. He had to find a way to take revenge. The surveillance camera captured Ling closing the door. There was nothing interesting to see after that. Ling leisurely lay down on the living room sofa. The large screen was playing a local action movie. The temperature in the room remained at 27 degrees. It was warm and comfortable. Ling took out his phone again. Sure enough, on social media platforms like Douyin, Weibo, Xiaohongshu, and WeChat Moments, various tragedies that had occurred today were already being reported. Among them, on the local trending topics of Weibo, a blogger had posted a video. The video showed a woman who had just rushed to buy some supplies from the supermarket. As she left the supermarket and prepared to head home, the weather suddenly changed drastically. A fierce blizzard descended without warning. The woman was blown to the ground by the gale, and then crushed to death by a falling billboard blown over by the wind. There were several other videos. For instance, a couple drove out for an emergency supply run. After buying supplies and getting ready to return home, they found their car deeply stuck in the snow. Just as they were about to try shoveling the snow away to drive off, they unexpectedly fell into a deep snow pit. Due to the accumulated snow, you could never tell whether the ground beneath you was a pit or solid ground. At first, the couple didn't think it was a big deal and tried to climb out of the snow pit. Unexpectedly, the more they struggled, the deeper they sank. Finally, the two panicked and screamed for help from nearby people. The neighbors were all frantically rushing to grab supplies and get home. No one dared to take the risk. A kind-hearted citizen quickly called the police. However, under the raging blizzard, it was extremely difficult for the police to. After waiting for an hour, the police finally arrived at the scene, trudging through the snow with difficulty, using equipment like sleds. But the couple had already frozen to death. To be precise, this was only the first day of the apocalypse. Extreme weather had already caused casualties, and government administration was beginning to lose control. The relentless snow had rendered snowplows useless. Many so-called community volunteers were also panicking and scrambling to hoard food for their own survival. They had no intention of continuing as volunteers. Ling opened WeChat again. Messages were constantly popping up in group chats. Among them, the owners group for Building 77 of 𝓃 already had 99 unread messages. The owner of Unit 3, Apartment 702, Building 77 message, "Dear neighbors, did any of you go out to buy supplies today?" Unit 2, Apartment 401 replied, "I didn't go out. I thought the weather would gradually warm up. I didn't expect the sun to only last half a day. Just as I was about to leave, it suddenly started snowing heavily, so I didn't dare to go." Unit 3, Apartment 202 said, "My neighbor across the hall went out to buy supplies, but hasn't come back yet. The snow outside is so heavy the accumulation is almost a meter deep. I don't know if they can make it back." At this moment, Old Lady Sue, who lived below Ling, spoke up. "Old Lady Sue messaged you young people, you basically never cook at home, so of course you have no food." Old Lady Sue continued, "Unlike people our age, we think takeout is unhygienic and cook at home every day. So we have at least some food stored up." After sending these two messages, Old Lady Sue also sent a smug emoji. Then she posted a photo. The photo showed Old Lady Sue's large double-door refrigerator. It was fully stocked. It contained not only ready-made wontons, dumplings, and steamed buns, but also various frozen beef, chicken, and pork. Old Lady Sue added somewhat triumphantly, "Actually, not being able to go out during the blizzard isn't so bad. People really should take some time to rest and recuperate at home." Of course, Old Lady Sue sent these messages to show off, as human happiness often stems from comparison and the envy. The owners group for Building 77, with over 100 members, instantly fell silent. Everyone was certainly envious. After all, most residents of this building were young people who usually ate out or ordered takeout and never stockpiled food. Even if they occasionally cooked at home and bought small amounts of rice flour buns and meat, it was nothing compared to Old Lady Sue's stockpile. Old Lady Sue had shown off so much food. Even if the blizzard continued for another month or two, she wouldn't have a problem eating at home. But the young people were in trouble. Everyone was extremely envious. A young person spoke up in the group, "We should still trust the government. Remember during the mass crisis a few years ago, they had everyone stay home for over a month. In the end, the government and community arranged for volunteers to deliver supplies to our doors. If you want to buy things, you can also pay volunteers to do it for you." A user from Unit 4, Apartment 1102 also said, "Exactly, we need to trust the government. Haven't you seen the news lately? The news broadcast said that Jiangzhou City's material reserves are very abundant. There's no shortage of rice, oil, flour, meat, eggs, etc. Just stay home peacefully and treat it as a time for rest and recuperation." After Apartment 1102's resident said this, it was met with agreement from many. "Exactly, we should trust the government." Many people left comments saying this. Seeing that her boasting hadn't worked, Old Lady Sue added, "Trusting the government is a given, but we should still be prepared for any eventuality. Who can predict unexpected situations?" The owners group started arguing again. Ling chuckled at the group messages. These people were celebrating too early. Just then, the property management staff, who managed the group chat, everyone urgently messaging, "Urgent notice, urgent notice. We are now recruiting 4 volunteers for each building in 𝓃. Volunteers need to cooperate with the community grid administrators to deliver supplies door to door. Interested owners, please sign up as soon as possible. The deadline is 6 p.m. tonight." After the property management said this, the group buzzed with discussion again. Everyone was delighted. "See, I told you the government wouldn't abandon us. Look, the snow is so heavy we can't even go out, and the government is recruiting volunteers to deliver supplies to our doors." While feeling relieved, they started discussing the second issue: who would be the volunteers? Being a volunteer was no easy task. There was no pay, and worst of all, it was exhausting. During the mass crisis, volunteers worked around the clock. Building 77 had 6 units with over 100 residents. Volunteers needed to go with the property management staff to the city's reserve warehouse to get supplies and then deliver them door to door. It was a tough job. Plus, with the heavy snow and cold outside, hardly anyone was willing to do it. 𝓃 was the best residential area in Jiangzhou City. Most residents, including tenants, were used to a life of comfort and had never done such manual labor. Moreover, the news these days was very shocking, with many people dying in the snowstorm. In such extreme weather, no one was willing to risk their life to be a volunteer. Soon the owners group was buzzing with discussion. "The volunteers should be your property management staff. We pay hundreds or thousands in management fees every month. Now that something's happened, you want us to be volunteers? What kind of nonsense is that?" Once someone started this, many owners began criticizing the property management. "Exactly. If we have to be volunteers, then what are we paying management fees for?" Seeing the owners chattering away, the property management staff helplessly replied with a wry smile emoji, "Our property management team is limited in number. Now the government requires us to go to the designated warehouse at the sub-district office to transport supplies. The snow is over a meter deep, cars are useless, we can only rely on manpower. These past few days, our property management staff have been walking to the supply point using simple homemade boards to transport supplies. It takes several hours round trip, and we can only carry a little, not enough to distribute. We hope everyone can understand. We need to work together to get through this difficult time. The property management everyone again, and posted a prepared image saying to thank the owners for their cooperation. Our company has decided to waive 1 year of management fees for everyone and 3 years for volunteers. We hope everyone can come out and help. What the property management said made sense, and everyone knew the situation was indeed like this. The snow on the city roads was already over a meter or even 2 meters deep. Snowplows were trapped in the snow. Relying on manpower to clear the snow was basically impossible. Going out could only be done on foot. And walking also carried the risk of falling into snow pits. So everyone was making simple wooden boards to increase their contact area with the snow and reduce the chance of falling into a pit. 𝓃 was an upscale residential complex. One characteristic of upscale complexes is that they are far from the city center and also far from the community service stations. The distance from 𝓃 to the nearest Binjiang community was 4 kilometers. Normally driving this distance took only about 10 minutes. But walking on the thick snow would take at least 1 or 2 hours. Understanding the situation was one thing, but actually volunteering was another. Unwilling, everyone could only remain silent. At this moment, an owner from the second floor Ling and said, "We are all retired with old bones and stiff legs, not very mobile. If we become volunteers, wouldn't we just be delaying things? Isn't there a new owner on the 9th floor of Unit 1? He's quite young. I think it would be more reasonable for this owner to be a volunteer." Once this old man spoke, many other owners chimed in agreement. Exactly, the owner on the 9th floor is young, looks healthy, and just moved to 𝓃. He should contribute to us old owners. Many people Ling. Seeing this message, Ling couldn't help but laugh out loud. These old bastards, not only were they unwilling themselves, but they were also dragging him into it. Ling couldn't be bothered to reply. But what Ling didn't expect was that Aunt Sue from downstairs also Ling and said, "I agree with everyone. Volunteer work should be done by young people. Ling is young, strong, and quick-witted. You should be the volunteer." Ling sneered. This old lady Sue really does. He had helped her install the window and even given her cash, yet she was so ungrateful. Perhaps old lady Sue thought Ling had the video and was taking the opportunity to retaliate. After all, old lady Sue was now righteously echoing everyone's words. It was purely to annoy Ling, but not enough to make him angrily release the video. Ling decisively replied, "I'm not interested. Whoever wants to go can go." This panicked the property management. The staff quickly sent several more messages in the currently all roads between cities are covered by snow. The supplies stockpiled in each city are limited. Jiangzhou City has 5 districts and 12 counties with a population of 7 to 8 million. The stockpiled supplies definitely cannot meet everyone's needs. If this blizzard continues, the food in the warehouses will be completely distributed. We need to make plans early to ensure every owner in the community gets enough food. Otherwise, the consequences will be severe. What the property management said was the truth. Last night, the management of 𝓃 had held an emergency online meeting to convey and study the spirit of the higher authorities' directive. Now the entire national government and administrative institutions had collapsed. The higher authorities had issued a document requiring local self-rescue. First, meet the basic living needs of residents for these few days. Other matters would be dealt with when the weather improved. Although the document wasn't that absolute, sensitive people could already feel that this extreme weather wouldn't improve in just a month or 2, as the experts had said. But no one believed what the property management said. An owner of the property management staff and said, "We should still trust the government. It won't let us starve, right?" As soon as this was said, many owners chimed in the group. Exactly, how could the government let us starve? Everyone Ling again. "Young man, if you don't become a volunteer, you'll be the one going hungry. We old folks have some supplies at home. You young people always order takeout and have nothing to eat at home. Don't come begging us for food if you're hungry." Many echoed, "Exactly, young man, if you have no food at home, go be a volunteer." "I have food at home, so I won't bother the volunteer." Many people started morally coercing Ling. Ling chuckled and sent a photo of his lunch to the group. Ling's lunch was exceptionally sumptuous. It included not only freshly grilled steak and spaghetti, but also a bottle of red wine and sliced watermelon. Moreover, Ling was wearing short-sleeved pajamas, and the indoor temperature was steadily maintained at 27 degrees Celsius. The moment this photo appeared in the group chat, everyone was instantly stunned. Ling actually had freshly grilled steak. Hadn't all the stores been closed for a while? Besides, the beef in supermarkets had been snapped up a week or 2 ago. Where did his beef come from? The most crucial thing was the watermelon. Ling actually had watermelon. A few years ago, watermelons were very common and inexpensive, costing 2 or 3 yuan per caddy, readily available at roadside stalls. But this year, during the peak watermelon season, the weather suddenly turned extremely cold. This caused a nationwide reduction in watermelon yield. Watermelon is different from other fruits. Apples and pears can be stored in cold storage for a year and sold the next year. Once frozen, watermelon becomes completely inedible. There were no watermelons for sale in Jiangzhou City this year. Yang Ling's watermelon looked fresh. Where did his watermelon come from? Many people started tagging Yang Ling, asking which supermarket he bought the watermelon from. How come they couldn't find any watermelon in any supermarket? Yang Ling was too lazy to respond to such questions. The beef and watermelon were of course not purchased in Jiangzhou in 2074, but in Handong City in 2024. Besides beef and watermelon, Yang Ling had many other fresh supplies, including seafood, fresh milk, and more. Instead of answering about the watermelon, Yang Ling said, "You people are really naive. You still believe the government will save you. This extreme weather is not as simple as you think. Extreme weather isn't just in Jiangzhou nor nationwide, it's global." The property management staff just said that the higher authorities have told everyone to find ways to save themselves. All transportation routes between cities have been cut off. Don't you know what that means? Think about it. A few days ago when we went to the supermarket to stock up, there were still government workers maintaining order. These days there's no one to keep order. What does that indicate? It indicates that the government administrative system has collapsed and everyone is left to fend for themselves. If any of you have friends who are civil servants, you should know that the government has internally announced that this extreme weather might last 3 to 5 months, but it could more likely continue for several years or even decades. The supplies you have on hand, can they support you for a month, 2 months, half a year? Yang Ling added a smiley emoji and said, "If you don't have enough supplies at home, hurry up and become a volunteer. Volunteers will at least get a few meals, and you'll have the first chance to get allocated supplies." Sure enough, Yang Ling's words stirred the thoughts of some people in the owners group. One owner immediately messaged, "I remember. A week ago the government announced that supplies were sufficient and told us not to hoard, but my friend who is a section chief in the finance bureau actually bought several dozen caddies of rice and cooking oil." Exactly. Is there anyone in our group who works for the government? Come out and tell us the situation. Someone tagged Li Yong on the 5th floor. "Brother Yong, aren't you at the Civil Affairs Bureau? Tell us the situation." Exactly. Is there anyone in our group who works for the government? Come out and tell us the situation. Someone tagged Li Yong on the 5th floor. "Brother Yong, aren't you at the Civil Affairs Bureau? Tell us the situation." According to work discipline, Li Yong was not supposed to speak, but considering they were all neighbors and the situation was indeed dire, and he might need their help in the future, he said, "At my level, I only know that this extreme cold might last for a very long time." At this, the entire group erupted, especially some young people who had no food at home and couldn't even last 3 to 5 days, let alone 1 or 2 months. A resident on the 6th floor immediately tagged the property staff and said, I applied to be a volunteer. Especially some young people who had no food at home and couldn't even last 3 to 5 days, let alone 1 or 2 months. A resident on the 6th floor immediately tagged the property staff and said, I applied to be a volunteer. A resident from Unit 2, 4th floor spoke up, "I want shy away from being a volunteer. I've been a Red Cross volunteer before and know some first aid." 402, why are you arguing with me? I spoke first. What do you mean you spoke first? Does that make it yours? Whoever is capable should go. If you wanted to be a volunteer, why didn't you say so earlier? The group soon descended into chaos. Everyone was scrambling to become volunteers, not out of a spirit of dedication, but because Yang Ling's words had indeed made them think volunteers have priority in resource allocation. Everyone was scrambling to become volunteers, not out of a spirit of dedication, but because Yang Ling's words had indeed made them think volunteers have priority in resource allocation. Now that all connections between cities had been severed and Jiangzhou was a big city, the stockpiled supplies could only last for an unknown period. Everyone wanted to get as much as possible. The property staff had no choice but to use a WeChat mini program to have everyone draw lots. In the end, 4 owners were selected as volunteers. The 4 volunteers were very excited and assured the group, "Everyone rest assured. We will distribute the supplies fairly and impartially according to the community's requirements." Those who didn't get to be volunteers quickly started adding the volunteers as friends and currying favor. "Xiao Lu, when you get the supplies, you must remember me. I'm Aunt Wong from the 8th floor. I've even taken out the trash for your family. Xiao Lu. Brother Lu, my wife works in the same unit as you. Please prioritize me when you can. I have 2 kids at home, and we're almost out of milk powder. When you're a volunteer, please look for children's milk powder." Yang Ling turned off the messages from Building 77's owners group and looked at the main owners group of Lihu Tianju. There were over 1,000 people in it. In the owners group, people had already started asking for supplies. "Does anyone have rice? I plan to go out and buy some today, but as soon as I stepped out it started snowing heavily. Can anyone lend me a few caddies of rice? They'll pay you back when the community distributes supplies." In the owners group, people had already started asking for supplies. "Does anyone have rice? I plan to go out and buy some today, but as soon as I stepped out it started snowing heavily. Can anyone lend me a few caddies of rice? They'll pay you back when the community distributes supplies." At this moment, many people still hadn't realized the severity of the coming problems. Some were still willing to help and lend rice. Yang Ling saw that Ling was also posting in the group. Ling pretended to be a naive, pitiful young woman who had just entered society, asking everyone to lend her some supplies. Ling first posted a pitiful emoji, then said, "Dear uncles, aunties, brothers, and sisters, I just graduated and found a job. I never expected to encounter such a situation. Now I have nothing at home. Is there any brother who can spare some rice flour, cooking oil, vegetables, and meat? I would be extremely grateful. When I can buy supplies later, I will repay double." Ling is very clever, otherwise she wouldn't have been able to navigate among all kinds of men to maximize her gains. She also clearly sensed that this extreme weather would definitely not end in half a month, as the experts claimed. Ling is very clever, otherwise she wouldn't have been able to navigate among all kinds of men to maximize her gains. She also clearly sensed that this extreme weather would definitely not end in half a month, as the experts claimed. Moreover, most of the supplies in her home had been taken by Manager 𝑃 and his people. Although some food remained, it was far from enough to give Ling a sense of security, nor could it support her for a week or two. Therefore, Ling took advantage of the moment before everyone fully realized the gravity of the situation to beg for food by playing the victim. Ling was very skilled at begging for food. She changed her WeChat profile picture to a selfie, a rather sexy one. She also made all her moments public, which were filled with beautiful selfies, many of them quite enticing. Ling was very skilled at begging for food. She changed her WeChat profile picture to a selfie, a rather sexy one. She also made all her moments public, which were filled with beautiful selfies, many of them quite enticing. This made the older men fantasize, hoping to have a romantic encounter with the beautiful neighbor. The sudden extreme cold had separated many couples, and with the roads impassable, wives couldn't come to check on their husbands. So the older men started to get ideas. This made the older men fantasize, hoping to have a romantic encounter with the beautiful neighbor. The sudden extreme cold had separated many couples, and with the roads impassable, wives couldn't come to check on their husbands. So the older men started to get ideas. Sure enough, a middle-aged owner, after clicking on Ling's profile picture and browsing her moments, got an idea. He tagged Ling and said, "I have quite a bit of food at home, and I can't finish it all by myself. I can share some. I've already sent you a friend request on WeChat. Please accept it. We seem to be in the same building. Let's arrange a time, and he'll bring the food up to you." Ling replied in a sweet, coquettish tone, "Okay, I've accepted. Thank you, big brother." She added a strong hint, "I'm also home alone." This exchange made the other men in the group extremely envious. Ling replied in a sweet, coquettish tone, "Okay, I've accepted. Thank you, big brother." She added a strong hint, "I'm also home alone." This exchange made the other men in the group extremely envious. Locking the door securely in her room, Ling clicked on the profile picture of the man who had offered to bring her supplies. He was a bald, greasy-looking man in his 40s. His moments were filled with pretentious, cliché motivational articles. Ling felt a wave of disgust. But thinking about the food he could bring, she pretended to be shy and greeted the neighbor. Locking the door securely in her room, Ling clicked on the profile picture of the man who had offered to bring her supplies. He was a bald, greasy-looking man in his 40s. His moments were filled with pretentious, cliché motivational articles. Ling felt a wave of disgust. But thinking about the food he could bring, she pretended to be shy and greeted the neighbor. The man seemed eager and said, "Are you home alone? I'm free right now. How about I bring the food over to you?" Having learned from her experience with Manager 𝑃, Ling dared not open the door to let anyone in. So she gave the middle-aged man hope, while maintaining a rational refusal. "Brother Liam home alone and not feeling well, lying in bed. It's not convenient. Could you leave the things at the door? When this extreme weather is over, I will definitely come to visit you in person." Having learned from her experience with Manager 𝑃, Ling dared not open the door to let anyone in. So she gave the middle-aged man hope, while maintaining a rational refusal. "Brother Liam home alone and not feeling well, lying in bed. It's not convenient. Could you leave the things at the door? When this extreme weather is over, I will definitely come to visit you in person." Having learned from her experience with Manager 𝑃, Ling dared not open the door to let anyone in. So she gave the middle-aged man hope, while maintaining a rational refusal. "Brother Liam home alone and not feeling well, lying in bed. It's not convenient. Could you leave the things at the door? When this extreme weather is over, I will definitely come to visit you in person." Ling also sent a photo of herself lying in bed, taken from a flattering angle that revealed her fair skin. It was very enticing. The middle-aged man was infatuated and delighted. Ling also sent a photo of herself lying in bed, taken from a flattering angle that revealed her fair skin. It was very enticing. The middle-aged man was infatuated and delighted. He quickly grabbed a bag of rice, a jug of cooking oil, a few caddies of frozen meat, and some vegetables from his home. Just as he was about to deliver them, he saw Ling's message that she was sick and couldn't open the door. The middle-aged man hurriedly rummaged through his cabinets, packed some common household medicines, and brought them along. He quickly grabbed a bag of rice, a jug of cooking oil, a few caddies of frozen meat, and some vegetables from his home. Just as he was about to deliver them, he saw Ling's message that she was sick and couldn't open the door. The middle-aged man hurriedly rummaged through his cabinets, packed some common household medicines, and brought them along. After leaving them at the door, the middle-aged man gallantly messaged Ling, "Miss Lin, I've left the things at your door. If it's not convenient for you to come out, I'll head back first. But please remember to pick them up." The middle-aged man lingered at the door for a long time, reluctant to leave, as if the very door of the woman's apartment exuded fragrance. After leaving them at the door, the middle-aged man gallantly messaged Ling, "Miss Lin, I've left the things at your door. If it's not convenient for you to come out, I'll head back first. But please remember to pick them up." The middle-aged man lingered at the door for a long time, reluctant to leave, as if the very door of the woman's apartment exuded fragrance. Through the peephole, Ling saw the pile of supplies at her door, which included not only rice and vegetables, but also a generous amount of medicine. She replied adorably brotherly, "From now on, just call me 𝑃. Thank you for the things. When I'm feeling better in a few days, I'll definitely invite you in to taste the tea I brew myself." Through the peephole, Ling saw the pile of supplies at her door, which included not only rice and vegetables, but also a generous amount of medicine. She replied adorably brotherly, "From now on, just call me 𝑃. Thank you for the things. When I'm feeling better in a few days, I'll definitely invite you in to taste the tea I brew myself." Tea tasting. The middle-aged man licked his lips. Was that some kind of code? Lin Ying's repeated use of Big Brother made Li Yong's heart flutter. Li Yong quickly replied, "You're welcome." Then he lingered around Lin Ying's door for a long time before reluctantly leaving. Tea tasting. The middle-aged man licked his lips. Was that some kind of code? Lin Ying's repeated use of Big Brother made Li Yong's heart flutter. Li Yong quickly replied, "You're welcome." Then he lingered around Lin Ying's door for a long time before reluctantly leaving. Through the peephole, Lin Ying carefully watched until the bald man had left before opening the door. She quickly brought in all the food and medicine, then locked the door again. She stored the food away and couldn't help but curse Li Yong under her breath, that greasy, disgusting man. Everything that happened at Lin Ying's door was within Yang Ling's surveillance range. He found watching Lin Ying and the other owners' behavior more entertaining than watching a movie. Yang Ling then checked the virtual space. There were still 2 days until he could enter 2024 again. Everything that happened at Lin Ying's door was within Yang Ling's surveillance range. He found watching Lin Ying and the other owners' behavior more entertaining than watching a movie. Yang Ling then checked the virtual space. There were still 2 days until he could enter 2024 again. Bored, he said to 𝑃, "In half an hour open all the windows in old lady 𝑍's house." That disgusting old lady Sue had just tagged him in the group chat, urging him to become a volunteer. She had malicious intentions. Bored, he said to 𝑃, "In half an hour open all the windows in old lady 𝑍's house." That disgusting old lady Sue had just tagged him in the group chat, urging him to become a volunteer. She had malicious intentions. "Yes, master." 𝑃 acknowledged and set a scheduled command to open all windows in old lady 𝑍's house in half an hour. Old lady Sue and her husband Zhang Zhong had actually received a call from their son, Deputy Mayor Zhang Xiang, the night before. Their son told them some top-secret information that had not yet been made public. For example, meteorological experts had determined through detailed analysis that this extreme weather was not caused by the so-called Siberian cold air moving south, but rather by problems with the Earth's rotation and the sun's orbit. This was a very serious issue, meaning that the extreme weather could not be changed by human willpower or technological level. For example, meteorological experts had determined through detailed analysis that this extreme weather was not caused by the so-called Siberian cold air moving south, but rather by problems with the Earth's rotation and the sun's orbit. This was a very serious issue, meaning that the extreme weather could not be changed by human willpower or technological level. The experts also predicted that the duration of this extreme weather could be very long. They couldn't even determine exactly how long it would last. Their son advised old lady Sue and old Zhang to stockpile more supplies and stay indoors as much as possible. Zhang Xiang did not tell old lady Sue that the government had actually evacuated to underground bunkers built for wartime shelter. Due to limited evacuation slots and time constraints, Zhang Xiang had only taken his wife and children into the bunker, leaving old lady Sue outside. Zhang Xiang did not tell old lady Sue that the government had actually evacuated to underground bunkers built for wartime shelter. Due to limited evacuation slots and time constraints, Zhang Xiang had only taken his wife and children into the bunker, leaving old lady Sue outside. In other words, from that point on, the government was only issuing phone calls or documents instructing grassroots organizations to resist the disaster and save themselves without providing any substantial help. Most of the supplies in Jiangzhou City's warehouses had been moved into the underground bunkers days earlier. The remaining supplies were nowhere near enough to support the city's millions of people for even a week, let alone longer. In other words, from that point on, the government was only issuing phone calls or documents instructing grassroots organizations to resist the disaster and save themselves without providing any substantial help. Most of the supplies in Jiangzhou City's warehouses had been moved into the underground bunkers days earlier. The remaining supplies were nowhere near enough to support the city's millions of people for even a week, let alone longer. The government's official document requiring communities to arrange volunteers to transport supplies for residential areas was just a temporary measure to maintain social stability and make the public believe the government was capable of helping them. It was precisely because of her son's advance warning that old lady Sue had prepared well, buying a lot of supplies before the panic buying began. That was why she had the confidence to show off in the group earlier. The government's official document requiring communities to arrange volunteers to transport supplies for residential areas was just a temporary measure to maintain social stability and make the public believe the government was capable of helping them. It was precisely because of her son's advance warning that old lady Sue had prepared well, buying a lot of supplies before the panic buying began. That was why she had the confidence to show off in the group earlier. While organizing the food, categorizing different items into plastic bags, old lady Sue said to old Zhang, who was reading the newspaper on the sofa, "Old man, I've been uneasy about that video upstairs Ling took of us taking his money last time. How can we get that video back?" While organizing the food, categorizing different items into plastic bags, old lady Sue said to old Zhang, who was reading the newspaper on the sofa, "Old man, I've been uneasy about that video upstairs Ling took of us taking his money last time. How can we get that video back?" Old lady's earlier push to have Ling become a volunteer was not only to annoy him, but also because she knew that being a volunteer was fraught with danger, and she hoped Ling would die out there. Old Zu's husband Zhang Zhong said, "What's the hurry? Didn't our son say so? Who knows how long this extreme weather will last?" That Ling upstairs, don't be fooled by his posting about grilled steak and fruit in the group chat. He's just putting on a show. People always flaunt what they lack. I'm sure he doesn't have much food either. Let's just outlast him. After a week or two without food, he'll starve to death. Or if he begs us for food, we'll make him trade his videos for it. That way it won't affect our son. Old Sue nodded repeatedly, thinking her husband's idea was good. Then she couldn't help worrying. I wonder how long this damn cold season will last. Just as old Sue and her husband were chatting, the AI assistant Xiaoying opened the window of old Zu's house. Suddenly, a blizzard of wind and snow poured into the room. Half a month ago, due to the heavy snowstorm and insufficient fuel supply, Jiangzhou City stopped providing heating. Most residents of Lihu Tianzhu were well off. After the gas supply was cut off, they all switched their air conditioners to heating mode, where they took out small heaters, oil-filled radiators, and other heating devices, and plugged them in. At that time, the power supply was still normal, so users had no awareness of a potential shortage. Old Zu's house also had the air conditioner running on heating mode 247, but the outdoor temperature was -30 to 40 degrees Celsius. The air conditioner's heating mode was certainly no match for central heating. Even with all the air conditioners on, the room temperature could only be maintained at around 7 to 8 degrees. With the sudden influx of cold air, old Sue shivered violently. Not knowing what was happening, she scolded her husband. "What, are you crazy? Why are you opening the window in this cold weather?" Zhang Zhong, who had been sitting on the sofa watching TV, everyone had been cooped up indoors for a while, feeling very oppressed. Zhang Zhong, provoked by old Zu's scolding, swore back. "Who the hell opened the window? Are you crazy? You didn't close it properly, and you blame me." Old Sue had no choice but to brave the wind and snow to quickly close the window. The water in the fish tank on the balcony instantly froze, and all the fish died. Old Sue was puzzled. She muttered to herself, "I didn't open the window." The window was installed by Ling, equipped with eavesdropping devices, smart control devices, and surveillance equipment. Naturally, he saw everything that happened in the room clearly. Old Sue was indeed malicious, planning to starve him to death. In that case, even if he recorded videos, they would have no fear. Ling then said to Xiaoying, Xiaoying, open the window again. Open old Zu's window. Then lock it so they can't close it." Xiaoying immediately replied, "Yes, master." Executing command. This time old Sue broke down. Her voice trembled as she said, "I clearly closed the window. Why did it open again? Did the wind blow it open?" Old Sue tried hard to close the window, but aside from swallowing snow and cold wind and shivering all over, the window didn't budge. "Old man, you useless thing still lying on the sofa. Come and see what's wrong with this window. Why want it close?" The old man, who had difficulty moving, stood up shakily and said, "What's wrong with the window? Wasn't it just replaced?" The old man and old Sue both tried to force the window shut, but it simply wouldn't close. The elderly were already frail. After being exposed to the cold wind for several minutes, they eventually ran out of strength and kept coughing and sneezing. Old Sue had no choice but to cry, "Curse heaven and earth," and pull the curtains shut. But how could curtains block the cold wind? The two had to quickly move some essential daily necessities to the small storage room next to the kitchen. Then they locked the door tightly. The small room had no windows, but also no air conditioner. Moreover, the wooden door of the storage room provided no insulation. It could only keep them from being directly blown by the wind. Perhaps after being exposed to the cold wind, both felt very unwell, especially Zhang Zhong, who developed a fever. Now old Sue panicked. With a tearful voice, she called her son, the deputy mayor. "Zhang Xiang, where are you now? Can you arrange someone to fix our window? Our window somehow opens by itself after we close it, and then won't close again. Now your father and I are freezing. We can only stay in the storage room. Also, your father caught a cold wind and has a fever. He needs medical attention urgently. Zhang Xiang was at that moment in the underground fortress attending a national emergency video conference on prevention and control. The severity of the situation exceeded everyone's expectations. The capital had already changed some work plans for extreme because the data obtained showed that many cities, especially rural areas, had a large number of people frozen to death. The country was no longer trying to prevent people from freezing to death. Rather, it was to do everything possible to protect the citizens who had already entered the underground bunkers, ensure they had stable living supplies to survive the extreme weather, and guarantee that the government's administrative system remained intact amid such harsh conditions. As for the residents in rural areas, or those still in the city, there was nothing to be done. Even if they were their own relatives, because the snow was too heavy, all vehicles lost power. The weather was too cold, the hospitals had long ceased operations. The patients lying in the wards were left to live or die unknown. Some hospital experts, along with the more skilled doctors and nurses, had already been transferred to the underground bunkers with the government. At present, the city's power and water supply systems seemed normal, but that was because the mechanical equipment was still running on it. Only a small number of staff remained at the power station. However, the raw materials for power generation were nearly exhausted, and power rationing would likely begin within a few days. The supply would change from 24-hour power to centralized power supply for a few hours each day, thereby extending fuel consumption time. But eventually the power would go out completely. At this time, even as Deputy Mayor Zhang Xiang had no way to send his father to the hospital. Unable to help his parents, Zhang Xiang was extremely anguished. But he had no choice. He could only comfort old Su over the phone, saying that medical resources were scarce, and that going to the hospital would be troublesome and might worsen the condition. Zhang Xiang told old Su to find some medicine at home to temporarily control his father's condition while he would try to find a way to get his father to the hospital. That's what Zhang Xiang said. But deep down he knew that if his father fell ill now after the extreme cold weather ended, he might never see his father again. Just as Zhang Xiang hung up the phone, his wife Ling gave him a cold stare. In a very indifferent tone she said, "What? Are you thinking of risking going back to bring your parents here?" Zhang Xiang quickly comforted Ling, saying, "It's nothing. Mom just called saying the window at home is broken and the cold wind and blizzard are blowing in. She asked me to find someone to fix it." Ling scoffed. "In this terrible weather all the shops are closed. Half the people in the city might die in a few days. Who's going to fix windows? If you want to fix the window, go ahead yourself. I'm not going with you, and neither is our son." The underground fortress, long neglected, could shelter them from the wind and snow, but the stench inside was unbearable. Coupled with the overcrowding, the mix of foul odors made Ling's mood plummet. Her eyes reddened as she spoke, wondering when this wretched life would end. From the underground fortress to Tianju was over 30 kilometers away. Driving would take nearly an hour, let alone now, when the blizzard had blocked all roads, making driving impossible. Food in the underground fortress was scarce. As Deputy Mayor Zhang Xiang still received some special treatment, but even that barely sustained their family of 3. Logically, he could never risk his life walking to bring his parents over. Even if he managed to get them here, there wouldn't be enough food. Zhang Xiang patted Ling's shoulder and said, "Don't worry, I'm here." At Unit 802, Building 77, Tianju, old Madame Su and old Zhang had been living in the storage room for 3 days. The temperature inside was freezing. Even huddled together in thick cotton coats and down jackets, the bone-chilling cold was unbearable. Old Zhang had been running a fever since the night before last. Old Madame Su had given him all the fever and cold medicine at home, but nothing worked. Now old Zhang lay on the floor, his body temperature at 39.2 degrees Celsius, muttering deliriously. 2 days ago, old Madame Su had been hopeful, waiting for her son to send workers to fix the window and doctors to take her husband to the hospital. She had optimistically told him, "Our son is the deputy mayor. He must have some privileges." But 2 days later she was utterly despondent. Not only had her son not sent anyone, but now even his phone was unreachable. Old Madame Su tried calling 120 and 110 for help, but all lines were dead. Watching old Zhang shiver uncontrollably, even showing signs of convulsion, she panicked. She quickly sent a message in the owner's group. "My husband has a high fever and is starting to convulse. Is there anyone kind enough to help get him to the hospital?" After sending the message and attaching photos and videos of old Zhang, she waited. But no one replied in the group. Seeing her husband's condition worsen, she felt fear and terror. She then mentioned her old friends and neighbors who usually chatted. Zhangfun, are you home? Could you ask your son to help take my husband to the hospital?" At that moment, Zhangfun was hiding under her blanket. Though their food supplies were still adequate, her family had been trapped indoors for nearly a week, and the oppressive mood weighed on everyone. Seeing the message, she chose not to reply. Old Madame Su then mentioned Zhang Li, who had come with gifts of cigarettes and wine not long ago. "Zhang Li, could you ask your 2 sons to help? My husband is dying, I beg you." Her hands trembling, she tried to type a message, but her fingers shook so badly, she couldn't form a single word. She quickly sent a voice message, forgetting even to message Zhongli privately. She said directly in the group, "A while ago you asked my son to help your daughter-in-law get a job. I've spoken to him, and it can definitely be arranged. Could you please come and help me?" Some owners in the group saw old Zhang's photos and videos, feeling pity. "They Zhongli," she said, "shall help your daughter-in-law with the job. Why not go and help her?" "Exactly, we can't be so cold-hearted." Annoyed by the constant mentions, Zhongli finally replied impatiently in the group, "Your son is the deputy mayor. If you have a problem, call him." "Why call me? The snow is so heavy it's almost buried the first floor. How can my sons help you? Should we all walk to the hospital?" An owner on the first floor replied with a bitter laugh, "Indeed, the snow has already covered my windows. But I've kept the windows shut. Being buried in snow actually makes the house a bit warmer, just darker." Everyone praised the first floor owner's optimism. Someone then asked, "The volunteers left 3 days ago. Why haven't they brought food yet?" They mentioned the property management staff, who replied, "The snow is too heavy. The volunteers might take another 2 days to return. Please be patient. Once they're back, we'll arrange them to distribute food immediately." The group then moved on to other topics, completely forgetting old Madame Zu's plea. Old Madame Su wept as she typed, "Please someone help us. My son is the deputy mayor. If you help, he'll make sure he helps you with any future difficulties. I just need someone to take my husband to the hospital. I can pay for the service." Just as someone asked how much she would pay, an owner on the 11th floor posted a video in the group. The video was clearly taken by a patient in a hospital. The patient lay on a bed covered with a thick blanket. The entire ward was dead silent. The 4 bottle for the patient in the next bed had frozen into ice. No nurse came to help. Looking closer, that patient had been dead for days, with rigor mortis already visible. The patient filming struggled to stand, coughing violently, and shouted, "Is anyone?" But no doctor or nurse responded. He walked out of the ward to find the nurse's station empty. In other wards, many patients had been dead for days, left unattended. At the end of the video, the person filming collapsed from exhaustion, his phone falling to the floor. He kept shouting in a despairing, hoarse voice, "Is anyone there to help me?" Clearly, the person filming hadn't eaten in days. The owner who posted the video said in despair, "The person filming is my father. I've been calling his phone, but no one answers. I think he might have passed away. The day he sent me the video, he said all the doctors and nurses had run away, leaving the hospital. He hadn't eaten in days, and his lung infection was untreated. I wanted to go to the hospital to save him, but the outdoor temperature is minus 50 degrees, with strong winds and heavy snow. It's impossible to move. So Aunt Sue, don't think about sending him to the hospital. There are no doctors or nurses there now. Sending him would just be waiting to die." Ling, cracking sunflower seeds, watched the group messages. He silently sympathized, thinking that if old Zhang died, now he would suffer less. Dragging it out like this would be a true hell on earth. Just then, the owner of Unit 901, Oi Building 1, said, "I'm a doctor. I can come and check on Uncle Zhang." Ling suddenly realized that Unit 901 was right across from his own place. Since moving in, he had built his safe room and stayed inside, never coming out. He had no idea who his neighbors were. The fact that one of them was a doctor piqued his interest. Ling watched the surveillance footage outside his door. After waiting about 10 minutes, the security door of apartment 901 opposite opened. Finally, a tall woman, approximately 170 centimeters in height, emerged from the room. The woman was wearing a thick down jacket, a fleece hat, and a mask, making her features indistinguishable. Ling said, "Xiaoing, zoom in on the surveillance footage." Xiaoing immediately replied, "Understood, master." Enlarging the surveillance footage. After the footage was magnified, Ling, through the pair of fiercely spirited eyes exposed above the mask, carefully discerned that the doctor across the way was likely a young woman. Although her features were entirely obscured except for, one could judge from those deep and bright eyes that the female doctor was by no means unattractive. Moreover, her tall and slender figure, even wrapped in a thick down jacket, could provoke fantasies in men. The video feed continuously switched as the woman walked. Soon the female doctor arrived at apartment 802. After adjusting her medical bag, the female doctor gently knocked on the door and said, "Annie Sue, I'm here. Please open the door." But old Mrs. Sue and old Mr. Zhang were sheltering from the wind and snow in the storeroom next to the kitchen. The wind howled through the living room, and the two of them could not hear any sound from outside. The corridor was also extremely cold. After standing for a long time, Shenwei could not help but stamp her feet to warm up. She knocked hard again, but still no one answered. She then took out her phone and sent a message to old Mrs. Sue saying she had arrived at the door. After about a minute, old Mrs. Sue hurriedly opened the door. Seeing Shenwei, she said, both moved and excited, "ODR. Shen, I'm so glad you're home. I didn't know what to do." As she spoke, tears streamed down old Mrs. Zu's face. "Please come in. My husband's condition doesn't seem good." As soon as Shenwei entered the house, she noticed something was wrong. The living room window was wide open. Snow outside had already buried half the living room, and the water dispenser inside had frozen solid. The goldfish in the tank still looked vividly beautiful, but upon closer inspection, they were already encased in ice. Shinwei asked in surprise, "Auntie Sue, why didn't you close the window in such cold weather?" At the mention of this, old Mrs. Sue felt a flood of bitterness and wanted to cry. If not for the window being stuck, she and old Mr. Zhang would not have had to endure the biting wind. How could old Mr. Zhang now be lying in the storeroom? Old Mr. Zhang was running a high fever. Old Mrs. Sue sobbed, "I don't know how it happened. The window was just renovated, but suddenly it won't close. Dr. Shin, please come and check on my husband. He's been feverish for 3 days. I gave him fever reducers and tried physical cooling, but his temperature won't drop. Since last night, he hasn't eaten a thing." Shinwei first tried to close the window, only to find it completely stuck. Moreover, after being exposed to the wind and snow for several days, the entire window was frozen shut. She exerted considerable effort, but the window wouldn't budge. Helpless, she gave up and quickly followed old Mrs. Sue to the storeroom next to the kitchen, carrying the medical bag. Once they entered the storeroom, Yang Ling's surveillance could no longer see anything. However, Yang Ling couldn't help but feel that this Dr. Shin was a fool. In times like these, everyone was looking out for themselves. She was still risking herself to treat old Mr. Zhang. Old Mrs. Sue had a malicious heart. If she had ulterior motives, Dr. Shin would have nowhere to cry even if she wanted. Inside the storeroom, perhaps due to the stale air, or because she had exhausted herself trying to close the window, Shinwei removed her mask. If Yang Ling could see her appearance, he would be utterly astonished. Her features were delicate and harmonious, every detail exuding an elegant aura. Her eyes were large and expressive, as if they could see into the secrets of. In particular, her phoenix eyes were fiercely spirited, conveying a sense of competence and aloofness. Her nose was straight and delicate, outlining the graceful contours of her face. Dr. Shin skillfully opened her medical bag. First, she took old Mr. Zhang's temperature, then examined his pupils, and used a stethoscope to listen to his chest. Throughout the process, old Mr. Zhang showed no reaction, lying on the floor and gasping heavily. Old Mrs. Sue asked anxiously, "Dr. Shin, how is my husband?" Taking off the stethoscope, Shinwei said very seriously and pessimistically, "For now, I can only make a preliminary diagnosis of a lung infection. As for whether other organs are damaged, without professional equipment or the ability to draw blood, I dare not jump to conclusion." In truth, Shinwei wanted to tell old Mrs. Sue that old Mr. Zhang's condition was likely beyond saving. She had also seen the video in the owner's group. All hospitals and medical facilities had collapsed, and medical staff were nowhere to be found. Under these circumstances, with such heavy snow and temperatures of -40 to 50 degrees, old Mr. Zhang's condition was hopeless. As a professional doctor, Shinwei still had some medical equipment at home. She struggled to help old Mr. Zhang up and said to old Mrs. Sue, "Auntie Sue, let's move Uncle Zhang to my place. The conditions here are too poor. I have a few bottles of glucose saline and some antibiotics at home. They'll start in 4 for him first. Let's try to hold out until rescue comes. The government won't abandon us." Hearing this, old Mrs. Sue quickly lent a hand. Her house, even if lavishly decorated, was useless because the window. She and old Mr. Zhang could only huddle in the stuffy storeroom. Going to Shinwei's place was much better. At least there the windows could be closed, and there was a warm bed. It would benefit both old Mr. Zhang and herself. The two of them struggled to get old Mr. Zhang on his feet, then laboriously supported him as they walked towards Shinwei's apartment. Old Mrs. Sue said apologetically, "Dr. Shin, won your family member's mind." Shinwei wiped the sweat from her forehead with her sleeve and said, "I live alone here after graduation. There's no one else." Old Mrs. Sue was delighted to hear this. That's good, that's good. She thought that she would definitely move the food stockpile from her home to Shinwei's place. If Shinwei's family had several people, the food would not be enough. The two of them finally managed to move old Mr. Zhang out of the storeroom. This scene was also seen by Yang Ling, who had been keeping an eye on the surveillance equipment. Yang Ling witnessed this scene, couldn't help touching his nose, and sighed. Shinwei seems to be moving Granny Sue and old man Zhang into her own home. This is simply the tale of the farmer and the snake. Then Yang Ling said to Xiaoying, "Xiaoying, keep an eye on the surveillance at 901 at all times. Alert me if anything unusual happens. I'm going to get some sleep." Not that Yang Ling was moved by compassion, but he thought that in this apocalypse, having a doctor nearby to take care of him would greatly increase his chances of survival. Xiaoying replied, "Yes, master." From the 8th floor to the 9th floor, they could have taken the elevator, but it had stopped running since yesterday. Shinwei and Granny Sue expended great effort, taking nearly half an hour before they finally, panting heavily, moved old man Zhang into Shinwei's home. As soon as Granny Sue entered the living room, she looked around Shinwei's furnishings. Building 77, Unit 1, all units had the same layout except for the ground floor, which had a garden, and the top floor, which was a duplex. Shinwei's decoration and condition were much simpler than Granny Sue's. Simple, but cozy. At least the windows were tightly shut. Moreover, she had an electric heater running, keeping the indoor temperature around 11 to 12 degrees Celsius, much warmer than Granny Sue's storage room. The two of them struggled to carry Old Man Zhang to the bed in the guest room. Granny Su kept thanking her. "I'm so embarrassed, sorry to trouble you, Dr. Shun." Shenwei had no time to chat with Granny Su. She quickly took out medical equipment and put Old Man Zhang on in 4 drip. First, she administered compound sodium chloride to maintain electrolyte balance, as prolonged fever easily causes acid-base imbalance. Then she hung a bottle of glucose injection with potassium chloride and antibiotics. This method certainly could not completely cure pneumonia, but it could buy some time day by day. If the government could send rescue teams in the following days, then Old Man Zhang would be saved. Seeing that her man was temporarily out of danger, Granny Su sneaked around the living room and kitchen. She also took the opportunity, while Shun Wei wasn't paying attention, to open Shun Wei's refrigerator. She hadn't expected much, but opening it gave her a big shock. Shun Wei's refrigerator was completely empty. Judging from the kitchen traces, Shun Wei had been living on plain white rice or noodles for the past few days. The noodles were all gone, and the rice might last another day or two. There were no vegetables or meat. Granny Su said, "Dr. Shun, haven't you stockpiled any supplies?" Shun Wei finished her tasks, washed her hands, and said with a wry smile, "Aunt Su, I work at the hospital with long hours, usually eating hospital meals or takeout. I rarely cook at home, so I didn't buy much. There's a bit of rice and noodles in the kitchen bought from the supermarket during the spring festival." Granny Su couldn't help sighing. "Oh dear girl, how many days can these noodles and rice last you?" Granny Su had already decided to make Shun Wei's place her new base, at least until her son could find a way to send someone to fix the windows. So Granny Su said, "Girl, I still have some supplies at home. There are fruits, vegetables, meat, and buns in the refrigerator. Look, my house is no longer livable. How about we go together and move the things here, pool our resources, what do you say?" Shun Wei was also calculating. Her remaining supplies could only last a few days. She had already reduced her food intake, eating only 2 meals a day. Noodles in the morning, a little rice porridge in the evening. As a medical professional, she knew that a diet of only carbohydrates couldn't sustain her for long. So she took some oral vitamins to maintain her health. As for protein, she couldn't think about that for now. At home, besides her own body, there was no other source of protein. Since Aunt Su made this request, Shun Wei naturally didn't refuse. The two of them exerted considerable effort and finally managed to move all the edible items from Aunt Su's home. And all the wearable clothes were moved over. After Yang Ling's reminder, the showering assistant would immediately alert him whenever there was activity at the neighbors. So Yang Ling also witnessed this scene. He couldn't help shaking his head, thinking Shun Wei's actions were utterly incomprehensible. Just as Shun Wei and Granny Su were sweating from moving the supplies, Granny Su was about to go to the kitchen to cook a nice meal to thank Shun Wei when another message appeared in the owner group. The owner of Unit 30502 anxiously sent a video saying, "It's over. I saw a video someone posted on Moments. The community warehouse seems to be completely buried under snow. I don't know if our supplies have been taken out. It had been snowing heavily every day recently, and the snow outside had reached 1.5 to 2 meters deep. 𝓃 was located on higher ground halfway up the hill, so the snow only covered half of the first floor. But Binjiang community was by the river at a lower. It was reasonable that days of heavy snow had completely covered the warehouse." After this video was sent both in the small group of Building 77 and in the large group of 𝓃. All the owners were discussing frantically. Some say the volunteers who went out from each building might be buried in the warehouse or dead on the road. Others say maybe these people took the supplies and never returned, going to take shelter themselves. That's unlikely. Each building has 4 volunteers. The number of volunteers must be at least several hundred. Impossible. If those hundreds of people didn't bring the supplies back with such heavy snow outside, where would they go? Someone frantically asked the property management, hoping for an explanation. But the property management said they were unclear about the situation and were urgently contacting the volunteers. Some volunteers were friends with certain owners in the group. One owner said, "Brother Chin next door went to be a volunteer, but during this time no matter how many calls I or Brother Chin's wife made, the phone rang, but no one answered. Until today the phone is completely unreachable." After this message was posted, many people in the owner group comforted, maybe the phone battery died. Or the snow could have damaged the signal tower, causing poor reception. Don't worry, they'll surely come back. Yang Ling silently watched the chat in the owner group. He was very clear that some of these volunteers had indeed died on the road, or were trapped in the warehouse and couldn't get out for a while. But most of them, when they were bringing the supplies back to the community, were intercepted by the owners and property management. The property manager of the residential community had connections within the city government. Otherwise, they would never have secured the management contract for the most luxurious neighborhood in Jiangzhou City. The property manager had long received word from the government that a portion of citizens along with officials had already evacuated to underground bunkers. The response to the extreme weather had shifted from full-scale disaster relief to using limited resources to sustain the basic needs of those in the bunkers and ensure the government's smooth operation. Thus, the citizens still trapped in the city above ground, unable to enter the bunkers, had essentially been abandoned by the government, their survival uncertain. The property staff at 𝑃 had more or less caught wind of this news from the manager. United, they seized all supplies brought back by volunteers, refusing to distribute them. As for the volunteers who had returned, Ling suspected they had met a grim fate, likely murdered by the property staff. How did Ling know? Because before his rebirth, he had been enslaved by these very property staff. They had sliced flesh from his body bit by bit to make meat dumplings, and he had bled to death. The property staff knew the community's layout well and possessed some riot gear. Moreover, they had long endured the arrogance. Watching the wealthy, haughty residents of 𝑃 strut about, the staff harbored deep-seated jealousy and resentment. In the apocalypse, they thought wealth and status. Thus, under the manager's organization, the property staff went all in, seizing supplies and establishing themselves as the dominant force in 𝑃. Many homeowners, desperate to survive, were forced to submit to the property staff. Ironically, some still placed all their hopes in them. These people would probably be counting money while being killed by the property staff. Ling had earlier used his assistant 𝑃 to apply for numerous WeChat sub-accounts. These sub-accounts lurked in various building group chats and the main resident group. Ling controlled one to post a message: still waiting for the property staff to hand out supplies. I think you should stop counting on that. Many of our volunteers actually got supplies, but guess what? When they reached the gates of 𝑃, the property staff killed them all and stole the goods. The supplies are now in the property office. Everyone beware of the property staff. Don't open your doors for them no matter what. Heaven has fallen, each must fend for themselves. When Ling sent this message, the group exploded. Homeowners frantically messaged, some in shock and disbelief. Others thought Ling was lying. How is that possible? How could the property staff kill volunteers? Don't spread rumors. Murder is illegal. My God, where did you hear this? Is it true? My husband volunteered 4 days ago. I've called his phone, but he hasn't replied. His phone has ultra-long battery life, so it can't be dead. More people frantically tagged the property staff, demanding an explanation. The staff quickly denied it, saying, "Don't listen to this person's nonsense." Then the property staff tagged Ling's sub-account and scolded, "Which building and unit are you from? Why haven't you changed your display name?" Ling replied with a smirk, "Oh, the truth stings, doesn't it? Exposing your evil deeds, and you want me to reveal my address. So you can come chop me up?" Ling added, "I'll say it once more, beware of the property staff." Before he could finish, he was kicked out of the group. But Ling had many sub-accounts still lurking, so he could monitor the group. The property staff immediately tagged, "Everyone, don't believe that person. He's spreading panic. We've checked. He's not even a resident here. He's an outsider trying to stir up trouble in our community." In these special times, we urge all 𝑃 residents to stand together and trust us, the property team. We are actively contacting relevant authorities and the volunteers. We'll update you as soon as we have news. Despite the denial, the extreme circumstances, and Ling's words left the homeowners restless. A desperate, tearful voice message came through: "If the volunteers don't return, and we have no food, what will we do? I have nothing left to eat. I even rummaged through the trash at noon. I found leftover meals from days ago to barely stave off hunger. Will I starve like this?" Those with the least supplies were mostly young people. One homeowner said, "I have no food left at home." Soon many others echoed similar situations. "I have a bundle of noodles, but I don't know how long it will last." "You're lucky to have noodles. I only have 2 packs of instant noodles, and they're expired." Many frantically tagged the property staff, begging them to find food. But the property staff, who had been so vehement in their denial, went silent. Soon homeowners sought help in their building groups, or the main group. "Dear neighbors, I'm from Building 64, Unit 1, Room 1103. Can anyone spare a few caddies of rice? I don't expect it for free. I have some bottles of mitai. They'll trade 1 bottle for 5 caddies of rice." In normal times, trading mitai for rice would seem absurd. A bottle costs around 300 to 400, while even the best rice is only about 10 yuan per caddy. But in this apocalypse, no one knew how long the extreme weather would, nor when the government would rescue them. The most precious thing wasn't mitai, but food. Seeing no reply in the group, he gritted his teeth. "Please, my family has nothing to eat. We're 5 people, young and old. They'll trade a case of mitai for 5 caddies of rice." This offer finally tempted some home. Food was precious, but a case of mitai was hard to resist. A case held 6 bottles worth at least 1800 yuan. 5 caddies of rice cost only a few dozen yuan at the supermarket. Some homeowners with ample supplies, or those who had stockpiled from supermarkets earlier, were tempted. Sure enough, one homeowner tagged the 1103 resident, offering to trade food for mitai. The owner of Unit 2, Building 64, Apartment 602 said, "I think I'm in the same building as you, but not the same unit. It's okay, he'll come up from the underground garage." The owner of Apartment 1103, seeing that their request had finally received a response, expressed gratitude in the group. They also stated that their mitai was not from this year, but had been aged for 7 or 8 years, absolutely worth the price. With the owner of apartment 1103 taking the lead soon, both the large and small owner groups transformed into most were exchanging expensive liquor and cigarettes for food, each taking what they needed hoping to endure this frigid summer. Young Ling shook his head at this sight. Indeed, bartering allowed the owners to maximize the utility of the food stockpiled at home. But these owners had failed to grasp one thing. Their willingness to barter stemmed from confidence in the future. They believed that within a week or two, at most half a month, or a month the government would send rescuers, or the weather would improve allowing them to return to work life and shopping at supermarkets. Thus they thought trading food for Maudai or expensive cigarettes was a great deal. Yet they never considered that the government would never come to their rescue, and that food was fine. Trading food for a carton of cigarettes or a case of liquor now would eventually cost you dearly. Ling, however, was smarter. Ling began exchanging her high-end cosmetics, lipsticks, and perfumes with other owners for food. She likely had a strong premonition that securing food was the top priority. There was no further news in the owner group. Yang Ling turned off his phone and started playing games. He could now travel through virtual space to 2024 and stay there for 72 hours. But Yang Ling hadn't left yet. He planned to rest well before heading to 2024 tomorrow. Meanwhile, in the property management building of 𝓃 manager Su Quan and several senior executives were in the third-floor monitoring room, drinking red wine, eating grilled steak, and staring coldly at the surveillance footage and property group messages. Manager Su questioned his subordinates. Have you identified which building unit and floor the person who spoke in the group just now is from? A subordinate replied helplessly, we conducted an investigation but couldn't find them. In recent years there have been many tenants in 𝓃. I suspect that person might be a tenant. Su Quan asked incredulously, how would a tenant know what's happening here? Could they be a volunteer too? Other property staff began to doubt upon hearing this. But that's not right. If they were a volunteer, they would have to pass through the main gate to return. We set up a net at the main gate. No one could escape. How could they possibly know? Manager Su, I think we're overthinking. That person is probably just going crazy from confinement and making random guesses. Su Quan licked his lips, took a drag of his cigarette, and said, that may be, but we still need to be cautious. These owners haven't formed a real threat yet. We must pick them off one by one. We need to establish our dominance over 𝓃 as soon as possible. Only then can we secure more food and survive this damned era. Among the property staff of 𝓃, apart from manager Su, who was a local, most were maintenance workers, cleaners, and they were from rural areas near Jiangzhou City, or even farther. Having long been at the bottom of society, they suddenly felt they could turn the tables and become masters. Everyone felt a perverse thrill. A few staff members joked with Manager Su. Manager Su, at yesterday's meeting you said each department would manage one building. Don't interfere with what we do then. Manager Su blew a smoke ring and said, the immediate priority is to trick the residents into handing over their supplies. Once the supplies are in our hands, I don't care about the rest. A middle-aged security guard in a cap let out two lecherous chuckles. With an extremely obscene expression he said, I request to be in charge of building 77. There are a few female owners there with stunning looks. Back when they entered the building I'd greet them, but they'd look down their noses at me, ignoring me completely. Now I want to see them kneeling before me begging. After the guard's words, many others broke into lewd smiles as if their good days were just ahead. Then Manager Su asked, don't get ahead of yourselves. Tell me, have you dealt with the bodies outside the main gate? The security guards patted their chests and said, don't worry, they're all buried under the snow. No one will find them. Those owners are all weaklings. Most didn't even bring back much food, and plenty died on the road. Pathetic. Manager Su continued, I've received notice that starting tomorrow Jiangzhou City will implement power rationing. We'll stick to the original plan. Whenever the power comes on, charge our backup batteries first. If the voltage is unstable, prioritize the property management building. Then supply the owners. We must stay united. If I find anyone violating our rules, don't blame me for being harsh. At Building 77, Unit 1, Apartment 901, Old Lady Su from Shunwai's home was also monitoring the property group messages. Although many owners didn't believe Yang Ling's words from his alternate account, and the property staff came out to refute them, Old Lady Su had gleaned some insider information from her son that ordinary people wouldn't know. Thus, she believed that some of the volunteers who hadn't returned might have died on the road or in the warehouse, but most were likely killed by the property staff after bringing back supplies which were then stolen. Old Lady Su shuddered uncontrollably. She wondered if with all the food in her house it might one day be plundered too. Just then Shinwei approached. Seeing Old Lady Zu's startled expression, she assumed it was due to worry about Old John's condition. Regarding Old John's situation, Shinwei indeed found it hard to say much. He was merely lying in bed waiting for death. Despite Shinwei administering electrolytes, glucose, and antibiotics, Old John's condition showed no improvement. Instead, it worsened, and he had fallen into a deep coma. To put it bluntly, he could pass away at any moment. But as a doctor, Shinwei couldn't just give up on a patient she knew was dying. She came to discuss something with Old Lady Su. Shinwei said, Andy Sue, someone on the 6th floor is sick. The situation isn't good. It's a child along with the mother and grandmother. The child and grandmother are in serious condition with persistent high fevers. There might be an inflammatory infection. I want to bring all three here for treatment. Is that okay? Upon hearing this, old lady Z's face darkened.